Summon Sign is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 27 of Summon Sign, Last Time Media's weekly in-depth game discussion podcast. I'm your host, as always, Brad Ellis. And joining me this week are the Moriartys, Colin and Micah. I don't think I've had both of you on anything. This is a unique combo. I like this. Husband and wife. I am the third wheel here, but I'm totally okay with it.
That's totally fine.
How are you guys doing?
I'm well. Micah, how are you?
I'm doing very well. I forgot to put on socks. So I got my blanket here, so I'm going to be okay, but I'm going to be thinking about it for a while now.
Just go get your socks. It's okay.
No, I can't mid-sock it. No, it's you got to start the show the way you end the show. Because then I'll be thinking about the socks. Did I pick good ones? Sometimes you put on a pair of socks and they're not right, and you got to switch them for a different pair of socks, you know?
Wait. What do you mean they're not right?
Well, I have a bunch of socks I don't like, and I refuse to throw them away. I threw some of them away recently because I really didn't like them. But it's like, you wear them around for like 10 minutes. You're like, I got to get out of these. But instead of throwing them away, you put them back in the drawer. And then I forget which ones I don't like. So.
Yeah, you definitely have something going on with socks.
People
writing in telling about this one sock trick works. I'm not taking those comments, so Micah. I'm not taking that.
I did see the guy who wrote in saying his wife sleeps with her socks like half off her foot.
That is fucking obscene.
Oh, yeah, I've done that too. Because sometimes you just need half your foot covered, and that's what you need, and that's good enough. I made sure to reply to him because I'm like, Brad's not going to pick this. So I replied.
You're correct. I did not pick that because it's heinous. Wait, you have half your foot, just like half the sock dangling? That's so weird.
Well, sometimes you put on the socks. You're a little too hot. You take off one sock too cold. So you put on both socks, slide them down past your heels, half socks. And that works. That really does work. That's just, you got to find your own rhythm with this. Sure. It really depends on how hot or how cold you're running that day. Usually, though, one sock is the trick. Half socks is a little more extreme. Like, I really can't get comfortable. So I'm going to try this out.
I don't know which one I hate more. Colin, where do you stand on all this sock business?
I don't know, man. I just tune it out.
He just gave up a while ago.
Yeah, like Mike is on so much weird shit that it's like at some point you just got to be. I'm just totally, I don't know when she's trying to get a rise out of me. I don't know when she's like lying or kidding around. I don't know. It's like too much. It's a constant bombardment of utter nonsense. So I have no opinions on almost anything.
It's not a lie. You watched me sleep with one sock on. You've observed it. You've witnessed it.
I suppose. I mean, I don't really know what's going on under the covers, to be honest. But
you've seen it. I
can't see through them.
We're all weird in little ways. Colin, you get called Larry David all the time.
Yeah, I definitely do. But yeah, it's no big deal. It's fine. It seems like people really love Micah's quirks, let's say. So who am I to hate?
Yeah, she's got some for sure. But we all do. All right, before we get into the show, though, please check us out on patreon.com/laststandmedia. If you'd like to support us, you get all of our shows early. If you're on over there, the $5 and up tier, get the show early. Sacred Symbols, our PlayStation podcast that Colin hosts. Punching Up, our Nintendo podcast that Mike is also on. And Defining Duke, our Xbox podcast with the Duke Boys. And, of course, Constellation, all that good stuff, Sacred Symbols Plus. So please check us out. Also, leave us a rating on a podcast service you use. We're on everything. The Spotify's. We're on the iTunes. Dustin covers all that. So please make it worth his while for breaking his back for us. Also, laststandmedia.store if you want to get some merch we got going on over there. We still have Summon Sign shirts, I believe. We had Defining Duke things, but those are over. The pre-orders are gone. But keep an eye out for stuff like that. Also, we have a live show coming up. Colin, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we're playing in quotes, San Diego. September 6th is a Friday at the Observatory North Park. Tickets are available now. You can go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Even if you're not a subscriber, you'll find the post there and you can go. I think we have actually a bit.ly for it though as well. Let me see if I can find this real quick. But while I do that, Yeah, so it's going to be Sacred Symbols versus Defining Duke, and it's going to be a sort of like quiz show and competition that we envision. Yeah, it's bit.ly, so bit.ly/Sacred Dukes. /Sacred Dukes. You can find tickets there now. So yeah, we're going to be doing that. So all of us on Sacred Symbols will be there. The Duke boys will be there. You'll be there. Gene is not going to be there, right? So yeah, it's Jaffe will be there, and Hogue will be there. So we'll have an interesting group of people, and yeah, we hope to see you there. So come check us out if you want to see us in San Diego. It's a wonderful city, lots to do there. It's a great place to visit. So you come see us Friday night. Maybe you'll have Saturday and Sunday to dick around if you'd like.
Oh, we're Friday night. That's big. That's top billing. Yeah. That's very nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Friday. I think it's Friday night. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Let me just double check now. I'm nervous. Yeah, it's a Friday. So.
Micah, will you be there?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent.
I haven't been to California since I was a child, so I'm very excited about this.
Oh, cool. Colin, lots of good gardens there and stuff that we're talking about.
California.
Lots of greenery.
Yeah. Yeah, I love San Diego. So I'm looking forward to being down there. It's a beautiful place. Wonderful food. Nice vibe. Military outpost, so it's kind of safe. You know,
there's some. It'll be a great time of the year to be there also. September in California?
Definitely.
The heat is starting to go away. It'll be good. But we'll be, is it by the Gaslamp District? I'm not exactly sure where it.
Yeah, I don't know San Diego. I don't know San Diego well enough to know where it is exactly.
That's like where like the stadium is. What was it? MetLife or no, something Petco Stadium, I think, or something. It's all down by there. They do Comic-Con and stuff like that. But I can't recall. Anyways, yeah, please be excited for that show. It's going to be sweet. We're going to have a good time. All right. Let's break the ice a little bit. Let's warm up. Colin, let's wake up a little bit, bud.
Do I seem tired?
Low energy.
Oh, all right. Well.
It's okay. Yeah, there you go. That's what I'm talking about. I know. Did you just wake up?
Like an hour ago.
Okay.
Maybe.
Well, it takes a while to wake up.
Yeah. It's actually really nice today. It's only 75 degrees, but it's been so hot that I think it's just ripped all the life out of me.
That's fair. Yeah.
I had quite the scene the other day, actually. I, as people know, I don't eat until late in the day, and it was so hot out. So I got up, I did some work, and then I like floated around the pool and was reading for like a couple hours. I fell asleep in the pool, which is fine. And then I got inside, I worked out for an hour and a half. And while I was working out, I started not feeling well. I started getting like a sour stomach, which happens sometimes because I'm hungry because I don't eat for almost a day. Yeah. So I just rode through it. And then I finished working out, and then I got downstairs and I just didn't feel well at all. And then I just like threw up so much. And I'm not a thrower upper really. And this is the second time that I've thrown up, presumably Micah thinks because I'm like so deeply dehydrated.
Yeah. Because we left out the part. So you fell asleep in the pool in the hot sun. You came inside and worked out. Didn't feel well while working out. You went and sat in our like 95-degree garage for a while after working out. Then you came in and told me you didn't feel well, and you had a protein shake and a Pepsi, and then you got sick. And I was just like, this combination of things from the start.
And a piece of bread.
A little piece of bread to try and like this will tamp everything down. This will fix it. Yeah, and, I think you were just overheated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then what's funny is that I threw up. It was all just the water. Like I had nothing in my stomach. So it was all just the water and the protein shake. And then I immediately ate dinner because I felt fine. And then I went to bed for 4 hours.
4 hours?
Yeah. And then I woke up at like midnight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What time did you go to bed after that?
Probably 4 or 5, something like that.
Okay. That's not too bad. I hate waking up at 11 p.m. or midnight. I hate it, dude. It sucks. Your whole sleep
we're meant to sleep biphasically. We don't sleep that way anymore, but that's the way we were made as humans. And that's like, I can feel myself getting pulled towards that, where it's like the siesta, or, sleeping 4 or 5 hours doing shit and then sleeping 4 or 5 more hours. That's the way our people used to do it back in the day. Electricity has fucked it all up. So.
Yeah, that's true. Well, we used to struggle to survive a lot more too. So fuck that. Those days are done. I'm glad they're over.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with it. It's just funny. I have no problem, sleeping through the night. Well, I do have a big problem sleeping through the night. I literally can't, but I have no problem philosophically with us sleeping through the night. Sure. I just can't. So I'll get that real solid 3 or 4 hours of sleep, when you're tired and you go to sleep, but then I have to wake up to
Mhm.
pee or something, and then it's over at that point.
Oh,
Who knows what's
yeah.
gonna happen?
Yeah, that sucks. Well, whatever works for you, man. We're all different.
No, I'm shot, dude. So it's obviously not working great for me, but I'm surviving, nonetheless.
All right, we got a warm-up question for the Uncharted Wolf. What's up, summoning crew? Here's a fun game for y'all. The rules are simple. One of you thinks of your dream scenario game, while the others think of a monkey's paw scenario to ruin it for you. Example, a 3D action Castlevania game, but it's exclusive to Switch and is locked at 30 FPS. Thanks for all you guys do. Dude, I would take that monkey paw. From where we're at with the new Castlevania game, I'll take anything like that. I'm desperate.
It would be crazy, but yeah, that would be an interesting move. I mean, there's a million examples of this, right?
Yeah.
It would be like them bringing Mega Man back and being like, it's Mega Man Star Force. It's like, oh my God, are you kidding?
Yeah.
Or it's Mega Man Battle Network. Like, oh God. So I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a million examples of what they could possibly do. You don't even have to do it a Switch locked at 30 frames. There's just simple ideas that could be ruined fundamentally. So,
Micah, dream game for you. What do you want? We're going to ruin it, though.
Oh, see, I've been talking a lot lately about Sega Superstar Tennis, which is one of my favorite Xbox 360 games. Okay. So, you know what? I want things like that back. So I want a Superstar Tennis, but I want it to be Rockstar Games. All right. So you give me your John Marstons. All right. Give me, cousin, let's go bowling. Give me a bunch of Rockstar Games people playing tennis together. I think that would be fun.
That's easy enough for when Rockstar would never make those games.
Oh, come on. What would they do for make Micah to hate it? There are furries in it. How about that?
That does ruin it, yeah. Yeah.
You find out John Marston's a furry or something.
Or you have to have one like per match always. Like you're just either always against one, or there's like you're playing doubles, your doubles partner is always a furry. Like it's inescapable. You can't just ignore it and say, I just won't pick that guy. Like you just have to deal with it.
That's a wild thing, but it's Rockstar. They're kind of weird, so maybe they would do it. Who knows? Colin, dream scenario game. Is it Mega Man 12?
Yeah, I mean that would be the biggest. A real 8-bit Mega Man, like another 8-bit Mega Man game, or even a 16-bit Mega Man 7 style game, or 32-bit Mega Man 8 style game. I would take almost anything, but a mainline traditional Mega Man game with amazing bosses in it and that fun gameplay that they kind of tweaked in 11, but I didn't love it, didn't hate it.
Right.
But I think it could be more traditional. So that's what that would be the dream game for me, but there's a million games that I would love. Resistance 4 would be another one.
Yeah. Well, for Mega Man, they can make it a live service game, I guess, to ruin it for you.
Sure. Yeah.
Like all the robot masters are locked behind a paywall or like different passes. So you got to wait. And it takes like 3 years for 8 robot masters to come out or something like that. I'm dying. My voice. I feel like an old person.
I like your shirt, by the way.
Thank you, dude. Yeah, me to stay cool.
You wear the button down a little bit, like
that second button. I could go lower depending where I'm at. Like if I was at the beach, we'd go lower with the button. But we'll keep it civilized.
Do you have hair? Do you have hair on your chest?
No, not really.
Do you shave it or do you just not?
No.
Oh, interesting.
I don't shave it. I just don't really have it. No one in my family's really hairy, like a hairy chest or anything like that, which I'm happy with.
Yeah, I don't
know.
Just somewhat hairy. I don't know.
No shame, but some people.
See?
But that's not even really that hairy.
There. It's not so bad,
Yeah.
It's not so bad. It's funny though that we were talking about this because we went to my mom's my mom's retirement party a few weeks ago, and it was at a really nice hotel, and we got dressed up, and so I wore a suit but without a tie, and then I had it buttoned down 1, and people were making fun of me, so then we buttoned it down 3, and then I took my sister's gold cross and put it around my neck, and we took a good picture of that, where the gold cross is sitting in the chest hair.
That's good.
I don't have that kind of confidence to do that. When you see guys just bearing it all, I'm not that good looking. I'm not good looking at all, really.
I think you can pull it off, Colin.
Stop. No, I used to work at this discount store. And there was a strip club in proximity to it. The strip club owner would come in and buy our napkins. Okay. This is why he was at the store. He was this old Greek man, tan, like golden brown like man, and he was always covered in gold jewelry, like pinky rings and whatnot, gold chains, shirt like unbuttoned down to his belly, basically hairy chest. This guy was just like oozing confidence for being 75 overweight, you know, like it was just one of those things of like, this guy's got it. This guy's got it. And like you saw him a mile away and you're like, that guy has got to own a strip club or something. And he did. I guess he had to like fulfill the part. But no, Colin, I think you just don't have the age yet. I think that level of confidence comes with being old. You know, like you pick it up, you know, little by little as you're an adult of like, yeah, you stop caring what people think. And like you hit 70, you really just don't care what people think, but you're just not there yet.
Yeah.
I think you could pull it off, Colin.
Well, maybe
you're not a bad looking dude at all. And you stay in shape, you work out.
I try. Yeah, I try. Yeah. Well, thank you. You know, the reality is people say these like kinds of things for like fishing for compliments, but the reality is, and I've told Micah this in the past, is like, even, you know, I'm 39 years old. I've been in quite a few relationships in my life leading up to getting married to Micah. It's like, my good looks weren't coming up in these conversations. Like, no, I've never been with a woman that's like, you're so handsome. Like, you're so good looking. I'm not saying you. I'm saying like leading up, you know, like you can't teach an old dog new tricks at some point. Like you, over and over again, it's like, oh, you're so funny. Or, you know, maybe a girl or two was with me for my money, right? It's like,
sure.
You never really know. So that's why I was, you know, so it's not like one of those things where I'm like fishing, because and Michael laughs at this all the time, is like, I'm not super straight, like all the way to the straight end of the spectrum. I don't have sexual interest in men, but as I've said many times, I can see when they're good looking. I think men are good looking. I like their style. I'm attracted to that style. I want to look like that. I've said this since I was a little kid. I always bring up random people, like Robbie Williams was one of those guys where I was like, oh my God, this guy's like so good looking. So I know what I'm looking for. I literally don't see it in myself. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's it. Like when I see a beautiful one, like Micah, a beautiful woman, and you look in the mirror, it's like, you know that, right?
Right.
Like, you know, you have to fundamentally know. And I've had this conversation with other women in the past. It's like, you know, right? Like you have to, that must be such a thing to go out in the world and be like, yeah, I'm beautiful. Like I'm pretty. I am pretty or whatever. Like I honestly don't see myself in that vein at all.
I think a lot of people that appear to be very beautiful, Colin, and appear to be very self-confident are actually very insecure about their looks. Especially because for dudes, Colin, like dudes don't get compliments as much as women do usually. I don't know what it is. Men just don't do it. And when you get a compliment, you just hang on to it for like 10 years. You're like, yes, I'll always remember that compliment. You make a dude's day. Listening, if you're a lady out there and you're listening, compliment a man. They'll never forget it. They'll be so happy. They won't show it. We don't know how to take compliments. We don't know how to do any of that stuff, but they will be so happy. So please do it.
The tricky thing is you got to temper it so that they don't think you're interested.
Exactly.
Like I saw a dude, I don't remember where we were, Colin. There was some dude that had a really sweet mustache. This was a buffet situation, but I don't remember where we were. This might have been the tasting for our venue at the wedding. I don't remember. Yeah. But there was this guy with a really cool mustache. And I said, hey, dude, sweet mustache. And he was like, oh, thanks. But like, you gotta, that's the way to do it.
That's
all
great.
You gotta hit him with a hey, dude, or a hey, bro. I also, though, my biggest thing is that I don't see myself the way I actually am. I have Chihuahua syndrome to the max. So I see myself as like a 6 foot tall, like muscle bound bro who's just like, hey, what up, bro? Cool mustache. And I'm like, they don't see me as a small petite woman. No, I'm just a bro. And it's like, that's not what it is. But yeah, you know, women compliment men. Just, you know, you gotta be bros about it. And then there won't be any weirdness. Yeah,
if you don't want any possible advances, just make sure, throw in a dude, throw in a bro. Perfect. Micah, sweet. That's a great way to describe it. Yeah.
Hey, bro.
Maybe don't be like, you have a beautiful jawline or something like that.
Exactly. You know, like, oh, hey, dude, like, cool wallet chain. You know, just
well, make it sound like not like you're making fun of them though about it. Cool
I like a wallet chain.
I know,
think wallet chains are cool.
You just got to use the correct tone where people actually believe you when you're saying something.
You would have loved me in high school. You would have been 7 probably, but you would have loved me. Yeah, Micah. because I had a wallet, as I said, I was in high school from 1998 to 2002. You can imagine what was going on in that high school from 1998 to 2002. The whole gamut of, you saw, there was all sorts of Collins, wallet chain Colin, ball bearing chain Colin around his neck, like a choker almost.
I had that. Yeah.
I had earrings, but in the top of my ears, like that I got pierced with a gun that I eventually had to take out because they got infected because I got it done at a flea market. Yeah. So, and then all the way into my wallet chain got stolen. I've explained this in the past. It got stolen out of my locker in gym, ironically. And then I just became a prep for 2 years after that. I was like, I'm just going to dress preppy now. I remember specifically it would have been the summer of 2000, I guess. I went to my dad would bring me to school shop, get new clothes. I would get a few $100s and go buy new clothes. I didn't really get very many new clothes. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to wear button downs and like nice pants now. My dad's like, and like dress shoes and shit. And that's when the ladies started paying attention to Colin.
Whoa, really? They didn't like Bad Boy New Metal Colin?
I don't think anyone liked New Metal Colin, to be honest.
I like New Metal Colin.
Awesome. And obviously I'm still very New Metal, and I came back into the fold at some point. I've vacillated many times. I'm in my homeless phase now. I don't know if you guys can see this. Like, I'll stand up and show you. Micah knows, but I have this huge hole in these shorts.
Oh yeah.
And I just wear them around anyway. I don't even know where it came from. I could easily buy a new pair. Not going to do that though. I like it when people think I'm homeless. It's fun for me.
Wait, why? Why do you want people to think you're homeless?
I don't know. I like being unassuming.
Okay.
Like, who is this person? What is this person doing? Why is he never at work?
Yeah, why is he watering flowers at 2 in the morning?
Dude, it was so funny. You're going to appreciate this, Brad. So I especially am a night person. Like, I wake up after dinner and I'm like, good to go. The nerves are clear. My anxiety is lessened. I've gotten a lot of things done. I'm in the clear. I'm fed, so I'm not like delirious like I am half the day. I'm basically recording every one of the shows for years, like in a state of complete delirium half the time.
Right.
And so I'm bumping around and I realized, because Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is like a very busy time for me. I write the show Sacred Symbols on Wednesday, which is very time consuming. Mm-hmm. Thursday, we record the show sometimes for 5 or more hours and all of that. And then on Friday, that's Thursday, and then Friday, Constellation and the rest. So it's like, I realized that I don't really get outside during the day in those days. I get outside at night. And I was like, damn, I haven't watered the flowers in a while up front because I haven't been outside in a couple of days. So at 2 a.m, this story gets even funnier, by the way. It gets actually funny. It's not really funny right now. At 2 a.m, I go out into the front of our yard in our house and I just start watering the plants. We live in a neighborhood like where houses everywhere. And I'm like, oh, no one's going to see me do this. Because I was thinking, I'm like, oh, so like no one's going to see this. This is like kind of weird, but this is what has to be done. And then I call like an SUV, like of our neighbor, drives slowly by at like 2:10 in the morning, coming home from the bar or whatever, and pulls it into their driveway and just sits there looking at us. And I'm like, what does this person think? Like, I have all the lights on out front. It's dead. The neighborhood is totally dead. Everyone's asleep. And I'm outside just like watering the flowers. I'm like, this guy's fucking crazy, Just
that's some serial killer shit.
But it had to be done because it's so very hot.
Yeah, I get it.
But today is 75. Like, after we're done here, I'm going outside to mow the lawn because it's never going to get cooler than this, probably for weeks. Yeah. Because it's, let's see. It'll be high of 84 today. No, 81, 84, 87, 95, 98, 97, 92, 92, 90. Got to get out there.
Fuck.
Got to mow that lawn.
Colin, since you're a night person, we can do a night shoot one time if you want.
No, I mean, we could do whatever you want, but I don't like this. So this is another thing about Colin. I don't like things lingering.
Okay.
If I need to do something, I want to get it done with.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
This is why I mow the lawn in the middle of the day instead of at dusk like normal people in the South do. And my neighbor makes fun of me all the time. He's like, what are you doing out here? Mm-hmm. I'm just not going to like, what am I going to sit around for 6 hours waiting? Like, I'm just going to be thinking about it. I got to mow the lawn. I got to mow the lawn. I got to mow the lawn.
Okay. Whatever works for you, as long as you can handle it. We just don't want you. I sound
like just a crazy Long Island, like old Jewish man or something, like,
Colin, we just don't want you getting heat stroke and like throwing up more.
Yeah. It was a bad
Stay
one.
hydrated.
It was a bad one. Yeah, I usually am fairly hydrated. I mean, I got the smart water.
You got the water. That's good. Okay, good.
But I don't know. Something went awry that day. Something went deeply awry that day.
Well, I don't know how you work out without eating. I can't do that.
All the time. Yeah, I
just
can't.
can't do it.
I don't. I've never worked out while I've eaten. You know.
Yeah. Interesting.
And then I ate 8 pieces of French toast. It's true. It's a true story.
8?
8. But it's really not that many, you know, because
I guess it's
like
your only
it's
meal.
like Wonder Bread. Yeah, it's my only meal. I also made 2 egg sandwiches on English muffins after that as well.
Oh my God.
That's still not going to be my allotment of calories though for the day, considering I worked out and all that. So
Yeah, that's true.
you gotta do what you gotta do. We were in a breakfast mode. Micah burnt the bacon.
Damn.
And
it's fine because you really shouldn't have eaten it anyways.
Yeah,
you
no,
know,
it really
I was
was.
making that, then you threw up, and it's like, you know what? The last thing you need is grease, honestly. So that was kind of fortuitous.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay. Whatever. James S. wrote in, "Hey gang, I'm slightly disappointed, but not surprised to see that none of you are playing Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. I was hoping you could briefly share your experience or interest, if any, in the series. Best, James S." Damn, that seems pretty... You're attacking us right here, James. Look, man, I have Luigi's Mansion 2 on 3DS. I bought that a while ago. It's $60, man. It's more than when it originally came out.
That's
I'm not
crazy.
buying that game for $60 right now. Maybe if we were in Halloween time, I would consider it. But, like, it's July. I'm not doing that right now. Micah, what do you think about this?
Oh, yeah, I just have no interest in it. I really have never wanted to play the Luigi's Mansion games. Like,
Oh.
I don't know what it is.
Okay.
Like, I remember seeing them back in the day, and it's like, okay, random things would appeal to me, like maybe Pikmin. Okay, sure. And I did try that. I liked it a lot. But Luigi's Mansion specifically, I'm like, it just never really appealed to me. I don't know if it's partly because, like, the Ghostbusters aspect of it, and I don't really like Ghostbusters very much. I don't really like Luigi very much. There's just
What?
one of those things of like, no, he's fine.
Yeah,
He's fine.
He's fine. I agree.
But like
on,
an
guys.
entire game of him, it's like make it Waluigi instead. I don't know, but like it's just one of those things of there's too many things I'm just not very interested in about it, and I don't know. I'm sorry to disappoint you, James. I'm not feeling it.
I'm just more disappointed in your guys' lack of enthusiasm for Luigi. You guys are just like, eh.
Yeah, he's fine.
I
He's
take offense
fine.
because I am the Luigi in my family, all right? My brother is older than me, 2 years older than me. He is shorter than me, though. I am much taller and leaner than my brother, so I'm definitely the Luigi and he is the Mario. You guys are insulting me.
I mean, I am the Luigi if that's the criteria. My sister is 2 years older than me, short, and I'm
Thank
like
you.
the tall,
We're the
gangly
same.
one.
We're the same, Micah. Cool.
Maybe I don't like Luigi because I see too much of myself in him, you know, and I hate myself, so I hate him too.
But you got to root for you got to root for Luigi. Colin, I know
Yeah.
you're a GameCube boy.
Oh yeah,
What's your history with Luigi's Mansion?
it was a launch game, so everyone played it.
Yep.
That owned a GameCube, but I remember I only played Luigi's Mansion 1, and I played it my senior year of high school. I haven't played it since. So, what I remember about it is that it's really short.
It is very short.
And which is fine. It was a different era. People weren't that crazy about that kind of shit back then. But there were just a couple more compelling launch games, as I recall.
Rogue
so
Squadron.
Rogue Squadron, right?
Or Rogue Leader, whatever it was.
Yeah, the second one.
Mm-hmm.
And then Wave Race came out as well, Blue Storm,
Right.
which was pretty good. But obviously people that weren't around don't remember this. It's like Smash Brothers was that December, and I think the same day Pikmin came out. Right?
Oh, was it the same day? I can't recall.
And-
I just remember Smash only.
And so you kind of got weaned off the launch games very quickly, because when the N64 came out, we had, there was Mario and there was Pilot Wings for like months.
Yeah.
I can't believe people don't like that's not a more common piece of knowledge amongst people. It's like, dude, that thing launched with 2 games and then that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy that they did that. Can you imagine
Nowadays,
if they did something like that? Now, it came out with one of the games that a lot of people think is one of the best games of all time, and it certainly was beloved then, but people were waiting for like the third N64 game. It's like so funny to me.
Yeah. What was it?
But there was a
What
lot of
came-
shit around the launch of GameCube and into January, because that was when, God, man, I have to like go back and think, like Gauntlet came out.
Oh, Gone Legends?
Yeah, like a port. And then Remake was that spring.
Oh, yeah. Resident Evil Remake.
Don't get me started on all this though. And then Eternal Darkness, right?
I still haven't played that, dude. That's one of my most games or one of the games I need to play the most.
So, yeah, I mean, I love GameCube, dude. I was so far up that machine's ass, it's not even funny. But Luigi's Mansion wasn't. And obviously, PlayStation 2 I had a PlayStation 2 since launch, and that was really picking up in 2001 as well. So it was a little acting, but
yeah, it was tough.
But yeah, Luigi's Mansion's fine. I never really understood why they went back to it, to be honest. But
the sequels are much better.
For Luigi, it's like something else with him. But as I understand, people really do like the second and third ones, right? So
yeah, they're much better in my opinion. Yeah. Third one was great. I haven't played 2 in a long time, but third one was really good. Really good. But I'm not paying $60 for this right now. The only thing I'll pay $60 again for that's like old is Zelda and Donkey Kong. I'll go back for Donkey Kong Country Returns. But other than that, no. Not right now. Jace Tumulovic wrote in, salutations, Summon Signers. The year is 20XX. A rogue AI has taken over the world and enslaved humanity. The LSM Gamer Battalion is now the only force that can oppose this foe. Please choose a weapon crafted by our fine engineers. A pair of reinforced Nintendo Wii nunchucks. An original Xbox secured to the end of a pole, fashioned as a warhammer. Or a multitude of razor-sharp PSP UMD shurikens. Colin Speed, and may Mama Micah have mercy on your soul.
Colin Speed's nice. I like that.
I'm taking the Xbox as a warhammer. That thing is a brick already. You can easily kill someone with an Xbox.
What an incredible controller. What were they thinking with that thing?
The Duke, horrible. I hate that controller. I don't know why anyone has any love for that controller.
It's nostalgic for a lot of people, I guess. I mean, by the time I bought my Xbox in 2003, it came with the S controller, so I never even owned one. But I played, obviously, with others, and yeah, it was so big. I mean, not that I have like the biggest man hands in the world, but it doesn't make sense, so large, and it had all that wasted empty space.
Yeah, it was a control for Philistines. It's for like giant people. It doesn't even make sense. I don't know what they're thinking. Bill Gates.
I did like the inclusion of the white and black buttons. It was cool that they tried to like do like put something another input, almost like a Genesis 2 controller, like a Mark II controller, right? Where they added like 2 more. Well, 2 more because they were verticals of first 3 buttons, and then I guess they added 3 in the bottom, so that would be 3 additions. But I just remember that empty space in the middle with a big logo on it, and feeling like something belongs there. And obviously that was just empty space because of what you put into the controller. But yeah, it's not for me. I don't think I'm strong enough to use the Xbox Warhammer.
Yeah, you are. You can totally use that.
Well, the Wii nunchucks seem nice.
Okay, you know? Yeah.
It almost
they're reinforced too.
Yeah, exactly. Reinforced Wii nunchucks. I can be down with that. The razor sharp PSP shurikens. It's like, what if you miss? I would need to have like some sort of katana with me or something as well. I don't mind launching those, but that's not going to do the trick.
Right.
That's chip damage. You gotta go in for the kill. So that seems like a secondary weapon to me, like a up B attack. If you were playing Castlevania. Yeah.
Micah, what weapon are you choosing?
See, what I envision is I'm going to slightly modify the Xbox hammer, because what I want is an Xbox flail. So you could put the Xbox like on a little chain at the end of the pole so you could swing it around. Because those are like, I love those. For like
you mean like a Morning Star almost?
Yeah, give me one of those, all right? Put the Xbox on a little chain at the end of the pole.
That's going to be heavy to do. That's going to be tough.
They're so violent.
In my mind, I'm so tall.
Okay, fair enough, yeah. You're powered up, you're juiced up.
Exactly. This is the apocalypse, okay? Like, I've become very strong, and I'm no longer, the weakling you see. So, no, I can handle it. That's what I envision. No, the nunchucks also sound nice. I love the Wii, nunchucks. So those such fun little controllers. So I'd be down for that.
Yeah, totally. What a weird, bizarre universe. I haven't heard the Gamer Battalion in a long time. It seemed to have gone away, but now it's kind of reemerging. They're trying to bring it back.
Well, they're standing down and they're standing by. So
that's true. They're waiting for Dustin's orders on that one.
And now the Supreme Court has cleared him as a leader. He has complete immunity for official acts. So Dustin's going to get crazy with the Gamer Battalion.
Yeah, that's true.
He's a rogue band of rebels.
All right, let's talk about some video games that we've been playing, actually. Colin. Ion Fury. Tell me about this. Another boomer shooter.
Yeah, boomer shooter. I guess when you asked me to be on the show, I was like, well, here are the games that I've played recently. I don't know where we left off. And because I think System Shock might have been where we left off on this show.
Yes.
So I've played a few games since then. And Ion Fury, I platinumed it that was, I guess, Platinum 157 in mid-June. So it's been a couple weeks since I've played it. But definitely
hold on a second. Let me stop you right there.
Yeah.
How many? I feel like it's more rare if you don't platinum a game when you're playing it.
These days, it probably is maybe 2/3 of the games I'll platinum or something like that, or maybe half, no less than half.
That's impressive.
But if you scroll, it's just a matter of, and you could probably relate to this when you were in media. I used to get bombarded with so many games. I told people that one of the reasons I have a propensity to buy so many games today is that I got everything for free for many years. Like I didn't pay into anything. It's like getting Social Security, but never paying FICA, right? It's like you feel like you have to make up for that at some point. And from the years 2005 or 4, when I was really heavily writing guides, until 2017, when I left Kind of Funny, I got everything, like anything I wanted. And I would get, for people to envision this, or maybe you didn't deal with PR very much, right? You had like
I
a PR
didn't
liaison.
Personally deal with them, no.
So what would happen is when you were on PR mailing lists, you would just get codes sent to you all the time.
I did get those sometimes,
like a press release, and it just has the code in it or whatever for everything. Like anything you wanted. Plus at IGN, we would get physical games sent to us on a constant basis. I've said this before. I can't believe this hasn't really been picked up more, although I'm glad it isn't, because I'm not trying to call anyone out, but it was a big thing back in the day at IGN. Actually, before I was still a guides writer at this time, because it was kind of tamped down, where people would go to GameStop and trade those games in. Like, I use the example of like you would get NBA 2K7 or something, or MLB 2K7, and you'd get it on PS3, PS2, PSP, Xbox 360, Wii, and then you would just go and sell them. And you would like review them or whatever. And I remember the big thing at GameStop was you would have to unseal the game. Like there was a problem if you like tried to give them a new game, you'd have to unseal it first. And people at IGN that would get those kinds of things. Again, I wasn't on the codes list at this time or getting games like this at that time, or maybe I would have been in on this too, honestly, is I knew people with like $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 of GameStop credit at IGN. Wow.
That is crazy.
That was like, and they used to go to like Serramonte Mall or Tanforan Mall. People will know those in San Francisco, south of San Francisco, and trade that stuff in. So I'm only saying this because I was much more distracted back then. So I would beat games, but I often wouldn't platinum them unless I really had time. And so I probably left Kind of Funny with, I don't know how many platinums I had at that time, probably half of the amount I have now.
Because you guys used to be really into like platinums competing, right?
Right. We used to do what was called the Trophy Whore War on IGN, and which is also a sign of the times, because they would never use the word whore on IGN anymore, I don't think, but
probably not.
But that's what we used to call it. I think it's a great name too. And so, yeah, we really enjoyed it, but it was all about easy platinums. And as I said back then, easy platinums are not like they are today, which is why I stopped doing easy platinums. Like an easy platinum was like 10 hours, or maybe you'd like get 100% of a PSN game with no platinum trophy in 5 hours. But nonetheless, when I left and I stopped getting bombarded with codes, and then I kind of just eschewed PR context completely, I started absorbing games deeper and then really getting into them. So these days, I platinum as much as I can. And I enjoy it. I enjoy seeing games to that depth.
That makes sense. That makes more sense to me, Colin, now, because you feel more free, I feel like, and you can definitely spend more time with a game if you want to.
Right. Like I wasn't just beating it and then moving on to the next review or whatever. I just didn't have time. And now I do. So, so Ion Fury. I talked about this pretty extensively on Sacred Symbols, but I do want to shout this game out just one more time in brief, because I think it's really, really exceptional. It's an FPS, a boomer shooter. It came out on PC in 2019, but it came to PS4 in 2020. And as I noted on Sacred, I like boomer shooters. I love first-person shooters, single-player first-person shooters generally. And I was pretty divorced from PC gaming as a kid. I grew up with PCs in my house beginning in the early 90s, so earlier than most people, but and we had the internet in the mid 90s, but I just didn't give a shit about PC games. I was just such a console fan. I would play some of this stuff at my friend's house or at school. And as I noted on the show, my dad's 486 had Doom on it for some reason. So I was really into the original Doom, but I never bought PC games until probably the mid to late 90s and tried to play some PC games, and I kind of hated it. But I'm deeply nostalgic, especially after System Shock, where I'm like, I really like this style of game. And System Shock's more of an immersive sim first-person shooter. This is more of a straight-up first-person shooter in the style of Doom. But I just went and Googled, like, what are some of the great boomer shooters? This is not a genre I'm very familiar with. So it gave me a list of games, and I bought some of them, and one of them was Ion Fury. And so I just downloaded it and started playing it. And I got to say, I really love it. It's part of a greater series known as Bombshell. And I don't really know very much about it. And there's also a brand new Ion Fury game out now that Slipgate Ironworks did, but apparently it's not very good. So I don't know. It's called Phantom Fury, in case people are curious about it. And it was released in April. And so Voidpoint, the original studio, didn't do it. All of this is published by 3D Realms as well. And it's pretty cool if you read about 3D Realms. So 3D Realms, obviously a pretty famous studio from the 90s, known for Duke Nukem. And they kind of went away and then came back. And now Saber Interactive owns them. And it seems like what they're doing is spooling up. Like I went and looked at the games they're releasing. It's like, damn, they're releasing a lot of shooters, like a lot of just mid to low tier shooters and ports of old games. And I feel like I can get lost in their catalog, strangely enough. And it's strange, especially because 3D Realms has such a bad reputation, that it's funny that I'm enjoying some of their stuff now. But the game is manageable. It's short. There are a ton of secrets in it. You have to find all the secrets and do all the crazy shit to get the platinum. You also have to beat it on the hardest difficulty level to get the platinum, although you can spoof that by just beating the last boss on the hardest difficulty level, which is very hard, but you at least don't have to do the whole game that way. And I really, really enjoyed it. It's fluid. It's simple. There's not much to it. And it's just all about gameplay. And every once in a while, you need that. When we get into the games I'm playing later, you'll get a kind of a variety of things that are not so much gameplay dependent. But this is, and that's what it's all about. So I recommend this game. I think it's really fun. Again, I've been told, Ben told me, but others have also said that the sequel Phantom Fury is just in horrible shape, like not even bother. Ooh. And so because I was gonna go and buy it, and he's like, you really shouldn't. And I went and looked into it, and he's dead right. It's supposed to be horrible. It's not even that. By the way, I forgot to say this as well. This is a really, really important thing about Ion Fury. Like maybe one of the most important things is that it's on the build engine. And is the first game in the entire 21st century to be on that. The build engine is what Duke Nukem was built on, right? And the original Shadow Warrior. And they built it on like an earnest version, so it's like a fork that runs on modern hardware, but it's built within the confines of an old early to mid 90s PC game. So I think that's very, very cool too.
Yeah, that is cool. Yeah, I really like that. Did you say this was connected to Bombshell?
Yeah, it's like this. I don't know much about the series, but it's like the second game, I think.
So that's really funny, Colin, because I remember when I was at Game Trailers, my friend, Mike Hubert, reviewed Bombshell, and he loves old FPSs like you, and he hated Bombshell. I think he gave it a 3.0. So it's very funny to hear about this company coming back together with having a great game, it sounds like, with Ion Fury, but then later on with the sequel, just botching it all over again.
Yeah, I guess... To be clear, again, Slipgate Ironworks is made the new one, so I don't know like where Voidpoint went, the studio from the original. Okay. And I think the original Bombshell game is like a top-down shooter. I don't think it's a third person or a first-person shooter.
I think it was an FPS kind of like this. Well, it doesn't matter. I can look at it.
Yeah, well, I'm on the Bombshell. I don't know. Wikipedia could be wrong, but because I would just clicked on it, and it calls it a multi-directional shooter, which I think.
Maybe this is it. Yeah, this
which would be a top-down shooter to me.
Yeah, interesting.
So yeah, anyway, great game. Highly recommended. Just kind of a nice piece of nostalgia for something you might not have even experienced. There's something very haunting and interesting about being in those pseudo 3D environments because. And I was showing Micah this, like the game is 3D, the game is presented in 3D, but it's not 3D. It's all 2D textures. And that's the way games used to be made. Famously, Wolfenstein didn't even have a Y-axis, right? And the original Wolfenstein. And so they slowly got more immersed in actual 3D stuff, but it's cool to see all the tricks of the trade and such. And I was noting that I really love when you're fighting an enemy sprite and you're moving around it, and it's basically just different flat images turned towards you as you go, or like when there's a piece of armor on the ground, you work around it. It's a sprite. It's not an object. And there's just something very nostalgic about that for me. It brings me back to an earlier day. I feel that way, especially through the game's color palette, very brown and orange color palette. And I love looking at the skies and it's just a flat image. Mm-hmm. There's just something very primitive, but familiar about a game like this. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Ion Fury.
I totally get all that. Colin, let me ask you something. A lot of boomer shooters out right now, big in the indie scene. Is there something about this game to you that stands out as being unique that you can think of? Or is it just really solid in what it does, but maybe not anything totally new?
Yeah, I don't think it does anything new. I'm not completely familiar with, like I was telling people earlier, like I have no experience with Quake really and stuff like that, but I was a Doom person. I like Doom all the way through Doom 3.
You love Wolfenstein.
Love Wolfenstein.
At least the newer ones.
Yeah, I liked all of them. I even liked the Activision Wolfensteins. You know, like they were good.
Ravens?
Raven did.
I heard those were great. Yeah.
Yeah, like in between Singularity and I guess their Call of Duty stuff. They did one, and then they did one before that. I think that was them.
Yeah, was it Return to Castle Wolfenstein?
Yeah, something like that. Game? And then there was, I remember back in the day, there was a PS2 and Xbox one as well, and they were different. But they were subtly different from each other because I wrote the guides on IGN for both of them, and they were like oddly made by different teams. And I like Wolfenstein. I like the subject matter. I like the gameplay a lot. Cool. But I can't say that I'm like deep into the genre to know what qualifies as the greatest of the greatest. I know that there are games out there. I bought a couple of them. Like Proteus was one of them that was highly recommended that I'd like to check out at some point. And I'd like to go back to some of the older stuff as well. Like even games that I've played that are from that era. So Dark Forces, I definitely want to get back to the Star Wars game. That's a great game. And they recently released that on console. And the Turok games I've really been thinking deeply about because I loved those games on N64. And those are quintessential boomer shooters now, I think, to a lot of people. It also seems like Turok's going to come back in some way, which is kind of cool. So
I hope so. Yeah.
So yeah, if I wasn't so distracted by a few other things, I think this summer is going as it goes on because there's just not many releases that I'm interested in for the rest of the year, which is a rare exception. I'm probably going to be going back into some back catalogs of some of this stuff. So I'll have more to say about and educate myself more on the boomer shooter genre, but I don't think it's like revolutionary in any way. No.
Yeah. Just solid, really fun for what it is. That's cool. I love that you're diving into this genre that like, obviously you have some experience with, but you're not knee deep in it. And there's so much you don't know about it still.
Oh yeah.
Same with me. Like I like boomer shooters. I just don't know a ton about them. Of course I've played the classics like Duke Nukem 3D, all the Doom games, all that stuff, Wolfenstein, but it is cool to see this space live on. I know Ben Smith is very happy, I'm sure, with all these.
Yeah, he's into it. And there's that Warhammer game that's supposed to be pretty good too.
Which one is it? What is it called? Oh, yeah, Bolt Gun. Yeah, I've heard very good things about that. There's like a Warhammer game every week. They just puke those fucking games out. I don't understand how there's so many. Micah, boomer shooters. I'm curious. Do you have any experience with them or any interest in them?
Yeah, no experience. I liked watching Colin play this. I said it reminded me of like Windows 98 screensavers, specifically the one where you're in like the brick maze, which was my favorite one to watch when I was just a child. My sister and I would just sit and watch it. And it reminded me of that. So like nostalgic, yes, because it reminded me of some of these like old like PC games my sister and I did used to play, which I have some of them like in my collection. I don't have all of our old games, but some of our old stuff I do still have. And it was cool to watch him play it, but it's not something I really picture myself getting into. Like if I'm thinking I want to play a first person shooter, I'm thinking I want to play Call of Duty, something like that. But it was fun to watch. I definitely enjoy seeing Colin play these, but no, the interest level is low for this.
Colin, do you remember that Mega Man X game that never came out? That was supposed to be first person shooter.
Yeah, I do.
Man, I wonder what that would have been like.
Yeah, would have been interesting. Quite a few canceled Mega Man games that would have been interesting, I think. But yeah, that's definitely one of them. Well, because I feel like I don't think it's gonna be a boomer shooter, but I ultimately feel like we're gonna get Mega Man back in a more traditional third person action shooter vein. I think that is how he will come back.
Third person?
Yeah, I think I see it as a
like Legends?
Like Legends.
Like
that's what I was gonna say. Like Legends, but way tighter. Obviously, Legends is old.
Yeah.
And doesn't really know what it is, but yeah, I can see it being like my fantasy vision for a AAA Mega Man game is an open world third person shooter in like a city. And have I explained my Mega Man idea to you? Like my idea for the game story? I think this is a great idea. I think this is a great idea. I'll tell everyone. I've said it before on other shows, but maybe it's redundant for some of you. But I envision an open world city, Megalopolis or whatever fictional city you want to use from Mega Man's universe, and these 8 mysterious robots appear around the city and start causing havoc. And Dr. Light has created Mega Man as like a personal assistant robot or whatever, and he kind of gets sucked into this combat against these robots, and the robots are from Mega Man 2. So you go to, and they all have these mysterious W's on them, like this. And I envision it where I've said before, like I see Mega Man fighting in a Central Park like setting against Woodman, but I see it being somewhat serious. And I told Dagan this, he's like, that's kind of cool. Where I'm like, I see like Woodman capitulating at the end, and Mega Man going up to him and like grabbing him and like putting his gun barrel to his head and just blowing it off. Yeah. And then putting his hand on his like arm and taking his power or whatever, like the Mega Man cartoon, which I loved that image from the Mega Man cartoon of him like somehow getting it digitally from him. And I see Flashman at like a TV studio, like he takes over a news studio or something, and Bubble Man's at the aquarium and the zoo or whatever, and all that kind of shit. And then they kind of piece together, and you can do it in any order. And then you piece together, and there's side quests and all sorts of shit in the world. And then you piece together that the W's are leading to an old lab partner of Dr. Light's, Dr. Wily. And at that point, Light discovers that the old robots that they had created together back in the day, which were the original Mega Man 1 robots, so Fireman, Bomb Man, etc., have run wild, and you would fight them. And so you'd fight the Mega Man 2 bosses first, and then the Mega Man 1 bosses second. Oh, like in the second the second third of, or the last third of the game would be against like the Mega Man 1 bosses in maybe like quicker succession. I think you could do something really cool like that. And so like both harken to the old days by acknowledging the coolest part of Mega Man, which are the bosses. Everyone agrees about that. And then make it modern. And you don't have to make it violent and crazy, but I'd like it like that. I think it would be cool. Like I envision it doesn't have to be in Mega Man lore. He's 4'4".
I was going to say, do you want 4'4" little robot boys running around blowing each other's heads off?
No, it's like, it would be cool to, it would just be cool to scale it differently. And I just think it can be done. And I think that that is the way Mega Man needs to come back. And by the way, based on the Capcom questionnaire that which I don't know if you filled that out. I did. We did it on the show actually, and talked about it as we were doing it. Mega Man was number 2 most beloved Capcom IP.
Oh,
they know
number 1.
I think it might have been Street Fighter or something like that.
Oh, okay.
And or Resident Evil, something like that, or maybe even Monster Hunter. I mean, you could imagine a lot of things. But the funny thing is that people were making fun of Dead Rising. Now, obviously, Dead Rising's coming back, and this was in the works for a long time before they announced this questionnaire. But people are like, dude, this isn't even in the top 10 of Capcom IP. Although that's like Inafune's last game for them.
Dead Rising, I think, makes sense, though, just with how popular Resident Evil 1 or Resident Evil is. And Dead Rising 1 is, people think back of that game very fondly. So, I mean, I'm personally
I like that. I have no problem with Dead Rising at all. I just, and again, I'm a KG Inafune fanboy, and that's like his last vision for Capcom before he left. So it's kind of cool. I'm going to be very interested in the remake, which I'll play. I'm going to be very interested in if they talk about him at all or cite him anywhere in it, because he had his hands all over that game. And and it was from a quainter time when zombies weren't running to the ground. This is long before Walking Dead and all of the, Resident Evil was really kind of the big
and it was their games. So Colin, Mega Man's gonna come back and it's gonna be a Souls-like. How's that gonna make you feel?
That'd be horrible. I mean, it would be such a, that would make me, they have to do, I hope they're smart enough to know what they have to do. And that's Mega Man is the one. There's a few games where I think I could probably work on a team or even lead a team to make a really good version of it. And I think Mega Man's one of those things where I'm like, I could definitely write this game.
Sure.
In the AAA space, I wouldn't be able to direct or lead it. But if you were like, Colin, here's $1 million, make an 8-bit Mega Man 11, I'd be like, oh my, or 12. I'd be like, oh, perfect. I can do that.
Easy.
I can definitely do that. No problem. We'll get the graph paper out, right? We'll start making the stages by hand.
If you do work on Mega Man, I request either Proto Man tease or a Zero tease. You put Zero in the normal Mega Man universe, not just
they have to cross over at some point, so that might be the way you do it. You and I have discussed this in the past, that like the game that combines classic Mega Man with X, there's a moment in the timeline where they're the same timeline. So it would be interesting to have the game that crosses from one to the other in some sense.
Yeah, because X is a different character than Mega Man.
Right, but Light,
does he have
Dr.
anything
Light
from Mega Man?
What'd you say?
Does he have like anything carrying over from Mega Man into X? Like, is there any part of original Mega Man in X?
No, I think the vision of Dr. Light like creates Mega Man X as like a future-proof thing.
Version of Mega
Man.
Right, okay.
And
So we can have a game with the fall of Mega Man, essentially, where Mega Man, the original Mega Man, dies or something.
That'd be sick, I don't even know if like internally they understand like or like have figured out what happened between the two games, but
Probably
that's what's so special about Mega Man X is the melancholy in it. There's like for a 16-bit game, like when you find the little pods of Dr. Light and he talks to you and shit and gives you upgrades, it's like there's a somberness to that game. It's really interesting.
He's dead.
Yeah. So like what happened? That would be kind of cool.
Yeah. Micah, are you in for this Mega Man game that your husband's going to make?
I've never played Mega Man ever.
Wow.
So,
okay.
I mean, Mega Man is all over our home. I support Colin and his love for Mega Man. I think that it's adorable. I like the little character designs. But no. I mean, if he made it, sure, I'd play it. If Colin specifically made it, then I'd give it a go.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm confident in Colin's Mega Man abilities. Sounds cool. I like the idea, Colin.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's not never going to happen, but I don't shove anything I like down people's throats. So it's like, it's actually nice that Micah doesn't like the things I like, so we can have different conversations.
Oh yeah, things, I think that's important. Yeah, I mean, look, she's got a bunch of anime behind her,
right?
Completely separate from you. She's got like Kakashi back there. I see in Goku. Is that Mr. Satan back there too? Absolutely, yes. Okay, cool. I love Mr. Satan. He's great. What's not so great though is what I've been playing. So I've been playing Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League.
Oh, interesting.
Now, when this game came out, I love the Arkham games. I know, Colin, you love the Arkham games as well. Micah, do you like the Arkham games? Yes, I was a really big fan. Okay, cool. So we're like, all right, Rocksteady's next game. Excellent. Hell yeah, let's go. It's been a long time. Find out Suicide Squad. I'm like, okay, not too hyped about that. I don't really care about any of those characters, but it's Batman universe. Fine, whatever. Find out it's live service. Alarms start going off immediately. Code red, right there. I'm like, oh shit, it's fucking over. And I'm sad to say that the alarms were warranted so far from what I've played of this game. I've played about 4 hours of Suicide Squad. And when this game came out, $70, I was like, no way am I buying this shit. No way. I was like, I'll buy it when it's 30. Goes down to 30. I'm like, can't do it yet. Still can't do it. Got down to $21. And I was like, fine, this is it. I'm going to buy it. It was on the Steam sale. I purchased it, ready to go. Right away, though, first of all, the Steam version is not good of this game. I played this with Locke online, some of the multiplayer. Not good. Terrible. Huge resolution drops all the time. Lots of stuttering. Crashes. I got kicked out, then Locke got kicked out. Characters like... You have your 4 characters with you the whole time. Like your King Shark, your Harley, your Captain Boomerang, and Deadshot. So you have them with you, and someone coming in can fill as one of the characters. But when I was playing it, it would just swap the characters randomly who were with us. Like we had 2 King Sharks running around, and it just didn't make any sense that I couldn't swap them back and they wouldn't stay. It was very bizarre. Also, Locke was a staunch defender of this game. Staunch, Colin. Mm-hmm. I know that's a big hot topic.
Yeah, don't use big words. You get the audience upset. Busy.
Locke has repented. And he has seen the light now with this game. His opinion was changed dramatically playing this game with me. He is not a defender of this game anymore, and he was very upset when we were playing it about how bad it was. There are some cool things in this game, though. I think the story presentation is really good. The cutscenes are really good. Of course, it's Rocksteady. You could still see that DNA in there, which is so important. Like, you think of the Batman games, man. The cutscenes with the villains and Bruce and everything like that were so good, so interesting. And you get brief flashes of that here and there. There's a lot of humor in the game because Suicide Squad, and some of it works. Like, game humor is super weird for me. Like, I notoriously disliked Borderlands humor, especially Borderlands 2. It's like fucking all memes and bullshit, just lazy writing. And thankfully there's not that in this. There's like definitely some misses, but there's a couple moments that made me laugh. Like King Shark putting on Riddler's hat, I thought was very funny, and I loved that kind of shit. But
you love your sweet baby ink writing, don't you?
Well, it didn't even seem like a lot of sweet. There's like a couple moments, I guess, but at the same time, Colin, I've been in the camp with the developers want sweet baby ink in their games. It's not like,
oh, I know. I'm only kidding.
Maybe they forced. Yeah, I know. No, I know some people are like, maybe sweet baby pressured some people. I know they've said some weird statements in the past, but a lot of developers are like want that kind of shit.
No, so, I totally agree. I'm really just busting balls because this was a
Oh, I know.
one of the
It's
targets.
very
There
controversial.
is a very
thing.
ham-fisted screenshot or thing in the game that I've seen screenshots of, which is like the pride flags and shit like that. It's like, all right, guys,
Dude, Colin is so funny. There's like
we stop, please.
stickers you can get. There's like one of the Joker holding a pride flag. And I'm like, there's something strange about this. Like the Joker would be celebrating this. It's very strange to me.
I'll save it for another fucking show. It's like, why do we have to have this shit shoved in our face all the time? I get it, dude. You're gay. I get it. No one cares. Like, why can't we just move on? Like, why does it, like, it's just so straight. Like, celebrating sexuality is very weird. Very weird.
There's a lot of, there's like a banner, because your hub in the game is like a Justice League museum, which is actually pretty cool. It's like where a lot of the Justice League hangs out. And which is a bummer about this game. It's cool getting to see these Justice League characters, but every time they're in the game, I was like, man, I just wish I was fucking playing as one of them instead. Like, you got Batman. It's kind of interesting because Batman, they've all been taken over by Brainiac. You learn that very interesting. Like, immediately. All the heroes are taken over by Brainiac, pretty much. They're all being controlled, and you get to see Batman, like, fucking unhinged. Like, he throws a battering in some police officer woman's neck, and she's, like, bleeding everywhere and dies. I'm like, whoa, get to see Batman kill people is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
And he's, like, beating the shit out of everybody because he's evil now, so I'm, like, really into that. And he's talking over the radio. It's pretty interesting. But I'm just like, fuck, man. I want to play as all those characters instead. But the gameplay is okay. Like, the movement of the characters, I think, is pretty good. You can pick from the 4 characters, obviously. And you get brief flashes of Sunset Overdrive. Colin, you're like, oh, it kind of reminds me of Sunset Overdrive. But
I can see that.
You see it for a second when you're playing, but I'm like, man, it is so much less satisfying than Sunset Overdrive, because there was like some level of skill to Sunset Overdrive. It felt like when you're navigating the world, you like knowing exactly like how to grind and all that stuff, you know. There was like some engagement to it. This, they all have different traversal things, but it's kind of really simple, and I don't even really think about it. I appreciate that they put different things in for every character to make them feel different traversal, because they do all feel very different from traversal standpoints. Gameplay standpoint, though, like fighting stuff, no, they're all kind of the same. They all just fucking shoot guns, which is pretty boring. And they have like a melee attack, and it's just like one button, and it's so disappointing going from the Arkham games combat, which is excellent melee combat, to just kind of boiling down to just shooting glowing purple shit constantly in the whole game. Everything is glowing purple in this thing. Everyone has glowing purple weak points, even fucking helicopters and stuff. It's very upsetting, dude. It bums me out. Of course, live service game, there's a battle pass, which skip easily. There's skins you can buy like that, stickers, which is very annoying. There's tons of loot you get. It's just like, you guys are fucking 6 years too late on this game trend right now. Like, no one wants live service glowing loot and everything they do, especially not a fucking Arkham game. It's just like such a bummer going from the Batman Arkham trilogy, especially, and you're going to this like looter shooter, loot getting puked out you, kind of like Borderlands kind of thing. It's very, very boring. The open world Metropolis looks really great, really awesome. I love the way it looks. There's a lot of cool like Easter eggs to the universe if you're into that. Lots of references, all that cool stuff. It's really cool. You see Brainiac's like big iron skull kind of floating around. But the open world is just like nothing exciting to do. You think about the Batman games, and there's like some cool side quests you can kind of do out in the world that tie into the villains and all that stuff to make the world feel more alive. But this is so just, here's this point, you're going to go here and just shoot a bunch of purple shit. That's like the entire game. It's just kind of going to a point, killing a bunch of purple guys and moving on. I haven't gotten to fight any of the Justice League characters yet. I've played for 4 hours, so I'm going to play more of the game just to see. But so far, there is nothing special about this game that stands out gameplay-wise. It's very disappointing. People are like, well, you're only upset because it's a continuation of Rocksteady's universe. It's like, yeah, that is why I'm upset. How could I not be upset going from those games to this? It's like a slap in the face from gameplay perspective. Narrative wise, I haven't finished it, and I don't know how everything's going to play out. I assume it's going to be some multiverse bullshit where nothing fucking matters because the Joker's back apparently. So it's like, okay, I guess those Arkham games don't really mean much, so that's cool. But there's also skill trees that just seem kind of boring so far. I haven't seen any skills that are very exciting to make you play very different. It's like, well, you get, do 20% more damage, get a chance to do more melee damage. It's like, okay, I guess. Nothing that exciting, pretty boring so far. Just quickly let me praise some of the character movement. I talked about it briefly, but like all of them have different mechanics to like navigate the world. Like King Shark, he does like a lot of jumps is how he move around. You can like hold down a button, he'll jump up really high, and he can do an air dash, or you could do it to jump really far forward, which is fun. Of course, Deadshot can glide around or fly around, but he has like a boost pack you have to manage. You have to like push L1 to refresh it so you get 2. Captain Boomerang's is kind of interesting because he throws his boomerang and it's like the blink ability from Dishonored. So you're kind of like blinking around, which is actually kind of fun. Harley Quinn is by far the most boring. She has like a drone that follows her around and she uses like a grappling hook and swings off the drone. I'm just like, what the fuck are you guys doing? This is so boring, dude. She's by far the least interesting character to play as. Of course, the narrative, she's heavily involved. But so far, there is a game here that can be serviceable. If you want some mindless shooting glowing purple shit constantly and you want to listen to a podcast, this could be your game. But it is just very disappointing from where the studio has been and what this game ended up being. I can't help but be upset. And I don't know what the future of Batman's going to be now, or the Arkham universe now with this game, because it was a huge loss. I think they lost over $200 million, at least that they've reported so far.
Yeah.
In like a shares meeting.
Horrible. That might be to put a
that's really fucking bad.
I mean, I was thinking that might be the biggest loss that anyone's ever taken on a game. Most games don't cost anywhere near that much to make anyway, so there's not even that much money to lose. Like 99% of releases couldn't lose $200 million, even if no one bought them. So I would love to know more about that. I haven't seen people discuss that too deeply, but like, what is another game that could have even lost that much? Does anything come to mind for you off the top of your head? Like I honestly can't.
Like
I'm sure
MMO.
some example, but I can't think of anything. You know?
Yeah, maybe an MMO, because it's got to be really expensive to make a lot of those. Like I wonder how much at the time 14 lost money, how much it did at that time. Obviously, it's very profitable now. But yeah, Colin, I don't really know. We don't hear about stories that often about $200 million and stuff like that.
It's just surprising to me based on that loss, and they must have known at some point that it was going to happen, probably after the original reveal, and they realized that this is not going to go good for us. I'm surprised they didn't just not release it, because they could have written it down and probably so let's say the game they lost $200 million. Let's say the game cost $250 with marketing, maybe a little more. And so they made $50 million, lost $200 million. But if you took the $250 and wrote it down, you could at least get a third of that back on your taxes, at least, right? You know, so because WB did this with the Looney Tunes Wile E. Coyote movie.
The movie,
which I think was like a $70 million write down. In other words, it's just surprising that when they revealed that game, it was like, this is done. There's not. I remember I was talking about it on Sacred Symbols, being like, you can't do anything about it now. It's over. Like you can't make the game is what it is. Like whatever you're doing to it, I would love to know what they did. I don't know if they ever discussed it. They took it back behind the scenes for a year and tweaked it, but it's like, it is what it is. Like you can't undo it.
Like from what I've seen of the game, it's just like, I don't know what they tweaked to make it better. It has like all the standard live service trappings. And I've asked Locke about this, like the end game and like what the end game is. And he's like, it's exactly what you're doing now. And it's not good. So I'm just like, oh shit. So they have nothing to keep you going as a live service game. Like if I'm just going on this map and like going to a point to shoot some purple guys repeatedly, it's like, this is bad. Like, did you play Gotham Knights, Colin?
No, because it was at 30 frames.
Like
I actually did buy it, but I never played it, to be honest.
I finished Gotham Knights, and I think it's like not a great game, but I enjoyed my time with that somehow more so far than Suicide Squad. I
think a lot of people feel that way.
A bummer.
I just think this is an example of total mismanagement.
Yes,
and a great example of really not understanding what you're doing. And it's like you said, when the game went into development is when it needed to be ready to compete in the space they wanted it to be. And they just have had to have known that by the time we get where we're going, things can look very different. It would have been so much safe, especially on the back of Arkham Knight. Arkham Knight made enormous amounts of money. Like I think they made hundreds of millions of dollars in profit on it. It's like, why wouldn't you just make another one? I know people want to get away from things, and I know they were dealing maybe with like a Wonder Woman thing or some other things that they were doing that they got away from. But at some point at WB and the production and the owners of the studio need to be like, well, you're shepherding this and you don't understand why you're doing this. And also the fucking people that founded the studio, the real creatives, they're left and are doing their own thing now. So I just don't understand how you can take a studio like Rocksteady this egg and then crack it like that. It's so weird.
Yeah.
Just let these studios do what. How many studios are going to do the same thing? Whether it's BioWare, look at BioWare with Anthem. It's like that studio is ruined as far as I'm concerned. Has no juice at all anymore. I could give a fuck about Dragon Age. I could give a fuck about Mass Effect. They lost all of their talent. Most of the people are gone because they let them chase this boondoggle. It's like someone needs to go in there and be like, hey, assholes, you make role-playing games. And it's the same thing with WB. It's like, no matter what kind of crazy idea you have of what you could do, that's not what we need from you. And for some reason, WB seems insistent on saying, like, we want to spend money and make money on service games when they had a game like Arkham Knight and when they had a game like Hogwarts Legacy. It's like, are you guys out of your minds?
Yeah.
Why can't you just, bird in the hand and all of that? It just doesn't. Everyone's eager to die on this battlefield of games as a service. It's very, very weird. As I've used the analogy before, like, you're in a casino. You should definitely be playing at the tables that are live servicing games as a service. Those tables are worth bets, but you can't make huge bets with really unknown quantities that do other things. You don't take a professional blackjack player and put him at the craps table and then expect to win. It's just very strange. And so I don't begrudge any of these. It's the same thing with Helldivers and fair games and all that. It's like, cool, man, make your bets, but make sure you're betting on other things too. And I just feel like WB didn't hedge their bets. This wasn't the right game for this team, and they ruined the team. Like, Rocksteady is not the same anymore. It's going to take them years to get another game out. They would be closed if they were a normal team after this game. And so it's like Rocksteady's next game. It's like, who cares?
Yeah.
That's my whole thing. It's the same thing with BioWare. It's like, BioWare's making a game. It's like, dude, BioWare's been dead for 15 years. Don't know if you know that yet, but
I wonder, so Dark Knight Batman, the last Batman game came out in 2015, I think.
Yep, that was Arkham Knight, yeah.
And the Suicide Squad movie came out, the first one in 2016. I wonder if this was just like a push from WB to get Suicide Squad and everything. They seem very gung-ho about the Suicide Squad IP, and I don't understand why. But they seem to push it a lot. Like, they just came out with an anime of Suicide Squad, I guess. That's apparently good. I don't know. I'm not watching. It's an isekai. I'm not watching that, but apparently it's good.
Everyone's obsessed with chasing IP instead of creating new things. So
I know.
This is what will happen.
Micah, how does all this make you feel hearing about all this? Are you curious about this game? So before you get into it though, $20, sure. You can check it out. You could have some fun with $20. Paying more than 30 or 40, no. I would highly recommend do not do that. Maybe if you're curious, wait for Game Pass or
it'll come to PS Plus.
It's going to come. It's going to come eventually to one of those. So maybe wait off on that. Micah, what do you think about this game? How's it sounding to you?
Oh, terrible. No. So when this was originally announced, I was really excited for it. I very much enjoyed the Suicide Squad movie from 2016. I actually had I have the collector's edition Blu-ray set, and you can't see it, but I have the Harley Quinn statue on my shelf that came with the Blu-ray set. I'm a very big fan of Harley Quinn specifically, and I love the Batman Arkham games. Like Arkham Asylum being my favorite of those. So this was one of those things that I'm like, okay, Rocksteady, hell yeah, they're gonna make something good. Suicide Squad, I like Suicide Squad, and then just the more you saw of it, the worse it was. Yeah. I knew immediately. I was like, I'm not playing this. It's not my thing. I wholeheartedly agree with both of you that it's just, when it comes to these live service games and it's like, why is Rocksteady making this? It just isn't right. It felt like such a waste of years of development time of like, this is what we're going to get. This is the next Rocksteady game after several fantastic Batman games. Like, this is what we're getting next. It's a huge disappointment. I don't know. I had mild curiosity in it still just because I wanted to like it. It's like I didn't want to miss out on the next big Rocksteady game.
Right.
But the reality is that it's like, I'm not going to spend money on this. That's for sure. And I just have to admit that it's not for me. It's definitely, the more I hear about, especially like Harley Quinn being, boring, gameplay wise and stuff. It's like, well, she's my favorite character. I'm a really big Harley Quinn fan. I have a lot of Harley Quinn collectibles. And so it's like, that's a huge disappointment that my favorite character out of the whole squad is going to be the boring one to play as, So it's just one of those things that, no, this is a major disappointment. And I don't know. I guess I'll just be waiting to see what they do next and hope that it's a normal game. Hope that they, stay in their lane, as the young kids
Yeah.
say. And because it really comes down to these companies, yeah, they want to all be like, oh, games as a service and it makes money long term, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, but you got to make a good one to make money long term.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
nobody's going to stick with this forever if it's not very good. And Overwatch didn't do well with the first game because it sucked. It's like, no, it was really fun and I enjoyed it. And it only started to suck when they nerfed my favorite characters over and over again. And I said, okay. I was like, I don't like this anymore. I'm done with it. But you can't just slap a popular IP on something and expect people to love it. It's like, how stupid do they think we are? That we're just gonna play it. Oh, well, I really like Suicide Squad, so I'll play it. It's like, I'm not buying this.
Right.
It's like, if it's a bad game, it's a bad game.
Yeah.
And these companies really need to figure that out, that like your core audience is not a bunch of impulsive children. When it comes to a lot of these things, it's like your core audience for some of these titles is people in their 20s and 30s who have a little more critical thinking skills, and they're not just going to make impulse buys the way that you think they will, right?
Right.
Like Fortnite works because a lot of kids play it. Things in it can be relatively cheap. You get the skins and whatever. Those type of impulse buys, sure, like the base game being free and then you just buy little things on top of it. But a $70 game plus, battle pass type stuff, plus skins, it's like, these aren't impulse buys. These are things adults are supposed to buy. And if it's not a good product, adults like us are going to be like, no. You'll wait till it's $21. And that's not what they wanted at all. So, no, this is a huge disappointment all around. And I'm just going to keep hoping that whatever they make next is good.
Yeah. It's sad, Micah, because when I was playing the game, looking for the positives, I'm like, okay, this isn't too bad. There's some cool, like I could see brief glimpses of cool stuff, like cool storytelling. They're presenting this cool thing going on, like here, you're going through an area. I'm like, oh, sweet. This reminds me of Batman or something like that. But then the layers just start getting peeled back of shit just coming in. You're just like, fuck, man. It's all just slowly falling apart. And by the end, I was just like, I don't even want to play this anymore. I was like, I got to stop playing this game because I'm not having fun. That's what was so depressing about it. God, it just bums me out thinking about this game.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Let's see. Dallas Reynolds wrote in, hey, everyone. I want to ask Brad one simple question. Is Suicide Squad really that bad? I'm a huge DC fan and Arkham fan, and I couldn't bring myself to be hyped for it. It just seems like an incongruent mess, even if their idea actually sounded kind of cool. I've been rocking through the Arkham games again, and I just feel like an actual non-VR Arkham game would have been amazing. As always, y'all keep crushing it and giving us some of the best gaming content around. Thank you, Dallas, for writing in. Like I said earlier, if you want some kind of mindless shooting a lot of times, like you want to see the numbers go up, you want to shoot some glowing purple stuff with maybe some character stuff you can get attached to, you could have a good time. I could see someone having a good time with this game being like, oh, I had fun with it. I could totally understand that. But I can't recommend this game at full price. Not even close. $20, sure. Free, sure. $30 or anything higher than that, I cannot recommend it. As someone sounds like you're a big Arkham fan, you might find some stuff to like about it, but it's gonna hurt when you're just playing. You're just gonna be like, fuck. You're just gonna be bummed out. It's from T-Dot's Finest. Hey, Summoners, this one's for Brad. My question is, how far back would they have to unwind development to make Suicide Squad a good game? In an ideal world, we know a single-player game would be best, but since it had to be a live service, what should they have done instead? Is it as simple as getting rid of the guns and making each member feel unique, or are issues even more deep-rooted than that? So, yeah, they would have had to do a lot, as we were talking about earlier, when they were delayed the game to rework some stuff. It's too late by then. The core design is already there. You would have to fundamentally change a lot of the game design right away. A big thing would have been to make the characters feel more unique. Not everyone is using a pistol or a shotgun. Not all the characters taking advantage of unique movesets, making them all feel very different outside of traversal would have been a very positive start, especially like I said earlier, with how good the Arkham combat is, the melee combat. It's so good. If you could have incorporated that some way. They did try that with Gotham Knights, and it's just kind of a clusterfuck, honestly, playing with multiple people in that game. So maybe they tried it and they're like, this just isn't working. in the live service audience they're appealing towards, the Destiny players and stuff like that or whatever. They want guns. So maybe that's why they did it, but you definitely lose a lot of the identity and the possible uniqueness of that game. Also, the map should just be way more interesting to explore. You should have more incentive to explore the map and find cool shit so far. There's like Riddler trophies, but they're pretty dumb from what I've experienced so far. One of them was just like jumping through rings. I was like, what is this fucking shit? Like, you think about like Spider-Man and the map, there's more unique stuff to do in that game compared, like way more unique stuff to do in that game compared to this. And that's why probably Spider-Man's a bigger success than this game. So they would have gone back really far and designed this whole game and reworked all of it. So it was just a fucking disaster. All right, let's get a little more positive with a great game, actually. Micah, Dragon's Crown Pro. I love this fucking game. I know Colin loves this game also.
Definitely.
Please talk to us about Dragon's Crown Pro.
Yes, so I am loving it. I am 5 hours into my first playthrough. This is a game that I bought at launch, intended to play it with my roommate at the time. They just weren't into it at all. So I just was like, all right, I'll get to this eventually. And I finally have gotten to it. The backlog of games is insane. The number of games I have to get to never ends. But this one, I was just finally like, I really want to play this. It's also one of my favorite steelbooks that I own. It's a fantastic, like, embossed steelbook. It came with the skill cards in it. It was a fucking sweet set. So immediately playing this game, I love the narration. I love the presentation of it. It's presented very like D&D style. So you enter a stage and you have this voice that's like, you're ambushed by slime monsters. You have to find the key to escape. Like, you know, your whole adventure is being narrated. That aspect reminded me a lot of The Witcher 3, in which, you know, Dandelion the Bard is narrating that game through some of the cutscenes. And I just adore that type of stuff. I'm a big fantasy nerd. I love fantasy books and movies. And this is just right up my alley in terms of the like presentation style. And of course, we have to talk about like the art style, right? Vanillaware, very exaggerated, very colorful, like really just wow to look at the game overall. Some of it in a comical sense, though, like the giant boobed women and all that, the big muscular butts. Like there's some of it is genuinely funny. Yeah. There's this is not a spoiler. At one point, there's a vampire flying around, and the pose she's flying in is ridiculous, and like her entire butt is out, and it's just like nobody would fly like that. Nobody would fly like that. That's not the pose people like. It wasn't. I've never seen anybody fly like that before. All right, but it was funny. I'm not like offended by these things. It was genuinely funny, whether it was supposed to be funny or whether they thought I would find it sexy. I don't know. But for me, all this stuff is funny and I like it. I do wonder what Vanillaware, like what a wiener in their world would look like. If this is what we get for like the boobs and the butts, I gotta know what's going on the men's side of things.
Oh, I remember when this was a controversy, this game came out, like Jason Schreier was complaining about this game or some shit.
I think. Yeah,
he was being a crybaby about it, and I think the artist like drew a bunch of like dwarf dudes stacked up together, buff dwarf dudes for him because he was complaining.
That's right. That's right. Yeah,
that's a fucking awesome response.
Hell yeah, it is.
It's totally fair because the men in the game are ridiculous.
Yeah, they're jacked. The jacked, huge.
Exactly. No, you go to the Adventurers Guild, and the guy who runs it has like, first of all, like a very tiny head and a huge
he's like,
body.
Welcome back. Yeah, I remember that. Like burned into my brain. Yeah.
They're all ridiculous. It's completely fair in that regard because everybody is ridiculous. Okay, like that's my number one feeling about it is like, look, man, this isn't sexist because the men look fucking crazy as well. They just have a little more clothing on, but not all the women are scantily clad either. Right. Like the Archer. Exactly. Yeah, the Archer comes to mind. You know, it's just like, I don't know, man. It's funny to me. It's weird. I'm enjoying that part of it. So I chose the fighter class because it's my first time playing and that's what was recommended. And I am very glad I chose that. I read a very brief getting started guide for the game that just had some general tips, such as maybe choosing the fighter for your first playthrough, things like remembering to repair your weapons after each stage or at least checking them after each stage to make sure that you don't go into an adventure unprepared, explaining the system of weapon appraisals, things like that. So I do recommend maybe checking out one of those like spoiler-free guides if you're completely new to this, because it's not as much as I thought it was. I was very intimidated by the game because my roommate at the time like noped out so fast because he was like, too many tutorials. And so I remembered that and thought, oh man, maybe I don't want to get into this. And it's really not that bad. The combat's quick to learn, especially for the fighter. There's definitely room to master it. Some of the kind of little combo moves you can do, but picking it up is very quick. I like the adventure game aspect where you have like a cursor that you can move around the screen to either find extra treasure, or you unlock eventually the ability to cast runes. So you'll see throughout the stages there's runes carved into the wall, and later on you'll use your cursor to interact with those. And those might give you special weapons. It might give you, status buffs and things like that. It adds another layer to the combat. These are also things you could ignore if you feel like you're overleveled or the game's too easy. Generally, these are all helpful things, so you can ignore them if you want to. I like being able to customize the difficulty sort of in that way of if you're really struggling with a stage, maybe use the runes and see what you get. Maybe it's a weapons cache, maybe it's like a protective circle. Or if you're just feel like you're powering through every level too easily, just ignore all of them and don't take on that extra help. I like things like that a lot in games where you can sort of customize how you play. Another unexpected feature for me was that you find like bones of fallen adventurers along the way. I'm playing this solo, of course, so finding like the bones of fallen adventurers in different stages, you can resurrect them if you want, which is really cool, and then add them to your party. So I'm playing by myself, but I can choose to have a full party. I don't have to have a full party if I feel like that's too easy, or if I'm trying to do a certain objective and sometimes the AI kind of get in the way. Right. You can start a stage without your adventuring pals. But it's really neat to be able to play the game solo and still have a great time with it, because that was another reason I kept this in the backlog for so long, because I originally intended like, oh, this would be a fun couch co-op game. Now I'm like, oh, who am I going to play it with? But I really don't feel like I'm missing out on anything by playing with the computer characters. And it's fun to go through the stage, see which adventurers you found by the end, what class they are, what level they are. You might end up with one that's a higher level than you, which is cool. If you're stuck on something, they'll help you out. So that aspect of it as well is really cool. I have a lot of notes here. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. No, I want you to get deep with the game. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because I want to mention too, the way the game is structured. So you have these main story quests that automatically pop up. Another great aspect of this game is that you never feel lost as to what to do. This is not a game that if you put it down for a couple days and you boot it up, you're going to be like, I don't remember what I was doing. As soon as you exit the tavern area where you set up your party, it prompts you with what your main mission is. And then, of course, at any time, you can view your quest log from the Adventurers Guild. But it just was so simple to pick up and play, to not feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. This is complicated. Like, this game's not complicated at all. It's addicting. It's a real joy to play. Like, there is some backtracking, you could say, because you have like a limited number of stages for the main story quests. And then your little side quests, you sort of go back and replay those stages. They're really short, though, so that it doesn't feel like bad backtracking. It also, the objectives are different each time. So you're looking for a different door, you're looking for specific things. It really doesn't feel like the bad kind of backtracking. I don't mind it at all. I'm just having a fantastic time with this, picking up spoils, throughout the stage, all your treasure, like that's addicting for sure. I'm having a fantastic time with it. I'm disappointed in myself that I waited so long to play it, but it's also the perfect game right now as I'm getting more and more burnt out with Xenoblade Chronicles 2 that like, this is just a godsend. I'm having so much fun with this. Xenoblade 2, man. Like not to go off on a tangent, like I'm getting so fucking sick of it. I set it down to easy. And the thing about Xenoblade is that easy is really like normal. Like, yes. I'm going to say that on Xenoblade Chronicles, normal is like medium hard. Like, it really is not it really doesn't feel like normal. And I played through most of the game on normal. I'm just sick of it. It's not too difficult. I'm just getting bored.
You just want to get through it, yeah.
Right. I spent
I get
3
it.
hours grinding last weekend. Like, I'm just fucking sick
It's a
of it,
long ass
man.
game. Yeah.
Yeah, and so then I put it on easy, and I still am too low leveled to do things, and I still have to grind more. I'm just not
Yeah,
loving
you're
it
just done.
anymore.
Yeah.
And playing this in between is just like, oh my god, this is
Refreshing.
fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Right. It is. It's refreshing. It's the constant like, ooh, what do I get for treasure? Oh, what skills can I buy now? Like, it's the constant leveling up versus waiting 3 hours to go up one level. Like, it's been a blast, and I'm really enjoying it so far.
Micah, I'm so happy this year you've like dived deep into Vanillaware games. You beat Unicorn Overlord, which is I'm
that one was
thrilled
awesome.
about. I've only played like 8 hours of that game, but I think it's really cool, and I love Vanillaware. I'm just so stoked you beat that game. That's so cool to me. And now you're playing Dragon's Crown. I think Dragon Crown is like easily my favorite beat 'em up of all time. It's so fucking good, man. I love this game. I played as the archer when I played the game the first time. Man, so much fun. And I play with 2 buddies. It's such a good time if you have friends to play with. But like you're saying, also great single player. Lots of fun still. Colin, I know you like this game a lot too. Tell me about it.
It's been a long time. Yeah, I was actually.
What do you remember? Did you play it on Vita though? Is what I gotta know.
I reviewed it on PS3, but I also played it on Vita. Yeah, but I went to look at the Dragon's Crown wiki page, and I'm cited on it, which is funny. And it says IGN's Colin Moriarty was also highly positive, with his only main criticism being the narrative. I don't remember what I said about it at all.
Maybe it was too thin or something.
Yeah, let's see what this is. So July. What? And I gave it an 8.5. Yeah.
Great score.
Yeah, I said the Dragon's Crown's about to put Vanillaware on the map, which it kind of did, because up to that point, Vanillaware was pretty under the radar.
I heard about them with Odin Sphere, I think is the first time I heard about them.
Yeah, that was a big year for them, because 2007 was Grim Grimoire and Odin Sphere. Those were their first kind of console games.
Oh, okay.
And then Muramasa came out. I don't know if you played Grand Knight's History on PSP. And then Dragon's Crown, and then that was the last Vanillaware game I even played. There was some re-releases and stuff after that, because that was Left Riser came out, Muramasa Rebirth came to Vita.
Yeah, then they did.
But I bought and played 13 Sentinels for like a second, but I just wasn't into it. I'm sure it's great. I just haven't
super into that game either, Colin. I played like 7 hours and I just couldn't connect with it. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of like visual novel style kind of games, and I didn't really like the combat in that game that much either. So I know fucking people love that game, so that's awesome. But I'm kind of with you on that game.
And Unicorn Overlord, it looks great. I mean, it looks great. I just haven't played it yet, and I don't know when I'll get to it. But it's funny. It's exactly what I was saying about Rocksteady, in the sense of like what I respect so much about Vanillaware. First of all, the amazing thing about Dragon's Crown was it was made for about $1 million. Number one.
Wow. That's crazy.
They made an enormous amount of money on that game, and this is why they're able to kind of take their time and make weird shit. What is it, George Kamatani or whatever, and those guys like kind of keep costs low. But what I really love about them is that they do different games, and they don't. The games that they do all would fit on a Venn diagram with each other. It's not like BioWare going from Mass Effect to Anthem, where they're just like totally separate. It's like, Grim Grimoire and Odin Sphere and Grand Knight's History and Muramasa and whatever, they all kind of fit in some weird puzzle, even though they're all radically different. A lot of it is the common art style. There's no doubt about that. It's very similar to Drinkbox Studios. I can't remember the Mexican lead artist there that has that very Mexican inspired flavor to his stuff, and it gives their stuff a very specific visual flavor. Obviously, Vanillaware is one of the kings of that. You know their games just by looking at them instantly. And in some ways, 13 Sentinels was the one that looked most different, in my opinion. But I dig that they jump around and do different things. And I think that takes a lot of courage, but the courage isn't WB level $200 million courage. It's courage where it's like, you could easily make $1 million back on a game like that. Now let's say that $5 million, whatever they would be spending on it now. It's just pretty incredible. The one thing I don't remember the beat to beat stuff about Dragon's Crown at all. I see it in my head. I know what it is. And I was really excited about it when it came out. But yeah, it's funny you brought up Jason Schreier, because that's really the thing I remember the most, is the absolute crybaby shit going on about this game.
So many people crying about it.
Which I still don't understand. I'm just going to shoot with you straight, Brad. The same people that celebrate real women putting their tits out on Twitch for 14-year-old boys are the ones that write about the witch's large breasts and how, and no one can really identify why it's offensive. Like, why is it offensive? Okay, so she's scantily clad. Why is that offensive? Yeah, what about that specifically? Like, can you specifically tell me why it's offensive? Or is it just like unsavory to you? Because those are two different things. And I find it weird that people celebrate sexuality in all the weird ways. But when it's in fiction, it's like, oh, go girl. You know, e-girls and fucking and OnlyFans and the completely ridiculous wasteland that Twitch has become with titty streamers and all that kind of stuff. It's like, that's cool and that's empowering, but that's not cool and that's not empowering. The witch having her breast out. It's just complete nonsense, and that always stood out to me. I remember that being a pretty seminal moment in my own awakening in the culture war. I've always been a culture warrior in some sense, but it's like, wow, you guys really are fucking babies. Mm-hmm. Crazy. Like, I couldn't even imagine seeing something like that and crying about it and complaining about it. And all they did was bring more attention to the game. It often goes that way. You're gonna circulate a picture of the witch's tits with her holding the frog like this and her tits hanging out, and some 12-year-old is gonna buy that game. Like, you just did them a huge favor. You know, that kind of shit just bothers me. The prudishness, dude. In real life, I'm a huge prude. Everyone knows that. I don't like watching sexual content in movies and TV shows. I feel like it's overdone. I feel like it's unnecessary. I feel like it ruins stuff. But its very existence doesn't bother me. I'm not aghast by it. I don't like it. And people are unable to separate those two things. And I felt like it was a little weird. Like the environment around Dragon's Crown. The thing about Dragon's Crown now, though, is that it would be, and it was, I never played the pro version, but I remember when it came back out, so that was like 5 years later, it was a different kind of scene where people are like, look at her titties. You know, oh my God. You know, so and now today, I mean, I couldn't even imagine what they would do to the witch and the Valkyrie, you know.
Well, and there's some just ridiculous stuff in there. There's at one point, there's like, because it's just immediately on screen, this freeze frame of a female monk, and she has a chastity belt on and like legs spread on screen, and it's just like, whoa, man, like I just wasn't expecting this. I entered a room and this is like the first screen you show me, and it's also like that would immediately be like when mom walks in the room, right? Like the rest of the game is me fighting skeletons, and that's the part where mom would walk in, is when this like woman with a chastity belt is on screen, or like the mermaid with her butt cheeks out of the water, and it's just like, what the hell, man? Like, but it's comical to me the same way that fan service anime is comical to me. Like it's just one of those things, like, I don't know, man, I just think it's funny. And the gameplay is so solid that it could look like anything and I'd still play it because it's just a whole lot of fun. I'm just enjoying it so much that it's like, I don't care what these people look like. They could all be naked. They could all be, it doesn't matter. The gameplay is just so incredible that, right. And I'm not really a beat 'em up person usually, and I realize it's more so the themes of the games. Like Colin and I played through Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle beat 'em up together, and I had fun with it, but I don't really like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So it's like, it's fun, but it wasn't as cool as this one where it's like, oh, hell yeah, dude, she's casting spells, and I got this cool ass sword that I found. Like the theme really adds to the gameplay for me and just makes it so much better, having it be fantasy and all those things I love.
Yeah, it's D&D, so it's all really cool shit. And it's funny, Micah, you're talking about like how risque some of the character designs are in this game, and it, to me, it kind of fits in that D&D setting, like them being like that. But it's like playing Unicorn Overlord, there's nothing really like that I've seen.
No, there's some boobed women, you know, but like
there's even some women with boobs, but it's not like their tits are fucking like hanging out or anything crazy like that.
No, there's only a couple,
that I've seen,
right? There's only exactly, yeah. You're correct. Like there are only a couple women who are like very scantily clad, and they're usually like the sorceress class, and they're like wearing like a thong, basically,
like a witch,
but even like one of the main female characters, Scarlet, who has like giant boobs, but they put them in a sweater and they're just flapping around the whole game, but like she's in a sweater, you know. Sweater pups. So it's like they toned it down for some reason. Actually, in that game as well, the male characters aren't as exaggerated either. You know, the Crown Prince main character is not like a giant muscle bound.
No, he's more like a normal dude.
Exactly. So they have some characters in that game that are exaggerated.
There's
but
some
not a
jacked,
lot.
huge motherfuckers in that game with like tiny
There's a
heads. Yeah.
couple.
Well, that's
Yeah.
what I love about the
Yeah,
in Dragon's
specific-
Crown, the knight. I love that character's design. How it's just huge. You know,
Yeah, there's guys like
his
that
heads like popping
in
out of the
Unicorn
armor.
Overlord for sure.
And they gave him no ass. All right. Like he's
Yeah,
walking
that's
around. He's got
disappointing.
nothing back
They should have
there.
given him a little
I
something.
mean, a man with a nice ass.
It's like when they nerfed
it's a requirement.
They nerfed Snake's ass in like Fortnite and shit. I was like, what are you fucking doing, man? How you doing that to Snake? What's wrong with
Yeah,
you?
I think they
Thank
did
you.
something like that to like Aloy and a few others in Fortnite as well. Like they desexualized.
They always like
characters.
nerf everyone's asses. I remember they nerfed the characters' asses. You might remember this in Overwatch, Micah, because I guess people were complaining about it.
Yes.
It's like, who's
The
fucking complaining
orange-
about this?
The
Tracer.
British lady.
Tracer.
I hated her for other reasons. I didn't hate her because I
Her
just
jovial
I was a Symmetra
personality.
main. Right, like I main Symmetra.
Symmetra
all
main.
right?
I
And
just should zapping people.
I loved her. I have the pop figure. They nerfed her though.
They
I
did.
stopped playing as her. I would play as Roadhog instead.
Sick.
He
Love
got
Roadhog.
changed. Everything I loved about that game changed so fundamentally. I
Damn.
just couldn't keep up with it anymore.
It's
Yeah.
it's funny. It's like, oh, the fictional character's ass is too big. Oh no, Amaranth's a hero. Her titties are out to 16-year-olds on Twitch. She bought a gas
Yeah.
station. You know, it's like,
well, it's
okay.
like now you just made their ass like concave. It like doesn't even make sense anymore.
Oh, yeah, no, like Tracer, like was it a weird butt? Kind of, but like it wasn't bothersome, but then they just made it a bad butt.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, nobody wants to look at that.
Yeah, it's like I don't want them to nerf anyone's butt. I don't want them to nerf a dude's butt. Just let them have a butt. People got butts, man. It's fine. In fact, there
Everybody's
should be
got
more
a butt.
bulges. Give them a bulge.
Oh, yeah, Luigi in Mario Tennis, was
Well,
it?
maybe
Or
not
Mario
Luigi.
Golf?
It's a little obscene. You know, it's a
No,
little
they
weird.
did though.
I know.
They gave us bulge. So
I know. I don't know if we need Luigi bulge, anything like that. But like, would you be mad at McCree bulge or anything like that?
no, of course.
Yeah,
You know, have
exactly.
you ever seen? Have you seen Law and Order SVU?
No.
Are you familiar? Okay, the cop on that show, the main man,
Stabler?
like he's known on that show for having such a giant butt, and like women go nuts for
Yeah.
that show, mainly because this guy has such a huge caboose. And it's like, what if they just did that to every character? Like John Marston, caked up. You
Yeah,
know, like
dude.
just every male
That's
character,
cool.
just give him a big old butt to look
It gives
at.
men something to strive for. If I see a dude with a nice butt, it's like, man, I gotta work on my glutes or something like that. That's the feeling I get about that kind of shit. Like, I don't know about you, Colin. When you see like a jack dude, you're like, fuck, I want to hit the gym kind of thing.
yeah, it's an inspiration in some sense.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a meathead, but I want to
Yeah,
look good. I want to look,
wanna be
look
fit.
better than I do.
Healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's, it's good to want to work for something, you know? It's a good mindset to have.
Yeah, I'm lazy
Of
in all
course you
sorts of
want-
ways, but not in that way. Yeah.
We all are, yeah. So, yeah. Yeah, Colin, it's crazy. Workout for like an hour and a half. Sitting on an elliptical for an hour, I don't know how you fucking do that. I want to shoot myself on the elliptical for like 20 minutes.
I just listen to music
It's
really
so
loud and
boring.
scream along with it.
Oh, that's a good idea, actually.
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, like, if I'm riding my exercise bike, I always am watching YouTube the whole time. So
Oh,
it's like,
that's
that's my
good.
excuse to, like, watch Game Grumps or whatever, like,
That's-
whatever
yeah.
else nonsense I'm going to do. It's essential, though. There's no way I could ride that bike for more than 5 minutes without looking at something. Like, you got to
Yeah.
give me something. My mind is bored.
Yeah, totally. Like sometimes I'll listen to our content. Like I'll listen to Sacred or something in the gym, and it's like not good gym shit. Cause like something I'll maybe laugh or something when I'm doing like a bench press. You know, I'm fucking having all these weights on me, and it just fucking kills my entire set. But it's great on the treadmill or something like that. Good shit. But yeah, Dragon's Crown, fucking awesome game. It's cheap all the time too. This game's constantly on sale. Micah, where are you playing this actually? Are you playing it on
Oh,
PlayStation?
Yeah.
It's only on
'cause
PlayStation,
I own
actually,
it.
right?
Yeah, this is something actually I think would be excellent on Switch. I really think that this would thrive on Switch. Just the style of gameplay. It's a relatively short game that you can replay multiple times. Like this screams handheld. You know, it's like Switch, man, would be excellent for this, especially with how well Unicorn Overlord did on Switch.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm playing it on PS5 because I owned the PS4 copy, and it's great. It's really great. The story itself, the story is thin, but
Yeah.
it's not really necessary, and there's enough. I do want to mention that there's enough going on in the story. You have a little bit of like political intrigue. You of course have the fantasy elements there. There is certainly enough to keep me engaged in what's happening. I'm not completely ignoring the story. It's just delivered in like bits and pieces, and I'm happy with that. I don't need a game right now with 20-minute cutscenes. I'm good with just getting like bits and pieces of the narrative delivered, and it's good enough. It's good enough for what the game is and how enjoyable it is. The story doesn't take away from it by any means.
Yeah, it's a beat 'em up first and foremost, definitely.
Right.
So it's great. But yeah, it's a good game on Vita, or Colin's beloved Vita. Rest in peace. It looked very nice on the OLED and everything like that. Damn. Man, the Vita, I actually did like the Vita a lot too.
You all fucked up. It's fine.
I love the Vita.
You all fucked it up. Everyone fucked
I bought it. I have it.
I have one. I bought a ton of games for it. Like, I didn't do this. I didn't do this.
I did my part.
I'm saying more than royally you. This is a big thing on Sacred where it's like, I know what time it was. I tried to tell you from the very beginning.
Yeah.
From the first time I went hands on with it, you were all dumb.
It was an annoying system to buy because you had to get like the extra memory shit, and it was more expensive. Cards. It was just like very stupid how it was all laid out. Beautiful hardware, great to play. Just buying it was kind of probably more trouble than it should have been.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. You know, it was an anti-piracy thing. They didn't have to make money on it.
DS was out, and the 3DS were just fucking awesome handhelds as well.
Yeah.
But yeah. Rest in peace, Vita. Shout out Dragon's Crown.
It's funny.
Micah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Colin.
I was just saying, you said the 3DS was out and it's great too. I thought the 3DS sucked. I thought
there's so much good shit on 3DS.
It's fine that the games are there. It's just a bad system. And next to the Vita, it looked like a joke. And that was what what annoyed me so much. And by the way, I say that as a huge DS fan. Huge.
Yeah, I get it.
3DS was just like such a... I can't believe when I played with that 3D slider for the first time at E3, I'm like, are you serious?
Dude, like, it's really cool in some games, though. The Mario 3D Land, bro, play that with the 3D slider on, Colin. You'll be a believer.
No.
Not fucking Pilot Wings or where the fuck they had coming out, Steel Battalion or where that Steel, like that submarine game.
Oh, yeah, I remember. What was that called? Steel... I was going to say Steel Rising. That's not true.
Yeah, it's some shit. But like, that's going to turn you off on that. Yeah. You got to play Super Mario 3D World, Link Between World and 3D. Good shit.
It's annoying me. What is
3D.
It called?
Turn off the 3D the whole time.
Steel Diver.
I mean, you don't need it, but I'm just saying it works well in some games. It works well. But yeah, shout out all those beautiful handhelds. Micah, you should play this on a Portal. Probably be fun on there. You love handheld stuff. You could play it on there. Oh, that's true. Right?
I forget that we have a Portal. It confuses me how I'd even set it up for me to play on it. So I just been playing in our loft because we have a PlayStation up there. Because I'm like, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah, you can use that is the PlayStation that it is connected to, is the one in the loft. So we could both use it because it's just a mirror, but it only works on that console. We would have to reset it to work on the other consoles. So that's in the future you will know. So if you want to do that in the future, it's fine. I would just run this cable that's in my computer right now. I would just run to the PS5. Which is not a big deal.
That's the real issue.
Yeah,
that's
when football season starts again, I'm going to be doing that every Sunday, so it's not a big deal.
No, you will. Yeah, but so you'll be using it.
So we'll get another one then. That's fine. I have no problem.
Get another one. Yeah.
Well, I also next on. I have many games in the backlog, but I do have Odin Sphere, Life Rest, or whatever it is. I do own that as well, and that's another one I want to get to.
That's fun.
I have a lot of PlayStation games, just random shit like Dark Rose Valkyrie and like Death End Request 2. I have a bunch of random shit I want to get to.
Yeah, this is random shit you're talking about. Yeah, wow.
I'm working through it.
Micah, your tastes always surprise me with what cool games you're playing. I love it. Oh, you always play these cool little hidden gems. You're talking about Atlas games I never fucking heard of before, like whatever that Dragon 3, some shit you're talking about last time we were on here. I was like, I don't know what the hell that is. But you're like, oh, it's a great DS game or some shit like that.
Oh, that's so cool. It's the best 3DS game ever. It's my all-time favorite.
Damn. Wow. Not even over first party ones? Wow. It must be really good.
I mean, God. It's just so good. It's just so good. The story, the gameplay, everything about it is just fantastic.
I believe you. Speaking of 3DS, Colin, did you ever play the Dragon Quest, the 3DS ones on there? 7 and 8?
No. I played 4, 5, and 6 on DS, but I never played 7 and 8 on.
Man, I never played those on DS.
I bought them. I own those. They're apparently pretty rare. But
they are.
Those were like very random games that I actually bought because I didn't get 3DS or DS games for free. So
yeah.
I had a pretty nice DS collection, or still do. It's at Dagan's.
Yeah.
So yeah, I never played the 7 and 8 remakes or re-releases.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm hoping 7 and 8 will just come.
Yeah.
I was telling Dustin, he didn't know. I was like, dude, level 5 made Dragon Quest 8.
Yeah.
Right there. Yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, you and I were talking about that. And
yeah.
He was excited about that. I'm like, that's
level 5 used
somewhat
to be the
inevitable,
shit, dude.
you know. Yeah.
They were the shit like in the PS2 era. They were so good, man.
Definitely. Dark Cloud, Rogue Galaxy.
Yeah. I still need to play Rogue Galaxy.
It's on PS4.
I heard it's great. I know. I just haven't gotten to it, but I want to. But yeah, shout out Micah bringing Dragon's Crown. All right. It's time for a Sort It Out! On this segment, we just talk about something in the game industry that's bothering us. Company, game, human being in the industry, could be, that needs sorting out. Who needs some work? Colin, let's start with you. Who needs sorting out this week from you? I know there's a long list, probably.
Fans need sorting out this week.
Oh, shit. Let's hear it.
Hey, babies. I want you to listen carefully, okay?
Yes.
Because I can't take it anymore. Where are the games?
Dude.
Where are the games? Oh.
I'm drowning in games, guys.
Do you like video games? Have you paid any attention to the games that have come to PlayStation 5 this year? Listen, I don't want to be disingenuous. I understand what a lot of people are saying when they say we want more first-party games. We all would like more first-party games. I want them to be of a high quality. I'd rather have fewer of them and much more high quality consistently, which I think Sony has achieved since maybe the middle of the PS4 era. But a mono focus on first-party content is really ignoring the forest for the trees. If you are involved with any non-Nintendo hardware for exclusives only, then you are in the wrong place. You should go buy a Switch and immerse yourself in the first-party content there that the hardware will live and die by. But the absolute reality of PlayStation and Xbox and PC is that the exclusives are nice, but they don't ultimately really matter if you like a wide breadth of games. And while we would like those exclusives to come at a greater cadence, even if the exclusives are what's important to you, why does it matter where the game comes from if it's good? Why does it matter if it's locked to a console if it's good or fun? Here are the games I've played this year on PlayStation 5. Prince of Persia: The Lost that have come out this year. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, which I beat and platinumed. Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, which I beat. Lords of Exile, which I haven't beat, but that's not really a relevant game. Banisher's Ghost of New Eden, that came out this year, and I didn't beat it, but it was really good. I liked it. Just was getting a little long in the tooth. Helldivers 2 came to PS5 and PC. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, beat that. Stellar Blade, beat that. Animal Well, platinumed and beat that. And then all the way up to Crow Country, which I just platinumed, and we'll get to that later.
Mm-hmm.
I play games as a course of my life because it's what I do for a living. And I play way more than most people, including most people listening to this. It's not an insult. It's a reflection of the reality of our situations. I am truly tired of hearing about how there's nothing to play and there are no games on PlayStation. You must not like video games.
Mm-hmm.
You must not understand the idea that you can actually buy older things that you may have missed. You haven't played everything. No doubt about it. The more time goes on, every day that goes on, that becomes magnified. And by the time we get 50 years into the future, there's going to be so much shit that you have never played. I'm not saying we're there now, but it's so interesting to think that we're piling and piling and piling these things up. Imagine where we are now in the timeline. This hand-wringing over PlayStation 5's lack of games is completely divorced from reality. And it needs to be called out. If all you care about are exclusives, then here's what you have gotten so far this year. Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, Helldivers 2, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Stellar Blade, and Rise of the Ronin, which I played briefly. It's not on my trophy list.
Mm-hmm.
Can you name an era where more and better games came out on in PlayStation? I'd like to hear about that 6-month run in PlayStation's history where those kinds of games all came to the console exclusively, if that's what's important to you, which apparently it is. Name the era. I've been with PlayStation since the beginning, so you can name it and I can recall it very quickly. This is amongst the strongest runs of games in the history of the console, actually. And the only reason people don't give a shit in some of the parts of the core is because it doesn't come from Sony Studios.
Right.
And I just think that I've said for many years now, and people know, it's like, I like my PlayStation first-party games a lot. Some of them are my favorite games of all time. But I'm not here just for PlayStation games. That can't possibly be true. There aren't enough of them. There weren't enough of them in the most voluminous era of, well, PS1 Sony was publishing everything, but they weren't really making very much of it. PS2, they weren't making very much of it, publishing a little bit. By the time you got to PS3, where there was parity and there were studios starting to make things, let's say 2011, 2012, 2013, pretty busy time for PlayStation first-party games, pretty comparable to where we are now. It's just completely divorced from reality. Helldivers 2 has probably sold something like 15 million copies at this point. Grand Blue Fantasy Relink was very, very well liked by people. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is masterful. Stellar Blade is excellent. People love Rise of the Ronin. What is wrong with you guys? It's almost like you nothing pleases you and you just want to complain, and then you get mad at people like me when we don't complain because it doesn't reflect the honest feeling inside of us. I've been very busy.
Yeah.
And quite satisfied. So it's not in running defense for Sony, because obviously they've greenlit games they shouldn't have, and things are behind, and they've probably followed some cues that they maybe shouldn't have gone too deep into games as a service. Obviously, The Last of Us Online was nixed. Twisted Metal was nixed. They're turning a very big ship, and those mistakes should be criticized and could be a part of why there's new leadership at the top of PlayStation now. But to pretend that there's nothing to play on PlayStation 5 is idiotic. And I read about it every day, and I just don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So, you know what? Sort it out. Sort it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, Colin, 100%. And it's like, you're getting Concord in a month or two, whether you're excited for that game or not.
And then Astrobot.
Then
you're going to get Silent Hill.
Awesome. Yeah.
And it's like, what are you talking about? Thank you for letting me.
Here, Colin, I'm going to name some stuff that I have beaten actually this year that are only on PlayStation and not on PC either. Rebirth, the Rising Tides, the Final Fantasy DLC, which is great. Stellar Blade, and I beat Castlevania Rondo of Blood and Symphony of the Night. Those are only on PlayStation.
Yeah,
you can't
Sony
even get those
that
on PC. So it's like, there's a lot of shit to play on PlayStation. Like, if you only want first party stuff right now, which I totally understand, like you said also, it's like people want to know. They want to know what's coming out because Sony's very quiet, but it's like, man, there's a fuck ton of games.
Yeah, it's like
I'm drowning in games.
Again, if it's just exclusives you care about, then there's none of those are good for you. Relink's not good for you. Helldivers isn't good for you. Rise of the Ronin isn't good for you. Stellar Blade's not good for you. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's not good for you. So none of that.
Yeah,
that's your problem at that point.
Yeah,
it's what I was saying about PlayStation Plus recently, where the games this month are like Borderlands 3, which I bought back in 2019, so it's not for me. NHL 24, which is going to be replaced very soon in October by NHL 25, and then Among Us, which is a cheaper game. And people are like, "Oh, this list sucks," and I'm like, "For you, maybe." And I understand.
Is a big game,
right? I was like, huge. I'm like, Borderlands is great. Among Us is a famous game. I know it's cheap, but they're giving it to you and trying to kind of, grease the skids for the sequel or whatever the update that's coming out for it. And then NHL is 16 million people just watched the NHL Finals Game 7 in the United States. So an enormous. That's more than anyone has watched any NBA final or NHL game in years.
Yeah.
So I just think people are too focused myopically, even if somehow, like Neo in the Matrix, you are dodging every bullet coming at you, and one of the bullets is Grand Blue Fantasy, and one of them is Helldivers, and none of them are for you. Then what about all of the third-party stuff? It's just, this is a very strong year. I would argue that this year is, for me, and I wouldn't argue this overall because I know how people feel about the games last year. This is a stronger year than last year for me. I mean,
sure, yeah, I could see that.
A lot of things last year, like Baldur's Gate stuff, I'm like, I don't want to play this stuff. But I appreciate that people liked it. So there's a level of deep myopia that is concerning about this. And I don't really get why you're even in the game space at all if there's nothing there for you. It just seems like it would be impossible for that to be true. So it just seems like complaining for complaining's sake, totally devoid from the reality of the situation. And what I think we'll look back at holistically is being like, wow, that was actually a pretty good year. And I think it's just going to get better. Do I think Concord's going to be good? I have no idea. And I'm not going to play it, so I don't give a shit. But there's going to be that too, like you said. And then Astrobot, and then Silent Hill, and then whatever else comes out this fall. Yeah. And when they reveal the Pro in late summer or early fall, which they will, I'm sure, you don't think they're going to have games to announce at that point for 2025? Like, I get the fear, but you have to imagine that they know.
Yeah.
I know it's frustrating, but let's just calibrate ourselves a little bit better. Thank you for letting me rant.
No, I want you to rant. I think a lot of this, Colin, is also because Xbox is kind of in the field of for better or for worse, announcing stuff very early and getting people excited about stuff like games. But like when I see a lot of their games, like Gears of War, really excited to play the new one when it comes out. Love that. I'm like, oh, that game's probably like 4 years away. I'm not expecting to play that game for like 4 years, essentially, based off their cadence in the past of releasing games. Like Fable is still fucking not out yet with like out of date or anything like that. And they announced that so long ago. And but PlayStation, they're taking pages from Nintendo right now, just mostly waiting. There's been a few examples of them announcing stuff very early, like you said, like Wolverine, which I don't know if they should have, but it seems like they announced kind of stuff and they want it to be out within a year or 6 months, which I'm totally fine with. But I can feel the frustration of people just wanting to know. But it's like, they're making games, dude. They're just not sitting on their ass not doing anything. They're going to come, I guess.
The strategy's not been great. I think the first party output has been minimal, and I get that. But it ignores that they anticipate, like the second party nature of what PlayStation's been funding and putting out just indicates to any thinking person, it's like they are aware, dude. That's why they're going and getting this stuff. Stellar Blade was acquired very unusually way after it was announced and removed from one of the platforms it was supposed to be on. So yeah, I don't care where you can play your games. It doesn't really bother me. But for those that think it's really important, which these people clearly do, it's like, I just don't get it, man.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Also, these are diverse games. These are not dad simulators. Everyone makes fun of them. And then it's like, okay, so you have your deeply anime game. You have your online shooter. You have your Souls-like. You have your kind of provocative, pervy little game. You know, you have your great JRPG. Like none of them are in the mold
multiplayer shooter
of PlayStation's games. So it's like, you can't win in some sense. But of course, they are winning. The console is selling briskly, and I think most people see it for what it is. So I'm just talking to those select people that don't.
I don't know. I'm personally fucking struggling to keep up with games.
Me too.
It's like Elden Ring. I did finish Elden Ring, and like the Final Fantasy 14 expansion just came out, dude. I'm fucking dying here. I wish I could play more games, dude. It's killing me. But yeah, I guess sort it out, y'all. Play some more games, I guess. Micah, what about you? Who needs sorting?
Well, mine was going to be that we really need to get Dragon's Crown Pro on Switch, but I already brought that up. So instead, I'm going to, but that's still true. That still holds. I still think it belongs there, and I think it'd be an excellent move. Get some extra money for them, all right? Put it over there. Get some new interest in it. I think you should do that. But I'm going to bring up something near and dear to my heart, which I've also mentioned earlier. But Sega Superstars Tennis came out in 2008.
Oh, yeah.
Where's the update? All right. Because the thing about that game, that magical game, is you would go on the servers like years later and you'd just be matched against these like savants who never stopped playing it. And like they would just destroy you online. It was just like, we need a new one, man. Like I've been waiting years for this, much like Viva Pinata. I have been dying for a new Sega Superstars Tennis. I'm starting to give up hope because it's been so long, but I still feel like there's a chance. I still feel like there's a maybe. But I really need them to make that, please. Like Sega, stop making. I don't want all these stupid new Sonic games. All right, I want Sega Superstars Tennis. Okay, this is what I want. And if I don't get some fucking Samba de Amigo music in my ears right now, I'm gonna lose it.
Go ballistic.
So that's what I need from them. All right, give me a game that people actually want. All right, give me something that people are actually clamoring for. We don't want Sonic wearing a scarf. We don't want Knuckles talking. We just want this.
Shut
this
Knuckles.
Is all I want. This is the only thing I desire. So that's what I'd like. I'd like Sega to listen to the people. And give them
the last
what they
one
want.
was on the 3DS and like PS3 era. It looks like.
Yeah,
I was curious.
It's been too long.
Yeah, I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if this was in like a Yakuza game. I was trying to see if it's like been in one of them because they always do shit like that. Because they have the Sonic fighting game in one of them, I believe. So maybe that's your best hope, Micah. Is they'll put it in a Yakuza game.
Yeah, that probably will be it. Because I do see it later. They later put it on Mac, and I'm like, great. That's great. Oh, in 2013, they put it on Mac. Like, that's not what I fucking want. That's not what I want. I want a new one.
Just
on Switch.
Another attempt at them copying Mario and not being as successful as them.
And the thing is that it was better than Mario Tennis.
Oh,
man.
I believe it.
Better. All right, we got fucking Space Harrier stages in there.
That's cool.
Okay, we got all sorts of things in there. I was fantastic, and I loved it.
Has the
And
Jet
they
Set
just-
Radio guy. That's cool.
Yeah, exactly. No, they're all in there. Everybody's there.
Everybody's there.
The weird lady from Space News, whatever. They're
Space
all
Channel
there.
5, yeah.
Yeah, everybody's there. It's fantastic, and they need to revisit it. I'm
Sure.
very passionate about this because it's one of those games I genuinely, much like Viva Pinata, I have genuinely never lost hope that they'd make another one, but it's starting to fade. I can feel it, and I feel like once I lose this nugget of hope, my life will never be the same.
Oh,
so
no.
it feels like how I'm gonna feel if like my dad dies or something.
Oh,
you know,
no.
and you're just forever shifted.
Oh,
so
no.
I need to hold on to this while I can, but I don't know. The faith is starting to wane.
Sega's revisiting a lot of old franchises like Crazy Taxi's coming back, Jet Set Radio's coming back. So maybe Sega Superstars Tennis will be on the board next after that. Let's hope, dude. Colin, remember Virtua Tennis, dude?
Yeah, of course.
Shout the fuck out on that game. Ruled, man, on Dreamcast.
I was talking about Virtua everything recently on one of the shows, saying like how much I loved that branding. You know,
Yeah, Virtua
Fighter,
so
and
cool.
all.
Virtua Fighter, Virtua Cop.
Right, it was cool.
So
It was a
good.
great branding on Sega's part.
Yeah. Man, Sega had rad branding. But yeah, shout out Sega Superstars Tennis. Keep holding out. Bring it back. Just for me, because I've been playing Suicide Squad, man, it's just like fucking sort it out, WB. Your whole gaming division doubling down on games as a live service. It's like, it's not fucking working. It's not working. You should be immediately pivoting away from that after the success of Hogwarts. How could you do Hogwarts and have like the best selling game of the year, then just think we should do what our $200 million loss game is doing? We should follow that path. It's fucking insanity, dude. I don't understand. Like, are they on hard drugs or something at that office? Are they snorting cocaine while they're fucking coming up with this shit?
No, it's
How does this happen?
it's a sign, in my opinion, of people really not knowing what they're talking about and what they're doing. I say
How
this
are
all the
these
time. There's
people-
just complete
Yeah.
ineptitude at the top of many companies. It just is so. They don't know anything. They look at trends and they crunch numbers and they count beans, and then they fucking think they can make these choices when the ship can't turn that quickly and that these things take too long to make. They're stupid. You know, it's stupid to do that to your seminal team.
Yeah. I don't
Mismanagement
fucking get
to up the wazoo, dude.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. All right, let's hear from the audience a little bit. This is from Craig. Hello, summoners. Sorted out Colin and Micah for not having Sweeney and Derek of the Snark Tank on Constellation or other LSM content yet. Craig from Scotland. This had a lot of likes too. Are you guys preventing them from? I don't know why Mike is being targeted in this also. But are you I don't think Colin's being like, no, they can't be on our shows.
No, but I'm not in any, you know, let me just be honest with you here. Chris became I made Chris a podcaster.
Mm-hmm.
It was me. And
You did it.
have I ever been invited on Snark Tank?
Have you not?
No.
Damn.
So, you know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, my friend. Keep your fucking comments within the confines of Scotland in the future, Craig.
Yeah.
Thank you for writing in.
Craig. Well, you guys did have them open at a live show too.
Yeah, we
right?
did. I offer
So you
all my
did
friends
something.
good opportunities, but it's I love those guys. I mean, and I've met them both in person, and actually, have I met Sweeney in person? I've definitely met Derek in person. I drank with him on the beach once in Santa Monica. But they it's not like I'm being invited to places either. Like, why don't you go yell at them?
Yeah, Craig. Why don't you ask Chris why Colin's not on their stuff? All right. I don't even know if Colin would want to be on it. It's just more work.
I'm
for
just
him to
making
do.
fun of things. I don't know. It doesn't matter. we have a short list of people that we would like to get on the show. I can add them.
Yeah,
for sure. I don't know if people would want them together or separately. We would have to figure all that out.
Yeah. Thank you, Craig, for writing in. All right, this is from Ricardo C. Greetings, summoners. I know this was said recently, but after the news of Stellar Blade's 1 million copies sold and being a success, it needs to be re-emphasized that Square Enix needs to sort it out. My favorite game, Sleeping Dogs, underperformed with sales of 1.75 million copies. Yet, unlike Shift Up, Square couldn't see that this could have been the start of a successful franchise, especially in a genre with little competition. Instead, they pursued the MMO route, which led to the death of United Front Games.
I remember. What was that called?
Very
Triad
respectful.
Wars or something like that? That game?
Yeah, I think so.
That was like a Sleeping
I didn't know
Dogs
that was an
people.
MMO.
Yeah, it was.
When
It was
they
like a
said-
totally different game.
When they said MMO route, I was like, Final Fantasy 14? I was like, that was a huge success for them. What do you mean?
Yeah,
But, like,
no,
I
no.
didn't realize that.
Yeah, United Front was great. They also did Mod Nation Racers, right? And Little Big Planet Karting.
I don't know. Yeah, I was gonna ask you. I haven't played Sleeping Dogs, Colin, but
It's
I know
so
people.
good.
Yeah, I know people love it. Obviously,
I reviewed it at IGN. I think I gave it a great score. So
as someone from the outside, to me, it looked like a Yakuza-like game. Is that a fair thing to say?
I wouldn't really know because I don't play Yakuza games. I mean, to me, it was just it was a Grand Theft
Is it an
Auto.
open world game where
Yeah,
you go beat the shit out of people and do side quests? And
yeah, it's like
whatever?
I mean, to me, it was akin to Grand Theft Auto, but yeah, if
Okay.
you know, like a more stylish, better written, deeper,
Okay.
you know, Grand Theft Auto.
Little
What did you think?
competition.
Is that accurate, Micah, for you?
No, I'd say so. And yeah, I would compare it to Yakuza. I liked the story a lot. I loved Sleeping Dogs. My favorite part of it, though, is the NPCs. There's this guy that sells pork buns on the street. And he just has all these funny phrases. Like, he's like, man who never eats pork bun is never a whole man. And like, he just has all these phrases he says. And like, you'll walk by, he's like, you look like you could use a pork bun. Like, he's just always shouting at you. And
What's
I
pork
loved
bun?
it.
I could.
Oh my God. The game has so much heart. I adored it. It was a great little story, very fun. That's one of those games that I'm like, oh, I should go back and play that sometime. Because it's just,
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah,
I hear enough
they
about
fumbled,
it.
they
I
fumbled
have-
that bad. Square fucked that up.
Yeah. Yeah, really.
Yeah. This seems to be a problem with Square Enix a lot of times where I feel like every time a game comes out, they're going to say this about whatever game they have that's big. So, Colin, we've talked about this. Definitely, it seems to be something with managing budgets or whatever. Like, are they spending way too much money on these games? What do you think the problem is?
I think it's about I try to explain this to people all the time because I just don't think they think about it. If you have, I'm just going to reduce the numbers incredibly so people understand what I'm saying. You have $100 and that's the money you can spend. It's not about making money back on the $100. It's about maximizing the amount of money you make on the $100. That's all you have. So you have to make really smart bets. And when games, Sleeping Dogs no doubt made a profit. It didn't, there's no way they lost money on that game. But they looked at it and they said like, well, okay, we spent, I don't know how much they spent on it, $25 million or whatever, or $35 million. And they're like, okay, we could just, and we made $50 million. So we cleared after taxes and EBITDA and all that. Like we had like $7 million left. Like that's nice. But we could spend the $35 million on Final Fantasy 14 expansions and extract this much money out of it. And that's what people don't get. It's what I always try to explain about why Sony doesn't make a lot of games anymore. It's like, yeah, Tokyo Jungle was cool and it sold 500,000 copies. Literally, Sony probably made $4 million or something on that game. They don't care. They don't even.
Right.
And they should say, like, instead of doing 20 of those, let's just combine the amount of money we spent on all of those and make a AAA game. And we'll extract twice the revenue or whatever out of it. So, or twice the budget. So that's what I think is behind shit like Sleeping Dogs. Like they're just trying to be too clever. They're like, oh, well, we can get a sequel and maybe sell 2 million copies and make another $5 million or $10 million in profit, which is just irrelevant to us. Or we can take risks. And that's where I think we've unfortunately ended up. Sleeping Dogs is still owned by Square Enix. As far as I understand, they've not spun that. You know, they've sold a lot of their Western IP. And I don't think that was one of them. So maybe it comes back in the future. I doubt it. The studio is obviously long gone, but I don't know if it's something they want to revisit in the future. But it's a shame. That is a great example of something that should have definitely gotten a sequel. Like obviously gotten a sequel and just didn't. It sold more copies than a lot of games that got sequels. So
yeah, you're right. Like the profit isn't big enough for them to want to keep pursuing it. Sadly, probably.
I think people think that it's like, oh, they must have lost money or whatever. It's like, no, they just didn't make enough. And that's a reasonable thing. Think about like think about it this way. You work 40 hours a week and you make $50 an hour or whatever. And then someone offers you $60 an hour. It's like, well, you're making more money in the same amount of time. This is the exact principle behind why they choose the games that they create, why they didn't go after Sony didn't make Days Gone 2, for instance, or all of the rest. There's all sorts of different reasons about that. And by the way, that shit is weird too. What's going on with that game? Like the old Ben guys complaining publicly about it and stuff. I think Jeff had John Garvin on the show. You know, they don't come off great, actually. And I like those guys a lot. So a lot of beef there.
Very strange.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Very, very strange. This is from Jeffrey Carlson. Hey, Brad, Colin, and Micah. I have it sorted out for the Trails fan base with Daybreak releasing this week. We have to stop telling people they need to start with Sky. Starting with the first game in any arc is okay. Can always go back. We need to encourage more people to play what's currently the best ongoing JRPG story and series out there, not run them off. Best, Jeff. Yeah, Trails fans, man, very passionate.
Mhm.
I have people yelling at me all the time to play Trails games.
I played and beat last year Trails of Cold Steel 1, and I really liked it.
Yeah.
Dustin's right in that it's like budget Persona in some way, but it's different because it is strange and I was talking about this on the Q&A we did on Patreon with the audience. Someone had asked me about Trails and what I thought about it, and I'm like, and it was kind of explaining some things to me about it that I didn't know. And it's a deeply dissonant game in that it's this cute anime style, breezy looking game, but really it's about total crazy political intrigue and backstabbing and totalitarianism and violence and war. It's pretty cool. And I really did like it. I highly recommend. I'm one of those guys, especially with Persona style games, where it's like, I'm going to play with a guide. I want to play with a spoiler-free guide to make sure I don't miss anything. It's very similar to that. Where it's like, well, make sure you do these things before these days are over. It's on that same kind of calendar. But I really, really like it. But I don't, as I understand it, it's like you're supposed to play Trails of Cold Steel 1, then 2, which I bought, and I'd like to play maybe this year. And then I think you veer off and do like these other games. Then you come back for Trails of Cold Steel 3 and 4. It is a little intimidating. And I understand what Jeff's saying, but I don't blame people for saying like, well, it's the same way I feel about Yakuza. It's like, if I'm really going to do this, and I'd like to do that with Yakuza one day, it's like, I'm going to do it the right way. I want to play it in some sort of salient order. I don't want to just jump in and be like, oh, I'm going to fucking play Yakuza Ishin or Yakuza, whatever, like a dragon or whatever. It's like, why would I do that? I don't have any idea what's going on. And that's the way I feel about Trails. So I don't blame people. Falcom is doing a really nice job, but their two series are very impenetrable, in my opinion. East being the other one. So, yeah. Anyway, I can go on and on, but I don't even really know like what the proposed timeline of play is, and I want to do it in that timeline. You know.
Yeah. And whenever I play those games, I'm just going to play in the release order they came out.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. But I don't know if that makes sense because I think I think the problem. It may not from a timeline perspective, but I'll feel very comfortable just knowing that, hey, these are the order the games came out, and these are the order that people first experienced. Right, but what I'm saying is that they're not. They're way we experience them in the West. I think that's the reason why people are so crazy about this stuff. Is that a lot of the games didn't come out here until later.
I see. Okay.
So that's I think a specific reason why people are crazy about this game, because you should maybe look at the Japanese order. What order should I play Falcom Trails series? Epic Games has a post.
Epic Games.
There are currently 10 Trails games translated into English. This is the order they were released in Japan and the order you should play in if you intend on playing the entire Trails series spoiler free. Trails in the Sky, Trails in the Sky SC, Trails in the Sky the Third, Trails from Zero, Trails from Azure, the 4 Trails of Steel games, and then Trails into Reverie. So this is a little old because there's more than that now. So this is from last fall. So so that's a reasonable way to play them, and I think that they're all available in that order in English. But that's the reason, is that I think like a lot of these Trails of Cold Steel games were coming out later, and some of these games were banging in between them because they weren't localized. Some of them are like PSP games that never came out here. It's very intimidating. You know, forgive me for that, but that's the way I feel.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. What do you think, Micah? Trails?
Oh, so I own the one that Colin played for Vita, but the one he played, is better because it has like faster walking and all these things. So I'm like, well, if I'm ever going to play this, it's not going to be the Vita version that I own, because that one, it's just way slower. Just being able to walk faster shaves hours off the game. But watching Colin play it, I don't know, I was mildly interested. Not really. It's like, no, it's not. It's not quite Persona, which I love those games. It did just feel like I'm not sure I'm into this or not. I definitely want to say, though, in regards to the Yakuza games, those are just very clear in what order to play them in. Like, this is confusing. These games are confusing as fuck. The Yakuza games are, 0
They're
through
numbered.
6. It's easy. Exactly. Numbers help. And I think you just play them in the numbered order. But this nonsense, like, and people do get very up in arms about it, because I even mentioned that I had, the one Colin played on Vita, and someone's like, no, don't play that one. It's like, well, it's the one I have. Yeah, I'm not just gonna go buy another one just to, like, not to say that, like, it's not like, oh, it's the third in the trilogy and you shouldn't play it. It's like, no, man, I haven't played any of these. I don't even know if I like it. I don't want to go buy a bunch more. So, no, this is definitely confusing. it's like people trying to figure out what order to watch Star Wars in. That type of shit. It's like I'm not really into it, so I don't know if I'm ever actually going to try these games. Watching Colin play it was sufficient to get my interest, but it didn't appeal to me as much as I thought it would.
Sure. Yeah, I want to play Sky, but I was talking to Maddie about because he loves these games. He thinks there's probably going to be a remake or something coming down the line, so I'll just hold off for now. I got plenty of other RPGs I need to play still, like Lost Odyssey I got to get to. But I mean, I can feel your pain, Trails fans. Like, I'm a Kingdom Hearts fan, and I have people ask me all the time where to start with these games. I'm just like, just play the release order. Just play them in the order they came out. But, yeah, shout out to Trails. I know you guys are a passionate fan base.
Mm-hmm. And I appreciate it because it's fun. I get it,
Yeah.
But understand why it's intimidating. It's a lot. I mean, that could be a person's, that could be like years of a person's gaming time playing those games.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a commitment. Okay, now it is time for Keep It Up. Who's doing good in the game industry? This is the exact opposite of sort out. People were pleased with. Who do we start with first? Colin, let's start with you.
Okay. I want to give a shout out and keep it up to the great guides writers out there, the walkthrough writers. I come from a proud legacy of guides writers. It's how I got my start, as everyone knows. And I feel like guide writing these days is somewhat of a lost art unless you know exactly where to look. And I appreciate that people put their time in, because it's like the official, like the IGN wiki and wikis and all this kind of stuff, the things that people get paid for are actually some of the worst stuff. And the stuff that people make on like achievement forums or PSN profiles, pstrophies.org, Power Picks especially, which is a wonderful website. Those guys get paid, but it's like, these are much better guides. And I appreciate that people understand the kinds of guides that they should make and the kinds of walkthroughs. I'm a big guide user, as people know, but I love spoiler-free guides. I love like flowchart style guides, which is one of the things I helped pioneer at IGN when I would write guides for things like Phoenix Wright or whatever, where I'd be like, it would just be a numbered document. It would just be like, go here, do this, do this, do this, do this. But it wouldn't tell you anything about what was happening in between. It would just keep you going, a flowchart. And I love that kind of stuff. I use that for something similar for Crow Country, which is why this comes up, where it just keeps you moving, but it doesn't tell you what's going to happen or like where the enemies are or how to fight anything. It just makes sure, like, to continue the story, you should do this. Then you should do this. Then you should do this. And I love that kind of stuff. So it's brief, but I just wanted to give a shout out to those people out there that are putting in the hard work and not. It's so funny, man. Some of these, especially when you use them on your phone, some of the sites are just so bad. Like if you use IGN, no offense to them, like, and you use it on your phone, it's just like ads and videos playing and all. It's like, Jesus, it's horrible. And I used to work on and help run IGN guides, and all my stuff was turned into wikis. So my name isn't even on any of these guides anymore. It sucks. And people are editing my work, which also sucks, but that's fine. So yeah, shout out to all the people that put out the work out there. For the games that I've been talking about, I used a guide like that for basically all of them. For Ion Fury, and then I'll talk about Everybody's Gone to the Rapture a little bit. I used a very very non-spoiler or spoiler-free flowchart walkthrough, and for Crow Country, the same thing. And I think people are really helpful out there, and it makes you want to do one or two of those. And my own just pop up with one. It's very similar to when I was in college. I stopped writing at GameFAQs when I started writing at IGN in 2002. And then in 2007, I just wrote a random FAQ and put it on GameFAQs. It's for Super Mario Brothers 3. It's a whistle guide, like how to find the whistles. And I'd like to do something random like that, like just post it on PSN profiles, like a really nice guide.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
Yeah.
Especially like you can get physical or something like that. You can make something like, because I think people still make some physical walkthroughs and stuff like that.
They do. I mean, that's
just on their own.
That's the big thing that I want to get going, that a lot of the audience knows, because I discuss it every so often, is, I own Last Stand and I co-own Lilymo, a studio. And the third company that I'd want to own is a boutique print guide company, because I actually fully believe that there's money to be made there. I just don't have the time or inclination to do it, or really the need to do it. Like we're not hurting, and I don't want to like put any more work on my plate. I think that worries Micah especially. But it's like, I think that if people are interested in limited run games, which they are, and I don't mean the proper noun, just limited run games, like, and limited run games, the proper noun, I guess, too. If they're interested in that kind of stuff, I imagine they're interested in strategy guides. And I totally think that would be a cool idea, not only for classic games and old games, but newer games too. And there are some companies that do it, but in a very limited way. Anyway, shout out to the guide writers out there still doing good work.
Yeah. Shout out. What would be the first game you do if you did a guide?
I'd want to go backwards. So something like, I know if I had licensing options, something like Symphony of the Night or something that would be really like something I envision. Beautiful hand-drawn maps and screenshots and all the information on weapons. And
yeah, that'd be awesome.
I love it. It speaks to the OCD autism in me, to like organize things like that. So
yeah, totally. Yeah. Very nice. Micah, what about you? Who do you think, who do you want to give your keep it up to, I should say? Who are you feeling right now?
It's buzzing around Twitter again recently. So keep it up, Nintendo, with the modest salaries of their executives. Seeing people like up in arms about Miyamoto saying he doesn't make enough money, and it's like, I think he's content with how much money he makes. He seems fine. He could have gone anywhere if he wanted to. People saying like, oh, he makes in a year what Bobby Kotick makes in a day, and it's like, well, I think Nintendo's doing just fine. I think the salaries that they give to their, employees allow them to, try new things without being like, well, if it doesn't make $100 billion, we're not doing it. I totally agree that keeping their salaries on a smaller scale contributes to how well they are run. So keep it up, Nintendo, by not paying everybody $1 billion and then demanding that every game make $10 billion in order to sustain themselves. I don't know. I can just respect what they're doing over there, and their passion for what they do seems genuine. And so keep it up to Nintendo. Keep paying Miyamoto. You know what? Just pay him even less. Cut him down to like $30,000 a year. He'd be like, okay.
What was it? 1.25 million? Wasn't that the salary?
Was it like I think it was like 1.7 most recently. It's around
low. I mean, that is low, but it's but obviously he doesn't care. So
right.
It's like whatever. And they make games like you said, Mike, they're productive. So like they don't want to spend that much money.
Yeah, Micah, I really like this that you brought this up. It reminds me, like, I do hear this about a lot of Japanese companies. I'm sure it's in the West too. I just hear about it more from Japan. Is them definitely nurturing the next generation of game creators, or like passing the baton. And it feels like I hear that a lot from Nintendo. We heard that with Kojima and stuff trying to do that, but it didn't work out so well. So yeah, shout out to those old vets trying to get the new generation in there. In terms of Nintendo, it seems to be paying off in a lot of ways. Like Zelda and like Breath of the Wild was definitely influenced by a lot of the newer the newer people, the younger guys. And it's like Zelda's bigger than it's ever been right now than it's ever been. So yeah,
understand this though, Brad and Micah, is that so $1.7 million? It's a really nice salary, but it is low for him. I mean, someone like him should be making way more than that, but he doesn't care. But imagine what he could make if he was a free agent and like a willing participant. I mean this in no sense of like, not in a dramatic way. He would be a billionaire. Yeah. Because he could literally go to a publisher and be like, I want 5% of the publisher, and I want $20 million a year. And he would be that valuable because he's obviously an insanely clever and interesting game developer that has an infinite number of ideas, not all of them good, but easily, like by far, the greatest game developer of all time. So it's funny that he's so humble and that's great. I think that's part of what makes him tick. But I fantasize like in a very sports way. It's like, wow, if he like hit the market, could you imagine the things people would offer him? And I'm telling you, they would offer little pieces of the company.
They would.
You would become like a billionaire overnight.
He'd just be making live service games like the rest of them. And, it's just one of those things of like, no, like the uniqueness, what we get from this guy is because of this, in my opinion. And I don't know, I feel like it's definitely, the passion is very clear over there of like, you're staying with this company that you adore and that you really want to work for, versus absolutely like, I mean, he could go anywhere and make a way more money. But I'm glad he's staying at Nintendo. I'm glad he's doing hopefully what he loves and not just being held hostage. I don't want that to be the situation. You never know, I guess.
Yeah, that is awesome. Like, who's gonna say no to Miyamoto? It's like, I made Mario and Zelda, bitch. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'll do whatever you say. Essentially, now it's like, who's gonna turn this guy down? No one.
Isn't there a story about how Nintendo stopped letting him ride his bike?
Yeah, because they don't want him to get hurt.
Yeah, that's so funny.
They're like, you're too valuable to be riding your bike.
Yeah, they got him a chauffeur or something.
Yeah, it's so fucking crazy, dude. It's pretty sick. All right, might keep it up. So for a long time, I've been asking and wanting the original Resident Evil trilogy to come out on some sort of modern platform that I could legally buy it. And the Resident Evil trilogy came out. Well, the first game came out, and the other two are coming. Came out on GOG, actually, a PC port of the game. And there's some quality of life stuff built into it, like door skipping and all that. So I'm very happy, at least there's a way for me to buy these original PS1 games, or like the PC ports of these versions of games on modern hardware, where I don't have to get out my fucking PS3 or some shit, or try to get it off PSN or pirate or something like that. It's only on GOG right now because I think they're involved in development of it, which isn't ideal. I wish it was on everything. Like, I wish you can get on PlayStation and Steam and Xbox, all that stuff. Hopefully that'll happen eventually, but I am just very thankful that at least these games are coming out on modern platforms that I can at least pay them on. And they're like $10, dude. $10 all day for when Resident Evil 2 comes out, $10 is like an insane steal for that game.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking ridiculous.
It would be nice if they release those originals on console.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They need to do, if they want to go the next step, I think that's what they got to do. Hopefully Capcom will wisen up and get that shit going. Like, make a collection of those, dude. $30, $25. Sell that thing like crazy. Put trophies on there. Colin's done. I'm done.
Oh yeah, I'd love that, dude. Trophies on. They're putting trophies on all the PS1 classics. So even just releasing the original, like, director's cut of Resident Evil would be sick.
Well, the director's cut didn't have on PSN. Doesn't have trophies.
No, I'm saying if they released that. Because they re-released it as part of the classics catalog. You're right.
Yeah.
But they've been rolling out trophies for games that don't have them.
Yeah.
And so I assume they'll get there, and that would be nice if they released director's cut trophies and ultimately RE2, RE3. You know, I don't know, man. And Code, like PS2 port of Code Veronica. There's like a lot of cool.
They have a port of Code Veronica on PlayStation. You can get on 4.
Oh, can you?
Yeah, it has trophies.
And 0, right, is already out.
0 is out. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like mostly.
Oh, I guess RE1 is out too in remake form, or is it remake?
It's remake form. Yeah.
Yeah, on PSN. That was a long time ago. I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so maybe some of these things are already out there.
Mostly the main trilogy has been unavailable.
But I don't want to go back. Like, the remakes are so good.
I mean, I love, like, with 2 in particular, I don't think 2 remake like necessarily completely overlap or takes over the original. They're very different to me, and I like both of them for very different reasons. It's not like RE1 and RE1 remake where I'm like, well, the remake is just better in every single way, pretty much. So I would like to have the option with all those, and especially 3, Resident Evil 3. Because Resident Evil 3, the original, is very different than the remake. And I prefer the original one more than the remake, definitely. But yeah, keep it up. Getting that Resident Evil out there. Love to see it. All right, this is from Mark. What's up, friends? This is going to be a weird one. Keep it up, Gene, and maybe sort out to Colin, ? For defending the question of where are the games. Gene very saliently described the issue when he noted the timeline of games being so long when someone can go through an entire life events before a sequel comes around. We have a problem. I probably would have been deeply invested in Horizon 3, except it will be over 8 years between the first and the third, and by then I likely won't care. I think most people want something different after waiting 4+ years or lose interest altogether. While I agree there are too many games, Colin knows what people mean when they ask where are the games. So thank you, Gene, for the rant the other week. P.S. You may read this as more antagonistic than it really is. I just appreciate the varied viewpoints on the shows. Now, Colin, we talked about this a little bit earlier with your sorted out.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this?
Well, I'll just say, do people feel that way about, like, movies too? Like, when there were 3 years between Star Wars movies, was that a huge deal? Like, from my perspective, it's not the time that really matters. It's the money that they're spending that matters. And those things are intrinsically linked. But I just feel like I don't care about waiting for games. I care more about the sustainability of making more of them. So they do need to and since those two issues are tied together, they need to figure out how to solve them both. And solving one will help solve the other inherently. If you can be more or quicker on the draw to sequelize something, reuse assets, and do all the rest of the things that people bust balls for, right? And I'm not saying Mark does this, but it's like, oh my God, Aloy's animation when she jumps is the same. It's like, well, so not only do you want them to spend $200 million on the Horizon sequel, you also want them to make a new jumping animation and a new like swinging animation for her and all these kinds of things. They're already trying to integrate these things into what's going on. And I think, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, I like sequels. I don't want too many sequels. I like trilogies. I like things that are contained in 3 games. I think that's really good, or 3 movies, 3 books, 3 seasons of a TV show, whatever the case might be. This is them extracting value and doing things quicker. The reality is that if Horizon 2 came out in 2022, and you'll get Horizon 3 in probably 2026. If they went from Horizon 2 to Killzone remake or something, or a remake, like, a reimagining of Killzone, you wouldn't get that until like 2028.
Right.
So in some sense, they are narrowing the band a little bit, but I think you're going to start. This is why I don't know if you saw this about Astrobot. 60 people, 3 years. It's like very interesting. That's a cheap game, a very cheap game by Sony standards. Almost nothing compared to a fraction of what The Last of Us Part 3 is going to cost. Maybe you'll see more of that, but it's going to take time for that to come to pass. Yeah. So I'm not so worried about the time in between games. Rest up. Things take time. I don't want them to rush anything. I want them to rush just by virtue of making things cheaper. So I'm not worried about this. And I'm more worried about the money component than anything else, and the need to feel like you need to spend that much. But remember, Sony's advantage specifically is their quality, and that costs money. So they put themselves in that situation. But
I don't know why people complain about reusing animations and shit like that. It's like no one really gives a fuck about that. No one really cares. No one cares about how if your character's walking along the wall and they're like holding their hand out. No one gives a shit about that. And I'll give you a prime example why is from any From Software game. They use so many animations, like their mouths barely move when they talk. No one gives a fuck about that stuff. It doesn't matter. No, it doesn't fucking matter.
Sony will realize that ultimately these games matter in a way. There's going to be expectations about a God of War game, about a Last of Us game, about a Horizon game when Uncharted comes back, which is
but if you do something new, you can change it up.
That's exactly right.
But if you're going to do Last of Us 3 and the animations are like really subpar, or like not blowing me away, I guess in some way, Colin, I'll be kind of surprised. Like it won't be a big deal to me, but it will be semi strange. But going forward, like, don't even worry.
They're not going to do that though. That's the whole thing. Is like the thing is The Last of Us Part 3 will probably be the most expensive game they're going to make, and it will probably be the most insane game that they make, and you'll see it. If you play The Last of Us Part 2 and you don't see the $200 million on the screen, you're blind.
You see it, yeah.
But the question is whether everything needs that. And obviously the answer is no. So
no.
But they've put themselves in this, and they've wedged themselves in this position. And it's a little bit of a trap for them now. But I think Astrobot and some other things are going to help them get out of it. And I think, by the way, Helldivers took a long time, but it's a smaller team. I don't look at Concord and think that game is very expensive to make. So I think that they're maybe, and obviously they're not charging very much for it either. So clearly it wasn't that expensive to make. So I feel like maybe we're going to figure that out over time.
I don't think a game like that you could charge more than that, though. Anyways, I think you cannot charge full price for that game.
Oh, definitely not. It seems though that I imagine Fair Games is going to be like this too, where they're positioning it as like, this is a $40 upfront game. You really won't have to spend any more money. And I think that that's a compelling thing, because I think they're just trying to grind your time.
Yeah.
If you're not somewhere else, that's almost a win in and of itself.
That's true.
Although it infringes on you buying content and doing other games, which they would make latent money on. So it is a little bit of a self-defeating prophecy, but we'll see how that all plays out. That's another topic.
Micah, anything you would want to add to this? Do you think about the time it takes to get some games? How are you feeling about all of it?
Yeah, I think it's just 2 separate issues that, like, on one front, when people say there's nothing to play, that's where it's like, no, that's just bogus. There's plenty of things to play. If you're waiting for a specific game and it's taking too long in production, that's a completely separate issue of there's nothing to play right now. Maybe your taste in games is narrow, and that's fine. But to say there's nothing to play, like, that's where it's like, that's just false. I agree. As a huge Gears fan, for example, who's been waiting for Gears 6 and it's still not coming. And I completely agree. It's like, we're taking way too long to make these. Like, things like that are just like, yeah, man, this is absurd. I do, like, when it comes to Horizon, for example, it's like, yeah, these games are pretty spaced out. They're quality games. I didn't love the sequel. I loved the first game, but I don't I don't think it's a huge problem that it's 8 years between 1 and 3, let's say. Like, that's fine
No,
to
that
me,
seems fine.
honestly. Like, it's more so, it's like if you're only playing first party games and you have, right now, you're saying you have nothing to play. It's like, that kind of just seems like a you problem. You
Sure.
know, like, I don't know. It's just, there's plenty to play. There's too much to play. I have a mountain of games to play right now. I can't sympathize with it. I can sympathize with the fact that they made Aloy look like Rocky Dennis. I don't like that either. But you know, you move past that, and I think they're on a great schedule.
What is that about, dude? I don't understand. Why do that? Whatever. Mark, thank you for writing in, dude. Okay, this is from SL the FMA. Hey, Summoners, I have a keep it up for developers that allow you to change the platform button icons in the Steam version of games. I've been recently replaying Monster Hunter Rise on Steam, and it's always appreciated to be able to change the style of button icons. Growing up as a Nintendo kid and later being primarily on PlayStation, the Xbox layout that's mostly seen on Steam can still throw me off sometimes in gameplay. Thankfully, certain games can all help alleviate this, albeit minor nuisance. Have a great rest of your days. This is something I can relate to as someone who plays on PC quite a bit. I really like when Elden Ring's a great example. I play with my DualSense, plug it in, it's the Xbox button layout. I'm like, shit. Luckily, I know the buttons easily, but it is kind of annoying nowadays. But really what pisses me off is how Xbox came in and did the same Nintendo buttons, just fucking reversed all the buttons. So I'm like, God damn it, guys. Whenever I play like a Nintendo game or something like that, I have to think about the Y and the X button and the A, B, because they just fucking flipped them all around. Why couldn't you have come up with something different like the shapes, like PlayStation did or something? Fucking Bill. Come on, man. So ridiculous.
But what shapes were left? Think about what shapes were left.
I don't know. You could have done anything.
What's he going to have? A bean?
He's fucking Bill Gates, all right? He could have figured something out. Guy's like a billionaire.
An asterisk. A bean,
yes,
a pencil,
something, yeah.
A pie.
Like a picture of keys or something. I don't fucking know. Something. Some baby apple. Shit or just colors. I don't know, dude. God damn. All right, this is from Kazdan Risk. Hey, some buckets. I want to give a keep it up to the PlayStation Portal. I've gotten like so numb to all this stuff.
Yeah,
it has been my the LSM community is fucking out of control, dude.
Yeah, they really are. That's my fault.
No, not always. A lot of it is Snark Tank people. I read their fucking names.
Oh yeah, their shit's really deranged too.
Their shit is like like I can always tell by their names what their fan base. It has been my Destiny 2 machine this month, and as a dad of 2 kiddos, it's awesome to seek some game time in. Colin, do you think Sony will always have a portal device for PlayStation 6, 7, and beyond? Take care.
Yeah, Well, I don't think it'll be a portal. I think that portal is like is a vision of things to come.
Yeah,
it appears fairly obvious, based especially on a lot of leaks coming out of Xbox, and then what's going on with Portal, and of course Nintendo's plans with Switch 2. That there's a new emphasis on handheld games and Steam Deck, of course. So I think Portal is an interstitial Android machine that they just cobble together to see what happens. It's sold very well, as far as I understand. Yes. I talked to someone behind the scenes and I won't share them, but that shared some numbers with me, and I'm like, that's interesting. It's everything they can make, and they sell pretty quickly. So I think that by the time we get to PlayStation 6, I would assume later, even in PlayStation 5's life cycle, you're going to get a more robust handheld. But who the hell knows, really?
Yeah, I agree. Man, I thought about buying the Portal several times, but it's just like, I don't want to spend $200 on that.
It's really good, dude.
It's very nice. Like, I think the DualSense functionality is awesome. But it's just like, I don't play in portable mode that much in games anyways. Like my Switch, I never play in portable mode, so I can't see myself using it. But I do think it's a cool idea, and I look forward to seeing what the next iteration of that will be.
You got to get some use case for it. Otherwise, it's not something you should invest in. But I have a real significant use case for it. And a lot of people like me do, people that want to multitask, do other things. And it's cool that what I appreciate about what's clear about the Portal is that it was designed to do more than what it's doing, and that they're slowly unraveling that. And I don't mean that it's going to be like its own standalone machine. What I mean is that like turning on via firmware, the ability to use like public Wi-Fi and stuff, like they always knew that these things were capable of doing that, but they made it narrower to make sure it worked. And it seems overwhelmingly positive. The only people I hear complaining about it are people that are trying to use Wi-Fi without a plugged-in console, and it's just not going to work. Like, you have to just understand it's not going to work. But if you have a tethered console, you're going to be in good shape.
Yeah. I agree. Well, yeah, I'm glad people are really enjoying it. I could see it definitely being clutch in many circumstances. Like for you guys, example, or Colin, you say, watching football or some shit.
Yeah. It was with me every Sunday, dude. I would play the shit out of it.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. That's an option. All right, Colin, let's talk about everyone's gone to the Rapture.
You just wrote it in the chat. Did you mean to do that?
No, I meant to put in the timestamp things for Dustin.
Yeah, I assume that's why I told you, so you didn't.
Yeah, I immediately realized as soon as I saw it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, everybody's gone to the Rapture. So this game came out. It's a PlayStation 4 exclusive from the Chinese Room, second party game. Came out in 2015. And at the time it came out, I played it and I remember it. And what I was reflecting on when I went back to play it more recently in the last couple of weeks was I was like, wow, I really remember this game. But there's not much to remember. But what was weird about it was I was like, yeah, I played it, but I know I never beat it. And then I went and looked on PSN profiles. I'm like, how many trophies did I get? And I couldn't find it. And I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't pop any trophies in this game. That's interesting. So I went in to play it and I was inspired specifically to play it because I purchased and downloaded Still Wakes the Deep, which just came out.
Oh yeah, Cog was hyping that up.
And that's their newest game. And I was like, you know me, I like my context, right?
Yes.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to play that. I bought it immediately and I downloaded it. It was $35, I think. And it looks great. And I'm like, you know what? Before I play this, I'm just going to go back and play Everybody's Gone to the Rapture and just kind of get imbibe a little bit of what they're doing over there, because they made that game a little Orpheus in 2020, which is more of like a platformer. And they're not really known for that. So that game was good, but I had no interest in playing that. So I really have no experience with them. Dear Esther, I'm familiar with too. And I'll talk about that in a minute because they're kind of connected to each other. But Everybody's Gone to the Rapture is a walking simulator. And these games are not for everyone, but I actually happen to be a fan of walking simulators as long as they're good. I've said many times, highly recommend Gone Home. I think that game's exceptional. If you go in blind, the first time you play it, it's a very unique and interesting game. Totally changes its tenor, what it's about. I love that game so much. And I really like their follow-up, Tacoma, as well. And their new game just came out, Open Roads or whatever, or is about to come out, but I have not played it yet. And so I like those games. I wasn't crazy about Firewatch. I beat it, but I wasn't crazy about it. I never beat The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, which is the game from the astronauts. They still haven't put out the next game that they're working on, which is that witch shooter game, which looks really fucking sick.
Witchfire. Yeah, that game looks awesome.
Yeah. That game looks dope as hell. It looks amazing. It's totally different than what they did previous. So these games come and go, and I like them. What's another one? What's that weird Bloober Team one that everyone likes?
Oh, Layers of Fear.
The Layer of Fear. So yeah, I've played these games, and anyway, I know they're not for everyone. And so go into that knowing that this game is not necessarily going to be for you. A really important caveat to this game, though, is that when it came out, and I remember this really well, is that you couldn't move fast in the game. All you could do is use the X button to interact with certain things and then use the sticks to move around. It's obviously a first-person 3D game, but you moved slowly, and it really annoyed people. And I get why they do that, because you can't just run through the game. It ruins everything, like the cadence of the game. It's an experience. But so I played it like that, and I remember being a little annoyed by that. And they put in the ability to hold the R2 button down, and it kind of gives you momentum. You don't really move very fast, but you move a little faster, and it really helps. So that's something, if you were turned off, almost 10 years ago from it, you might be interested in that now, 9 years ago. But the game takes place in the 80s, and it's about this town in England with a radio, what I think is like a radio telescope observatory in it, something like that. And everyone's disappeared, gone to the Rapture. And you're kind of going through this empty town trying to figure out what happened. And I really dig this game. I platinumed it. And so, I beat it straight up the first time, and then you can use a guide to kind of figure out what you missed and all the rest. The second time, there's some trophies you have to get for backtracking and all sorts of things. There's a trophy that you have to get for like not activating certain things and whatever. So you're going through this. You don't see anyone. There's no other models in the game. There are some like bugs and birds and shit, but there are no. Actually, humans. There are. Well, I don't want to spoil it. But it's basically you alone, and it's cerebral and haunting. It's all daylight, like just bright middle of the day, sunny skies. but no one's around. And you're going through this village and going into their houses and into their businesses and reading things. And you're discovering kind of echoes of conversations that happen, and you listen to them. And you discover more and more about the story. And I won't spoil it, but it's a pretty deep sci-fi kind of spiritual horror story in some sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very quick. You can, first of all, you can beat the game in minutes. It's not like Gone Home can be beaten, as I remember, in 90 seconds because there's a trophy for it. But this, I think you can beat it in like 10 minutes, maybe. Wow. What would take you is like just keep walking all the way across the map. But basically you start at the observatory, you end up in like a little village, then you end up in like kind of a more rural wooded area, then you end up on a farm, and it all circles back. What's cool is that the game's totally interconnected. And you find radios and you find journals, and there's a trophy for turning on all the microwaves in the game. There's like really funny shit like that, but that's obviously not part of the gameplay. But it's a really, really, I don't want to say fun. I always talk about how I don't always play games for fun. And this is one of those things where it's like, I'm not trying to like, I'm fucking about to get my rocks off shooting shit, like I like just experiences and story. And this is what the game is. And there's a really special place for games like this. And what I realized was I was like, yeah, I really like this game. And then I realized, so Dear Esther, I must have got it on PS Plus years ago. So I had it. And Dear Esther is their original game from 2012. It was a Half-Life mod.
Yeah.
And they like got funding and made it. And it's like they made them millionaires. Everyone loved that game when it came out. And that was the same year Gone Home came out, I think. And kind of began. And Dear Esther, I think, is considered the true progenitor of the walking simulator. Like Gone Home comes later, a little later. And so I went back and played Dear Esther, and there's no platinum in that, but I 100% of the trophies there. And one of the cool things in the game, I didn't listen to them all the way through because I was just running around collecting them, but there's like a whole commentary track over the game, which is cool. And you learn so much about it and how thoughtful these people are and how interesting the ideas they have are and how much work goes into all the little things that make the game shine. And it bums me out that people kind of dismiss these kinds of games because I think they have deep value. Now, Still Wakes the Deep seems to me to be, I watched a video, like a trailer of it, and it seems to be much higher budget and more immersive even.
Yeah, more like actual hiding from what I understand.
Right. Like it's important to note that in Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, you can't die and you can't fail. In Dear Esther, you actually can die in many ways, but mostly by falling or drowning, but you just get revived. Like it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. So there's no fail state in those games. I don't know if Still Wakes the Deep has a fail state. One of the things I do know about it is that to get one of the trophies in the game, you have to play the entire thing in Gaelic. Which is pretty cool, I think, because it takes place in the North Sea. Mm-hmm. So it makes some sense there. And it takes place in the 70s, I think. So they like their period pieces. And I also like my period pieces. So that's great. And Dear Esther is a period piece too, in some sense. So it was cool to kind of imbibe the Chinese room over the last week or so. It doesn't take much effort to do. You can play Dear Esther. Dear Esther, you can beat in under an hour, even if you're playing it normally. And Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. If you're playing it normally, it would take you no more than 5 hours, I would say. But I think that's probably even pushing it. If you were really thoughtful,
right,
you would be able to. And the reality is you're not going to find very much. Like the reality is that it's kind of disappointing, but Everybody's Gone to the Rapture has a lot to find. But the world is so big and there are so many things in it that actually you often don't find anything where you think you would. When you're just like, oh, I'm going to go behind this house into this, and there's like a huge backyard and there's all these things there. And then there's like a shed and you go into the shed and there's nothing there. It's like, oh, that's surprising. Because you would think. It's like seeing a different colored wall in a Zelda game or a cracked wall.
Yeah.
But not so. So yeah, Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. I recommend it if people missed it the first time around. It was on PS Plus. I looked it up in 2016. So some of you might have claimed it at that time and might already own it, but I can't imagine I don't even know. Let me look. It's probably like $20. I think it was more than that when it came out. I think it was 40, maybe not 40, 24, 30. Let's see. Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. Oh, on Steam, it's $6.49 right now.
And there's probably a Steam sale for it, I assume.
And it's $20 on PSN. It is, right now it's $6.59 on Steam. So I don't, if you're into that.
The summer sale's going on.
Oh yeah, that's probably what it is. Yeah. 67% savings on it. So
cool.
Yeah, highly recommended. It does have somewhat mixed reviews from people, but I just think it's a matter of what you're into.
Yeah.
And so two other things. I wanted to note, this game has superb voice acting. The writing is really good, but I really love the voice acting, and it's really reliant on the voice acting. Dear Esther is heavily reliant on its voice acting. This game, I would argue, is even more reliant on it because the world is so much bigger, and the characters really come alive. You never see them. You only see like ethereal sort of ghost-like versions of them, but you never see any detail about them, what they look like, who they are really, just what they sound like. And I think it's really, really, really well done. And
I personally love shit like that, Colin. Like not having a face to the voice often is very interesting to me. Specifically like from software games. Like a lot of people you talk to just have a fucking helmet on, you never see them. Or in Armored Core 6, you like never see a human ever. You just see mechs, that's it. So I love that kind of shit, Colin. That sounds very fascinating.
Yeah, it's cool. I recommend it. I mean, again, some people are going to look at this and be like, this game fucking sucks.
Yeah,
but I think if you're like more into art games and you're more, I don't want to say open-minded. It's just like, if you're eclectic, there aren't enough of these to be a walking simulator fan. You know, like there's not enough of these kinds of games. They're too short. And I mean, there were a lot of copycats in the last few years that no one's ever heard of. But as far as like the must-play walking sims, I would imagine there are fewer than 10.
Sure.
And so it's something you can experience. Like if you really dedicated like a week of your life to it, you could probably see all of them that matter. Even the ones that I don't really care for, like Firewatch, that a lot of people love. That game's like 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
There is something really cool about it. I don't get what people don't understand about why it's cool too. Because it's like playing a movie. Yeah. And it's not like Until Dawn where you're making choices. There's only really one way to go. You're just kind of, it's as if you could say like, I'm in the movie and I'm pausing it. And now I'm going to look around. Yeah. And now I go back to the story. I hit play and now we're moving along. Then I pause it again. That's very attractive to me. Yeah.
Yeah. So. I think it's cool. I'm down. Like, I'm not going to play all of them, but I think every now and then I'd be down for one. Like, I don't know if these would, I guess these would be counted as walking simulator. Like, I loved Unfinished Swan. Even though like you're like
Unfinished Swan's a walking sim
and stuff.
And Edith Finch's one too.
Yeah, I love What Remains of Edith Finch. I love that game.
Stanley Parable. That's more of like it's more of like a puzzle adventure game, but it is.
I do need to play it.
So yeah, I don't know. Whatever.
I mean, this sounds like interesting to me because the subject matter is so fascinating. Like the actual rapture happening and the people going away or whatever. It's like, and you being left here, it sounds very interesting to me. Piecing together clues what's going on, perhaps. Like, yeah, I've heard this game's great, so I am curious about it. I definitely want to check it out.
It doesn't require much of the player. Like it's totally nonsensically easy and take it at your own pace, and it's just not going to dominate your life. Like I can imagine you getting home from dinner on a Saturday and literally beating it that night. Like if you just started and you could just sit there for 4 hours and play it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think that's cool. I love stuff like that every now and then. Micah, how do you feel about this game, or are you interested in walking simulators at all?
Yeah, so I watched Colin play through this, and I did, there was a part that I missed, so I did go online and look up just a full explanation of the game, just so I could fill in the gap of like what I missed when I was playing something else. I don't love walking simulators. I really liked Firewatch. I adored What Remains of Edith Finch. But in general, I'm not super into it. I think the stories are very high quality. Like Everyone's Gone to Rapture has a really cool story. The voice acting is excellent, but it's not what I want to play. If I want to experience a story and not do anything, then I would rather read a book or watch a movie. Like for me, gaming is the player influencing the story, the world in some way. It's my difference between visual novels, for example. I only play visual novels where there's player choice, and I read ahead of time to make sure that there's a lot of player choice. I don't like what's called kinetic novels, which is just a book. It's just a book in your Vita and you're just reading a book. I don't like those at all. I want to make choices. I want the endings to be different depending on the choices I made. That's my type of experience with these. So I think walking sims are cool. There are some that I did enjoy, but I'm not in Colin's mode of wanting to play a bunch of them. I do it's like if I want to play a game, I want to, it doesn't have to be like a super high action game, but I just want to be making choices. I want to be making decisions. I want to be doing something versus like, I mean, I read constantly. I started Misery 2 days ago and I'm almost done with it. It's fantastic. I love to read. I love just engaging with stories like that. But when I pick up a game controller, I'm just not in that mode. And it's just not, it doesn't click with me the same way. And it's very dependent on theme. Like the theme of Firewatch really caught my attention. The theme of Edith Finch really caught my attention. So it's more so that if I'm going to experience one of these, it just has to be the exact right story for me versus the format doesn't hook me near as much as like the story does.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you in the same boat, Micah. If like the subject matter seems interesting or the setting or something like that, I'm more of a fan of that than necessarily the genre, I guess.
Yeah, because and on COG talking about Still Wakes the Deep and that having a bit more of player, involvement, I should say, of like, yeah, you're actively hiding from things. You're moving around more with more purpose. Purpose is kind of what it comes down to of like in that game, even if it's very linear, it's like, but you're going from beat to beat with a motivation versus, everyone's gone to the Rapture being very relaxing. It's a really cool space to be in. And I think that's very valuable. I think it's cool to have a game that's kind of unplugged and you're just walking around and experiencing it. That's excellent if you want some wind down time. It's just not what I envision when I pick up a controller to play something. Or if I am in a mode of like really wanting a cool story, it's a visual novel where I get to make some choices and feel like I'm involved in some way and not just like so passive in it.
All right.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Let me just cut in here real quick before you go to the listener inquiries, just to wrap something up.
Yeah.
Is 2 postscripts that I thought people might be interested in. The first is this game was made under some duress, and I don't know if people remember that there was some beef with Sony and this team, and it was relayed through Jessica Curry, who is one of the owners of the studio. She's the composer. Do you remember this at all by chance?
I remember
like,
some
she
drama
said
being
that
surrounded
she
it.
didn't name them, but she was like, our relationship. She's like, I am completely like, this relationship with this publisher has destroyed me, basically, in some sense.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder like what happened there. We don't really know any more than that, but obviously they're never going to work together again. So that's interesting. And then the second thing is this game is filtering people in a major way. It's a short game and only 1 in 7 people that play it beat it. So
do you think that's because it was on Plus and it's just like,
yeah, I think that
people don't know what it is. When they get into it, they're like, oh, I don't like this.
I think that accounts for part of it, but it's not all of it. I think that, and actually, you know what would be interesting if you can give me a second is everybody's gone to the Rapture Steam achievements.
I was going to
say actually
be
better
Steam
to look at.
Yeah.
But in some sense, because actually this was one of those rare games that was allowed to come to PC that Sony published back in the day. I don't know if I know how to even look at this right now, but I just closed the window. But I was trying to close the window next to it. But 1 in 7 people. Yeah, I think you can maybe half of that accounts for PlayStation Plus 8 years ago, but I think a lot of it is people just not being into it. And it's I don't want to put it out there like it's a beloved game. It's not. It's a very divisive game that has like a very divisive score. So go in with eyes wide open. So those are the 2 things I wanted to say was the low beat rate and why I think that's interesting.
Yeah. Divisive games are always interesting to check out, though. I always love seeing like a game like that that's mixed. Some people love it, some people hate it. Because you're usually in for something interesting. Let's see. Matt Vigo wrote in, "Hey Summoners, since Colin is playing Everyone's Gone to the Rapture, I'm curious what y'all think of the term walking simulator. I personally don't like it. I think it comes from a derogatory place and diminishes the immersion and impact this genre can provide. I wish we had a better name for genres in general, but this one especially bugs me. What do y'all think?" Well, Colin, they're speaking to the choir right here with you, wanting things more clear-cut in their genre layout, so I'm sure that's pleasing. The term walking simulator, Colin, definitely, in my opinion, was a derogatory term when it first started getting thrown around in the early days. But now it's just kind of been accepted as the term, and it doesn't seem to have that derogative connotation to it tied anymore. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. It's funny, actually, in the Dear Esther commentary, they talk about that. One of the things that they talk about is like their game was the first one to ever be called a walking simulator and how deeply offended they were by it and how it really bummed them out. And then they slowly realized that it can be recaptured and kind of reimagined as a neutral term. And
yeah,
I do think that that's where we've ultimately ended up. But there's no doubt that it began as a derogatory term, that it's still wielded in some way as a derogatory term.
Yeah.
But it kind of rings hollow even when you just compare it to actual simulation games today, of which there's a simulator for everything. So
Yes.
Having a
That's
real
true.
walking simulator is not that much further away from what we already have, like supermarket shopping simulators. Obviously, like the big ones like farming simulators, truck driving simulators. It's like, okay, so walking. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
I'm running a fucking car garage in this simulator. What is that? What is like really the difference?
Yeah.
And I think
Totally.
it's something that's uniquely video games. And by the way, this game would shine in VR.
Oh, yeah. These kind of games do shine in VR. Big time. All right. This is from Owen. You don't see Everybody's Gone to the Rapture pop up very often. It is a game close to my heart as my wife and I played it together when we were dating, and we loved our time with it. We actually modeled one of our engagement photos off of the logo for the game. So with that said, I'm curious, what drew you to this game to begin with?
Well, to begin with, it was Sony publishing it and then giving me a code for it. So, back in 2015, I don't remember how I felt.
But I guess revisiting it, Colin, what drew you to revisit it?
Yeah, I'm interested when they even announced it, because I don't remember. I might have still been at IGN when they announced it. I think I like cerebral games. Not all of them. Cerebral games that are difficult are anti-cerebral in my opinion. I think of games like The Witness, where I'm like, I'm not even beginning to bother with this game. I remember seeing that game being, nope. Yeah, I just know my own limitations well enough. But I just like different sorts of games. I often try things that Sony publishes as long as it's within my wheelhouse. I sometimes learn fairly quickly what does and doesn't work for me. Like I did with Rise of the Ronin, where I quickly learned, I was like, no, I'm not into this. Let's see. Everybody's Gone to the Rapture announced for PS4, August 2023. Or I'm sorry, 2013. That was at Gamescom. So I was at that Gamescom. I don't remember that at all. Did I ever write about it? Yeah, I don't know. Oh, E3 2014. PS4's Everybody's Gone to the Rapture reemerges in presses by Colin Moriarty. I don't remember this at all, but apparently I previewed it sometime in 2014. So I don't know exactly what initially brought me to it, but what brought me back to it again was just the context of the new game. So that is and now I have full context. They did an Amnesia game. I know that's a larger series.
Machine for Pigs, yeah.
Right. I don't know anything about that series, to be perfectly honest with you. I know it's on console, but I know it's very PC centric. I know it's a horror series. I know there's a lot of entries in it, but and different kinds of games. What's the studio that does it? It starts with an F. Can't remember.
Oh, I don't remember what they are
something
called. Yeah.
So yeah, that's what drew me to it, and I'm glad to hopefully, even if people don't go out and play it, at least familiarize yourself with it and see if it's for you, and open your mind to that kind of game.
Yeah. Fractional Games.
Fractional. I knew it was an F.
Yeah, they had the bunker that came out like last year. I think it takes place in a World War I bunker, actually, Colin. Might be interesting setting for you.
Cool. Yeah. I think the whole series takes place in World War I, right? Amnesia?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't really played a lot of the Amnesia games, so I missed the boat on a lot of these. Definitely a hole I would like to fill someday in my gaming knowledge. Because the first one is like a legendary horror game, especially on PC. All right, Colin, let's continue with you. Crow Country. I played this when it came out and finished it. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, I liked it. So this was recommended to me by my friend Mike Patelli. He's an old school kind of gamer, and he's like, you really got to check this game out. Kind of like pre-rendered style.
Very Final Fantasy VII looking.
Right, it looks like Final Fantasy VII. It's like Resident Evil Resident Evil 1 meets Final Fantasy VII. And yeah, so it came out back in May. I downloaded it and played it, and it comes from SFB Games, and I must admit, I was like, I don't even know who the fuck that is. And I went and looked them up, and I was like, oh, so they did that game Snipper Clips.
Dude, I love Snipper Clips. That game is awesome.
And I was reading a little bit about them. They're interesting. They're two brothers. Reminds me a little bit of Dagan and I. One's like the artist, one's the tech guy. So not like Dagan and I. Dagan would be the artist, and I would be the irrelevant person. Just like I am in Lily Mo. And they've been working together, and I guess they made Flash games for a long time, and then they finally got picked up. And Snipper Clips, I guess, was their original like big game. And a pretty big get for them. Yeah. Actually, I'm sure they made a lot of money on that game.
Switch launch game, dude.
Yep, exactly. And then Tangle Tower, which was a game that came out in 2019. It was an Apple Arcade game. It came to console later. I never played that game, so I have no idea what it is. But so I'm not familiar with them. So I went in and played this game, bought it on my friend's recommendation, and I liked it. I don't think it's great by any stretch of the imagination. I like what it is. I think it's going to drive people insane. if they don't come from that era or don't know how it plays, like how games play, because it's not that modern. There is a way to modernize the controls somewhat, get them off the face buttons and onto the triggers, but that's about as much as it lets you do. It's very cumbersome. The aim in the game, I don't think you can move while you aim any of the weapons, which is very old school.
Yeah, I can't recall.
So for people that are unfamiliar, I think it's also $20, which I think is a very appropriate price. Maybe even a little cheap. I can see you getting away with charging $30 for this game, maybe. Certainly $25. So I appreciated the price, and I think it was $19.99. I could be wrong on that. And so it takes place in 1990, and it's a survival horror game about a police officer, a female police officer that goes into this amusement park called Crow Country to investigate something. And the story actually really turns on its head and becomes pretty interesting as the game goes on. I also find it a little bit, I don't know, amorphous in some way. I think that the part of the interest in the game is not even the story, but the atmosphere of being in the game. So obviously you want to pay attention to the story, but I don't think it all relies on the story. Much like a lot of good survival horror. You have a certain set of weapons you can use: pistol, shotgun, flamethrower, and magnum pistol. And there are some weapons when you beat it, so you get rankings at the end of the game, B, A, or S, and then you unlock new weapons based on what you get, and you can use those in the new playthrough. So I actually beat the game twice. I beat the game and got an A, and then I beat the game and got an S and got the platinum trophy or whatever in that. And so this is the antithesis of Everybody's Gone to the Rapture in some sense, where a lot of people are beating this game. So while people are getting filtered out of a game like Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. And by the way, I looked up Everybody's Gone to the Rapture on Steam, and it was at 28% completion. So what would that be? 14 points higher. So about twice as high. This game's completion rate is 49.8% on PlayStation.
Wow, that's really high.
Yeah, it's incredibly high. I couldn't believe that. And I'm like, wow, people really dig this game, really, really like it. Now, it's not very long. The second time I beat it, I used a video speed guide to just get through because I wanted to get an S rank. You get an S rank by, it doesn't matter how many times you save or how long it takes you. It's about how much damage you take and how much you heal yourself. And if you find all the secrets. So this guide kind of just was like ping-ponging around the map, doing everything in a really appropriate way to get the S rank. So I used that second time. But the first time through, I was playing blind for a while. And then I started running into some trouble because the one thing worth noting is it's very puzzle oriented. And
yes.
I'm not good at puzzles. I don't care about them. They annoy me. I'm sure all the answers are in the environment, but I don't care. And this is kind of where my power picks inspiration came from earlier. I used a really great guide for Everybody's Gone to the Rapture to find some things, and that was awesome. And I actually reached out to the author to compliment them on it. And then on powerpicks.com, I found a walkthrough for Crow Country, and it was what I was talking about, a flow chart where it's like, go here, then do this, then do this, then do this. But just the interstitial of where you're going to encounter and what's going to happen and who you're going to meet and who's going to say what and all that was a mystery. And at some point I embraced that because I'm like, I'm never going to beat this game if I don't just put my shoulder into this, because I'm just not clever enough to solve these puzzles. And I felt a little bit better because I asked my friend, who's not really into using guides, but he'll use them if he needs to. And I asked him, like, you really beat this game without a guide? Like, it seems very obtuse in some ways. And he's like, no, I consulted a guide when I needed help. So I was like, oh, okay. So I didn't feel so bad about that, because there's just some obscure shit. Like, again, you could put 2 and 2 together, but I'm not about to spend 25 hours with Crow Country.
Colin, I beat this game without a guide. And do you remember the train puzzle?
Yeah.
I could not fucking wrap my head around that puzzle. I still don't understand how that puzzle worked.
So you figured it all out by yourself.
I had to get help. I streamed it and I got help from my chat on that puzzle. I just couldn't fucking figure it out, dude. I just couldn't do it. I'm like, what the fuck? And
right, but the rest of the game you raw dogged.
Yeah. But I've played many survival horror games, so I usually know what I'm getting into, and I'm used to puzzles like that. But some games do them better than others. Like Tormented Souls is an example of a game I don't think has really great puzzles. Cool survival horror game though. I'd recommend that. Have you played that, Colin?
No.
Okay, maybe fixed camera survival horror game.
Yeah,
came out a couple years ago.
I'll write it down.
High 7s, I would say. It's a good game, but the sequel's coming out. Worth checking out.
Cool. Yeah, I'll write this down because I liked it. I wasn't crazy about it.
Yeah, I don't think it's
nostalgia
amazing
projects though. So,
but yeah, I think it's cool. Really cool environment, dude. The amusement park I think is actually really awesome. Go through like all the different little lands and stuff like that. And there's like the magic fairy, everything part like that. It's just a cool little, I like the environment a lot, I think. And I did actually kind of like the story a lot, especially the ending. What a cool direction I enjoyed.
One thing I appreciate about it is because it's a little more obtuse. Like I consider it more obtuse than any Resident Evil game.
Yeah.
In my opinion. So even the original ones, like those games are short and can be beaten fairly easily. The puzzles are not crazy.
Yeah.
I don't get frustrated that easily if something's like obvious enough. But it's just one thing that I think the old survival horror in the 90s did that I actually appreciated. I was always a big fan of ink ribbons in the Resident Evil games. I'm like, this is cool because the game challenges you enough. I've talked about this with Resident Evil 0 specifically, where it's like you want to do as well as you can and just go back to old saves over and over again until you get through situations where you feel like, okay, I have the maximum amount of health, I have the maximum amount of ammo. Then you use an ink ribbon to save. For people that don't know, ink ribbons were used in the original Resident Evil games at typewriters. You could only save if you had an ink ribbon, so you couldn't just save endlessly. And this made the game hard. And a lot of people felt this was arbitrary and artificial, but I was like, no, it's part of the gameplay. It's kind of cool. This game is easily manipulable. I don't know if you noticed this. I'm sure you did. You can have you can get an endless amount of handgun ammo from your car, and you can, towards the end of the game, you can heal yourself. So automatically with this pool, so you can theoretically leave a lot of things until the end of the game and then use that pool to heal yourself and go backwards if you wanted to. But the items in the game are pretty voluminous. You have like even grenades and shit that you can use. I was never really challenged by the combat. When I died, it was because a fucking chandelier fell on my head or I like got poisoned by a trap.
Man, they would reset. Yeah, it's super annoying. The poison.
I don't feel like the enemy designs were very inspired. I don't feel like there was even a great variety of enemies. It's not a long game by any stretch of the imagination, but the lack of kind of true scarcity, I think makes the game less scary. I know that there's a very hard mode that they released later and it's built into the version I have. So I always thought it was just there. That probably tamps that down a little bit. But what I realized was you can have up to 12 bullets on you at a time. If you had 8 bullets in your gun and 4 bullets on you, you can go to the car and it wouldn't give you any more bullets. But if you had 3 on you, it would give you 1 more bullet. And I kept going backwards knowing, well, I can just kind of use this to my benefit. And the other thing per the ink ribbons is you can just save as much as you want. And it tells you how many times you saved. I saved 51 times my first playthrough. So you would kind of inch forward and then retreat. And then kind of, at least that's the way I played.
Okay.
But there are some optional bosses in the game, which is cool. There's 15 secrets. If you find them all, you get a trophy, and they're like different weapons and armor. I was showing Micah, actually, I don't know if you remember this, that I love the little mushroom dude that you find.
Yeah.
You just find this random mushroom boy and he tells you that he'll give you a wish, but then he just won't even wait for you to say what you want your wish to be. And then he'll be like, you want an upgrade for your flamethrower? Okay, I guess. And then like give it to you, and then he disappears. It's very funny. There's a lot of humor in it. And the story definitely turns on its head at the end if you care about that.
Yeah.
It definitely becomes about something very different than what you think it's about, which is cool.
Yeah.
So a little subversive in that way. So yeah, do I recommend it? If you're into survival horror, I think you should look into it. If you're into like old nostalgia games, if you want to play something that you would have rented at Blockbuster, that's what my friend Mike was saying, is like, this is a game I would have rented in 1998.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I'm like, yeah, I can see that. It's dark, it's grainy, it's low res. It looks the part. It's in widescreen, so it doesn't quite look the part, but that's okay. I like when old school games are, unless you're Mega Man or something where the dimensions of the screen are vitally important to keep. Like, people are always like, why isn't Mega Man 9 and 10 in widescreen? It's like, because it can't be in widescreen. The bullets being on the screen, enemies coming in, it would break the whole way you play the game. But for games like this, you want to see the whole thing. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
All right, Michael Lady wrote in. This one is for Colin, as I'm curious if I'm alone in this. I beat Crow Country, but wasn't as impressed as most seem to be. While it handles storytelling well, despite an excess of documents to read and features some cool puzzles, I found it lacking as a survival horror game on both fronts. In terms of horror, it falls short because the enemies are laughable, and the ability to rotate the camera gives you a clear view of any room you're in, diminishing any sense of fear on the survival front. It fails because the game constantly throws enemies at you, but it also inundates you with healing items and ammo. Additionally, there's no real resource management mechanic, since your backpack can carry so much. The map is also terrible, as it doesn't show your character's orientation or location within a room, and the fact that you need to slowly aim at enemies was just an annoyance to me. I understand the appeal of the PS1 aesthetic and the Halloween-like soundtrack, and I did enjoy some puzzles. However, as a so-called survival horror game, which it clearly aims to be, I'm not sure I'd recommend it to fans of the genre. What is your take on it so far? So,
Yeah, good.
the enemy design, I guess, being laughable. I think the enemy design's okay. I don't think there's enough variety, but the enemy design itself, I don't think is that bad, especially for the environment and the story that it revolves around. And the rotating camera, I think, is an interesting thing in games. Like, if you're having a survival horror game, you have to, and you want not rotating camera, you have to do very specific camera angles, and that can be a lot of work. And there's some benefits to it, like they're saying about not being able to see enemies, but also it comes with points of frustration of not being able to see enemies when they could like hit you and stuff like that. I think it's a double-edged sword. But what do you think about all this, Colin? What Michael's saying here?
Yeah, the camera rotation is what makes it not a true era piece, I guess, in some sense.
Of PS1? Yeah.
Yeah, like it's not that games like this didn't necessarily exist. It's just that they wouldn't have looked like this. This is why I was like, these aren't pre-rendered backgrounds in the traditional sense, right? Like they look like them, but they're not, right? I mean, I'm not getting lost in the weeds here. They're just low-res 3D renders.
I think so, yeah.
So, I mean, they can't be. Like, otherwise you shouldn't be able to see them from multiple angles. So there's some concessions that they make all over the game, and I'm wondering why they didn't just make concessions to make the game feel better. That is a thing I wondered. I don't mind it saying like, okay, we're going to make this game tanky and all of this if you want, but we're going to make it more modern if you want to. And maybe you could have had it both ways. It's true that the game's not hard at all. Like, it's not hard in any sense. Other than if you just pay attention to what you're doing. The hardest part of the game, I think, was because usually you would even run around a lot of enemies and not even fight them, including like almost to the end of the game. There's a room right before the last boss where you can just basically run around the enemies and just go to these switches and open the door and leave. There's a lot of that in the game, but there's this one part where you're solving these like cylindrical puzzles with 3 symbols. Do you remember this? And like you would select a symbol and pillars would go up and down. And there's a part of that where like enemies come at you and you can't really get around them. And that's where you have to fight. But most of the time you don't really have to fight. Enemies don't respawn, but based on where you are in the story, you're backtracking all the time. So enemies will come back or there'll be new enemies in places. And if you're very careful and just kind of kill them as you go, you'll never be like, as long as you're not running through old areas without looking that new things are there, you'll be fine. Yeah. So it's that's what I was saying. It's good. I like it. I don't think it's anything truly special in my opinion.
Yeah, it's not like GOTY contender or anything crazy that's going to stand out in the genre for years to come. But it's cool.
Yeah, it's
I enjoyed my time with it.
People like it. It, like I said, it's very sticky. People are seeing it through. 50% completion rating or so is very high for almost any game. So can't complain about that. I'm sure they're happy with how it's doing. I think it got pretty good scores. Let me look here. Yeah, it's an 84 on Metacritic and a 90 on OpenCritic. I think that's pretty high.
That's crazy,
in my opinion. But I could see why people like it. It is deeply. I mean, if you are nostalgic for that era, oh my god, it's gonna poke you in the feels. But I think it lacks a lot of what makes those games special. I do appreciate no voice acting.
Yeah, me too. It's overwhelmingly positive on Steam as well.
How many reviews on Steam?
Out of, I think, 2,398.
Wow. Yeah. So they sold hundreds of thousands of this game probably across platforms. Not too bad.
So something about it's resonating with people. So they seem to have done good work. Cool. I would love to see them do like a sequel or something to expand upon it and just kind of tighten things up. I think it's a good start. So I like to see what they do in the future. All right. Let's end this show as we do with most of our podcasts with some comments and questions from the audience. This is from Game and Goob. Oh yeah, also you can send in questions to this and all of our other shows if you head on over to patreon.com/laststandmedia. It's from Game and Goob. Greetings, Brad, Colin, and Micah. I'm a huge Kingdom Hearts fan. I already know how all three of you feel about the series already, but how do you feel about Tetsuya Nomura as a writer/game designer specifically? Do you find him generally convoluted in his plot development like some, or find his long-running story connections captivating? Love what you all do and curious to know what you guys think. All right. Also, I'll let you guys talk first. Tetsuya Nomura. A
Yeah,
legendary game developer, been around a long time, still going.
Yeah, like and I'm looking it up now just to make sure, because I was like, he wasn't really in game design. And
he did like a lot of earlier on like art, like enemy design and stuff.
So I guess what I'm saying is like, yeah, he worked on Final Fantasy 4 and 6 and all these games, but he was like an illustrator.
On 6, he did a lot of Shadow's backstory and narrative and stuff like that. He was involved in story in 6.
Graphic character design, Center and Shadow, monster design. Yeah, it just says here. I mean, I believe you, graphic director.
I know, but he definitely had input on the story about a lot of that stuff.
Well, that's great. Yeah, and then I know with 7, he was like the progenitor of the story. He didn't write it.
No,
and then
he was involved. Yeah.
He was just like working. I guess what I'm saying is that by the time you get to Kingdom Hearts, so I think that was like his directorial debut, as I understand. It's like now he has real input into the games, and at that point, I'm like, I don't play Kingdom Hearts, so I really don't know anything about him.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
sure.
I mean, as someone who like I didn't care much for. Like he did a lot of things. He was the creatives on all these Kingdom Hearts games, and worked a little bit on 13, and I guess I played a little bit of World of Final Fantasy. But I'm looking through some of this other stuff. It wasn't until Final Fantasy VII Remake that I intersected with his work in any meaningful way, I guess is what I'm really saying. And so,
really interesting.
Yeah, because what would have been in between Kingdom Hearts and...
Well, you did with Final Fantasy VI and stuff like that, but I guess director stuff, you know.
Right, like, yeah, I'm saying, like, again, I don't think much of him is in 6 compared to the other people that worked on that game.
Right? Oh, yeah, definitely. He's not like the main driving
like,
force of that game.
Right. And that's the point I'm making. Like, the things that his imprint will be on are things I was never familiar with until Final Fantasy VII Remake. I don't think there's almost any example of games that I really got into that he did. I'd have to look pretty carefully, because in Japanese games they are so oversighted in the games that they work on. It's so annoying.
Yeah,
if you look at movie games, it's like, you guys didn't work on all these games. Why is this in here? You know, you didn't produce 17 games last year. It's just like, what the fuck is going on? So that's why I was so skeptical of Final Fantasy VII Remake. I remember being, when I found out.
I remember you being pretty down on it.
I was like, I can't believe it. You know, like,
yeah.
First it was Cyber Connect, which I was like, oh my God. And then obviously they got pulled off the project and basically restarted it with Nomura. And I was like, oh my God. And I think that fear was reasonable. But what I realized was it wasn't, again, not knowing much about Kingdom Hearts at all but being deeply put off by it. I mean, Chris and I talk about that all the time. Like, we're just deeply put off by the series. Is it's not the depth and the nerdiness of it that was a problem. It's that it was Kingdom Hearts that's the problem, because like his whole style with Final Fantasy VII Remake has been revolutionary, in my opinion. I mean, Final Fantasy VII Remake is superb. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's even better in a lot of ways. And so I have a newfound respect for him, but no history with his work really, apart from that, because I'm just looking through, like, it's just all Kingdom Hearts games, and he was like producer of a lot of games of which I didn't play either. So I guess even like games I played, like Dirge of Cerberus, it's character designer. Parasite Eve, character designer. The Bouncer, character designer. I've played all these games. Urgies, Brave Fencer Musashi. But yeah, meeting him as like a creative force, like the seminal creative force, I just didn't think he had it in him. And I guess it was kind of silly to think that he didn't, considering how much power he had with Kingdom Hearts over all those years. Yeah.
You know what's funny, Colin, is like I read that Kingdom Hearts was originally a much more simple story or something like that, but Sakaguchi is kind of one that influenced him to make it more Final Fantasy-esque, I should say. You know, because people complain about like Kingdom Hearts stories being wacky. It's like, have you played other old Final Fantasy games? They're fucking nuts, some of those stories. So all that DNA is in there. But Micah, I don't know. Do you have any experience with him or any of his games?
I don't. I Googled his name, and none of the games he's worked on are ones I've played. I mean, have I watched people play through Kingdom Hearts? Yes. I didn't enjoy it. I was actually like, my ex-boyfriend, I watched him play through it, and I was like, I don't get this story at all. I can't figure this out. I don't do convoluted. So no, it's not. So far, everything he's worked on has not been for me.
Sure. Obviously I really like Tetsuya Nomura. He's a very unique designer to me, and I can definitely feel his influence in some things, for better or for worse. Like, I fully acknowledge that Kingdom Hearts is crazy fucking mess a lot of times, and there's so much to it, but I really love the stories that he tells. I love his characters. I actually really like his design work too. Like his character designs, I think are obviously iconic. Like all the Final Fantasy VII crews, all him. So it's like this guy has definitely a talent. He's one of my favorite developers, but he is flawed definitely in some ways. But I absolutely love his work, and I'm really happy he's still making games, man. It's really good to see him still around there with all like the old guard at Square Enix still kind of going around. And like, I mean, I still lament Colin not getting Versus 13 and it turning into 15.
Yeah.
Like to me, Versus 13 was so much cooler visually from how it looked and from the gameplay we saw. Way more my style. So it does bum me out seeing that, but I'm glad he's still making games. He's still heavily involved with Square. So yeah, he's doing good work still, in my opinion. He just looks tired all the time. Oh, actually, a lot of the Square Enix guys look really tired all the time. Man. Like Yoshi P, dude, that guy is probably so fucking tired.
And they probably pay him like $200,000 a year or some stupid shit like that.
I know, dude. Yeah.
I would imagine Nomura makes 7 figures. I'm just kidding.
I'm sure Yoshi P does also now because he's like paramount to that company. He is like a shining star of that company. Colin, I think you would love so much of his work. Brief Final Fantasy 14 spoilers for Endwalker here. So if you don't want to know about this, I'm going to write this down just because you'll find this interesting, Colin. So in a patch for Endwalker, it's all about like Final Fantasy 4 stuff. The Fiends. Golbez is a boss in it.
Interesting.
He is like the main force. So I need to just take a picture of Golbez in the game and just show it to you. That's like, oh yeah, Colin would just love that kind of shit.
I also have a theory that Final Fantasy 16 and Final Fantasy 4 are connected. And
I wouldn't be surprised if they are, yeah.
I've talked about that extensively. Like there's so much theme and visual.
City, yeah.
It's crazy. Like
actual places.
Just the red entity in the sky and like
man.
There's just a lot of like weird shit in that game. Like the Dragoons and the betrayal of the Dragoons, and I think it's clearly a Final Fantasy 4.
Yeah, companion. I mean, Final Fantasy 14 has a lot, especially the Endwalker expansion has like a lot of Final Fantasy 4 in it. A lot. Like you go on the moon and shit. All that kind of stuff.
Cool. Yeah, 4 is wonderful.
They love, like a lot of those guys, like they love 4. They love tactics and stuff like that. Especially Yoshi P. He like loves tactics and Tactics Ogre. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see, I mean, we're going to see more tactics eventually, but I wouldn't be surprised if they have their hands in it in some way.
That'd be great.
Okay, this is from Sean Mason. Hello, Summoners. We often hear stories of fan bases excluding others from playing certain game series, but I am curious about the opposite experience. Have you ever tried a game because of its fan community? If so, what franchise and why? Best, Sean M. For me, it was the Nier series. Like, this was before Automata came out, and people are like, yeah, Nier's great, we love it. And like, I saw the reviews for it, I was like, 6? I'm like, okay, like, I'm not gonna fucking play this. But then I kept hearing about it from people. I'm like, all right, I will finally try it. And I did like Nier. I mean, I think the first game was rough around the edges, big time, but I did enjoy it overall. Micah, any game series you tried because of the fans asking you to play it?
Yeah, largely Xenoblade Chronicles is one that I got into a lot because of Gene's enthusiasm for it. Like Gene really did just push me to try it out. And then once I mentioned, okay, I might give this game a go, we had so many listeners who told me, oh, you're going to love it. Like definitely get into it. Sean Mason, being one of those. So yeah. And actually another listener, James, sent me his copy of Xenoblade Chronicles X because he knew I had my Wii U still and that it's hooked up and he wanted somebody else to experience it. So, wow. I mean, that's a huge testament to these fans who really love the series. And I don't mean to dunk on it. I do really enjoy the stories. It's just that the gameplay structure, grinding is so required that I'm just getting tired with it. But the stories themselves and the gameplay itself is a lot of fun. And I can see why people love it so much. I'm actually really excited to get to Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which a lot of people regard as like the best one. So but I have to play them in order. I have to do it. I have to see them all through. I refuse to quit. But yeah, that's a franchise that the fans of it really got me like interested more than I already was.
Colin, what about you?
I would say my capitulation into playing Trails is probably a good example of
Oh,
of
sure.
fans getting me into a game. Although my instinct is to say like there really is no example of it because I just play whatever. And I guess it's like just the general consensus about a game bubbles to the top and you see it, but I don't know if it's like a fan base influencing me. But I think that people got pretty in the weeds with me on to get me to play Trails, and so I think that would probably be a pretty good example of a fan base that pushed me over the edge.
Nice. Kingdom Hearts is next, baby. Oh, shout out to Sean Mason's dad. He's a listener of the show, dude.
Oh,
So,
Mr. Mason.
Papa Mason. Hell yeah.
Mr. Mason from Downton Abbey.
I haven't seen Downton Abbey, so I'll let you two handle that.
Yeah, that's fine.
This is from Teddy. Greetings, summoners. One of the most exciting times I had in gaming was lurking on the NeoGAF boards during the release of the PS4. The leaks, the meltdowns, and the banhammers. The most recent leak discussion had me thinking back to those days of yore, and I was curious what your level of activity was on the boards at all at that time. Who was Cbot? Did you ever have a forum meltdown? And did you ever meet an untimely end at the results of Bosch's banhammer? So I remember NeoGAF around this time. Definitely. I was lurking on that shit around then. I don't really like go on forums and join forums and post. I'm just not that kind of person. I don't really do that. But I do remember seeing stuff around this time, like Cbot, I remember was Crazy Butt Talks on a Train. I remember that was their name. They used to leak a bunch of shit. Now, Colin is someone who was at IGN at this time and who had a history with GameFAQs and all that stuff. What has your involvement been like with internet forums, I guess?
Oh, I mean, I was on internet forums going all the way back to the mid-90s, but GameFAQs, when GameFAQs introduced the forums, which I want to say was in 99 or 2000, I was on that from the beginning. It was awesome. And a really important part of my upbringing in games. And the boards have like completely gone zany since then, but they were seminal boards. And I used to be on MIRC and all those kinds of things, like chat room kind of things. Yeah. NeoGAF I never joined, but like you, I would read. They hated me and they hated us. They hated IGN, they hated Podcast Beyond. That version of NeoGAF. The new version of NeoGAF loves us. Or is much more amenable to us.
They had some drama going on.
They had a serious drama. Yeah. Oh, I don't know exactly what it was about, some impropriety, but the one thing I remember, and I don't know if it's like proven or true, but as I understand is that the dude who owned NeoGAF was offered $10 million for it at its height and declined. And it's worthless now. And that must be, if that's true, that's probably very difficult to deal with.
Yeah, that's when you put a chocolate gun in your mouth.
It's like,
you call it quits.
You offer $10 million to me, and before you even get the sum out of your mouth, and be like, deal.
Yeah.
You know? But it's fine. I mean, that's what happened, and it still exists. It's just a shadow of its former self. And there are like these other forums that have popped up, like Reset Era is a big one, obviously. But I think there's like
that's like the new version.
Yeah, that's like where everyone went, and it's like that's like
where we are hated.
Oh my god, I hate that fucking place.
Me included.
What a bunch of losers! They're the ones that ruined Easy Allies. No offense.
Yeah. I mean that's
they're
why
the ones
that
got in people's heads and fractured the fan base. I saw it happen from the outside. That's why I just don't listen to people like that. It's like, you have no power if you don't give it to them, or they don't. It's funny, man. He was talking about the PS4 leaks. I was the leaker of one. I was a major leaker of one thing, which was the controller. I don't know if people remember that.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's interesting. I didn't know that.
The controller leaked, and everyone thought it was fake. And then I was like, no, it's. And I was the one who wrote, and with some different views and off the record stuff from people being like, it's real, and no one believed it. And like, there's a touchpad on it. It's got like these chunky sticks on it. It was in front of the dev kit. Do you remember like the silver, huge dev kit without a PlayStation logo on it? So it looked fake. And the other funny thing, I remember this very well. This was fucking hysterical. NeoGAF was nuts. I'm sure Reset Era is like this too. There was a picture out of Massive, the Ubisoft studio, where someone saw a reflection of the Wii U. Do you remember this at all? And then that's how the Wii U leaked.
No,
was that there was like a reflection in a window of the Wii U or something like that? And then there ended up being the great Wii U meme of it looking out the rainy window, which was
like
my
I do remember that
meme. I love that meme so much. That meme is one of my favorite memes of all time. Like, it's so perfect in every way. And so it was a very memorable and influential place, but it totally fell apart. And I was more trying to like leak things and like trying to learn leaks from people or getting people to talk to me than perusing the message boards. And a lot of the stuff that that's what bothered me about NeoGAF, and it's what bothers me about. I was talking about this on Sacred recently. Is like I leak things still, or am told things and say it, and then never get credit for it anymore.
That's true.
And people tell me, it's like, he's not reliable. He doesn't have connections. He doesn't know anyone. I'm like, no, you guys just don't give me credit for the things I say, and ignore everything I say and then pretend that it didn't happen.
Well, it's like leakers are wrong all the time about shit.
Right. It's like whatever. You can't do anything about that.
I'll never forgive you, Jeff Grubb, for Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD. You said those were coming, you son of a bitch, and I'm still waiting.
Yeah, they're probably finished and just sitting there.
And I'm sure they are.
So that it annoyed me back in the day with NeoGAF, where they would talk shit about us and Podcast Beyond and all that, and then everything I would write, they would have like a big thread about it as if I didn't write it. And it would say that I wrote it, but everyone would just ignore that they hated me for 1 minute because I had all this interesting information about something. Mm-hmm. And that pissed me off. So yeah, that I was at my all-time height probably as a journalist during that era, where I was really one of the 3 or 5 people in the industry really doing that kind of work at that time. And it's not that people don't tell me things anymore. They tell me a lot of things. I just am not told in that capacity anymore. That's why I kind of have to feign surprise when things happen sometimes, or like, you know, because you don't even want to tip off what you know. I hate to say that, but it's true. It's like sometimes things are like, oh, this was announced. And it's like, yeah, I've known about this for 3 years, but even indicating how I know about, or that I know about it, would lead to people and all that kind of shit. But I'm very paranoid about that in this era. And a lot of people are, because it's becoming easier to track these people, like that, how Nintendo caught those people. And snared them basically. Like we figured out how it was all about the back end at Nintendo.com or whatever. Right. And like preloading stories, and someone was seeing it. And obviously people are getting that stuff off of YouTube as well. And then in the last direct, there were no leaks because they didn't preload anything and they didn't put anything on the website. So that's how they figured it out, as far as I understand. And then they reversed engineered it from there. So yeah, it's an interesting scene out there. There's only a few people that leak anything anymore. So
I'm curious, Colin, I don't know if you could say this or not, but did you see like the PS4 earlier than most people or anything like that?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. I was going to say, since you
I didn't see the console itself, I saw the dev units and what it was doing. But
okay.
Sometimes also, and this is funny, like sometimes big scoops, as we used to call them, scoops, Game Scoop.
I remember. Scoop? Yeah, I remember.
Yep, exactly. They used to come in from unexpected places. A story I like to tell is there was a dev diary at Naughty Dog, and on the screens in the animation kind of pod were clearly Uncharted character models. And I zoomed in on them and we like wrote this whole story and all of that. And Sony called me up and they're like, where the fuck did you get this shit? You know, kind of like thing. And I'm like, from your own video, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't like go and, what did you think? I went there with like a handy cam?
Secretly film. Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So it's like, sometimes it came straight from the horse's mouth, but often that stuff, like, I'm not so much, I don't want to do the legwork anymore.
Right.
Like I would never leak things if I didn't hear them from more than one person. And now I say things that I hear from one person because I'm not doing it from a journalistic perspective. And I know that a lot of it's true because of who it's coming from, and they wouldn't lie to me. But I'm also afraid of like tipping my hat too much and leading people to those people. So sometimes I'm like, can't believe it.
Micah, did you ever go on game forums or anything like that during this era, or do you ever in general?
No, these are not places I like to exist. I find them horrible. Me going on any sort of forum is strictly to read questions when some guy's like, I can't find this item, where is it? And everybody dogs on him, and finally somebody gives him the answer. That's it. That's all I'm doing on any sort of forums. These places are terrible. What is it? A hive of scum and villainy. I'm not into this at all. I find it terrible.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, it sucks. It's like, it's always weird going on a forum and just seeing people talk shit about you. It's always like, oh, okay, cool. But it's like, I know there's really great people out there also on these things too, but it's like you, I'm like, I'm good staying away from
you got to eventually just accept it. I was talking about this recently.
You just grow thicker skin. It just happens over
time.
Yeah,
like my skin is not impervious. Like I know people that really weren't I always say Greg was like seemingly unbothered by everything, which I couldn't believe, but he really was. Like I maybe he hit it really well or something, but I never saw it. He never reflected where he's like, man, this is really getting to me or something. It's like never. And I tried to look at people like that and be like, okay, Like, it's true that a football stadium, an NFL stadium's worth of people listen to Sacred Symbols every week, and the same 5 people on Reddit are talking shit about you. It's like, okay, I mean, like, are you what? And I also think listener feedback, to the point of, I've had many listeners in the past, especially when I used to kind of go off on Twitter on people sometimes, years ago now, was they'd be like, why do you give these people attention when people like us that love you don't get any of your attention? I'm like, yeah, fair enough. So now none of you get attention.
We appreciate all the kind feedback and good constructive criticism when we get it. So thank you out there. Final question from Matt Stinnett. Hey there. I'm curious if the 3 of you have read any novelizations or companion novels of video games. I love the Resident Evil novels as a teen, and have many others as well. Thanks for all the great content. Colin, I know you're a big reader, or were at least. I'm sure
Mike is a much bigger reader than me, but yeah.
Really? 2 bookworms, huh?
Oh yeah,
bunch of fucking nerds.
I was a huge bookworm when I was a kid, but I really only read over the summers now. So I am reading. I've read 3 books in the last 2 months or something, which is like a amazing pace at this point in my life. The only game book I can think that I did read was, I read one of the Resistance novels because we got it at IGN in the mail. I think it took place between 1 and 2, but I don't really remember anything about it. And then the only other game aligned book that I've read is Empire, which is the book that Shadow Complex was based on. That book existed before Shadow Complex ever existed, and the Shadow Complex is a place in that book. So, and that's an Orson Scott Card book. So in case any of you read about it and then you want to be like, oh my God, I don't like Orson Scott Card. It's like, okay, I get it. I know a lot of people don't. I'm just making a point.
I thought you were going to say Shadows of the Empire at first.
Oh, Shadows of the Empire. Yeah, but I don't consider. And I was like, oh shit. I mean, I read all of those. I read every Star Wars book in the 90s, basically. So that's a given. Shadows of the Empire is like one of the great Star Wars pieces of anything. But it's not real anymore. It's now a legend.
Oh, it's dead. Just bring it back, man. Bring Dash Rendar back.
Dash Rendar on Shizor.
Who's that?
That's the bad guy, the green skin.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Xizor was his how you spell it.
Yeah, weird times, man.
Yeah.
Weird times. Micah, any novels for you? Book novel or gaming related novels?
Yeah, gaming related in the sense, like, I've read the Witcher books because I played Witcher 3. I loved it so much that I wanted to read what it was based off of. So I went and read, I think I have 1 left to read. I've read all of them except for the last one. And then I also read Andrei Sapkowski. I read his other trilogy, which was localized maybe 2 years ago in the West for the first time. The Tower of Fools trilogy. There's no game based on that. I just really like his writing. He's very good, very funny. But otherwise, no, I haven't read any like novelizations of games, but it is cool to read like the Witcher books and see the source material and see how different it is in a lot of ways, see where they're faithful to. Like, it was hysterical when people were upset about the Netflix adaptation and the characters don't look right. And it's like, the characters in the game don't look right. Yennefer is described as being ugly. Triss Marigold is described as having chestnut hair and she wears shirts buttoned up to her neck. It's like none of the characters are right in the game. And so on the Netflix show, they're not right either. It doesn't really matter. It's just one of those things that it was funny, though, to see that. And it's like, honestly, nobody kept it faithful to what his vision was. I like each different adaptation of it to a degree. But that was just like a funny thing of like, oh my God, like people are so up in arms about it. Like, Yennefer doesn't look right. And it's like, she doesn't look like she does in the books either. All right. Like, that's all wrong. But I just love that franchise so much that I did really enjoy going through those books. They're very well done. They're very well done. You could get into like the original one. I think it's The Last Wish is like a collection of like short stories. That's what the Netflix adaptation, I think, starts with, and what that's based on. And that's a cool one to just read through if you just want to get a little more witchin'. But the like core like numbered series is really good.
A little more witchin'.
A little more witchy.
If you really liked Witcher 3, you just want a little more witchin'. Yeah, you can get in with that.
That's awesome. I read some of like a World of Warcraft book. That was like before an expansion. I read some of it, but I scrubbed out on it. But I definitely remember there was a Mass Effect book before Mass Effect 1 came out that I was curious about. And there was a Jedi Survivor book, or like a book before Jedi Survivor and in between Fallen Order that I was going to read. But I remember I was going to go buy it at Barnes & Noble and they didn't have it. So I just never fucking read it. Well, other than that, I'm not sure. I do remember the novelizations of Resident Evil games. I remember seeing them. My friend Mike Huber does have them. So they always looked interesting, but I never read them. I think the fact they like weren't canon at that age always turned me off or something like that.
I can understand that. It's like, why bother? Why read?
I think that was my mentality at the time. I was just like, ooh, why would I even fucking care then?
Yeah, it's fan fiction at that point. It's like,
exactly.
I don't know why some people bust balls and are real like annoying about like, why does it matter? It's like, why does it matter? Why don't I just read your fucking, why don't you just write me a Star Wars story and I'll read that? Because it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. It's just like fanfic.
I will say one other book I have that I have not read it, but someone sent it to me a long time ago when I fell in love with the Metro games was, or at least the first two was I have Metro 2033, but I've never read it. It's very big.
I believe it.
And that's Russian language, but that's obviously translated into English. Unlike Micah's reading The Witcher in its native Polish. So.
I wish.
That'd be awesome.
I wish. I can't. No, Aunt Phyllis, God rest her soul, would be very upset. I don't speak a lick of Polish. I'm sorry, Aunt Phyllis. It didn't stick.
Polak.
Damn. Shout out Aunt Phyllis. Micah, Colin, that's it. That is the end of the show. We've made it to the end.
Very well.
Thank you for joining me, Moriartys. I appreciate it. I enjoyed being the third wheel with you two. Always fun. I got a little peek into your relationship to see what your dynamic is like together when it's just you two. Very fun. I got to learn that Colin's watering plants at 2 a.m.
We were just hysterical because I'm like, I walk into the house and I'm like, someone just drove by and Micah just started laughing because she knew exactly why it was funny. Like I didn't have to explain to her like the next step of why that was funny. It's like someone drove by.
It is funny. Like who does that?
Yeah.
Who fucking does that?
I love to think of
do that.
We only have one car too. Like everyone in this fucking neighborhood has like 4 cars. At least 2, but many people have more than that. And we have 1. And I'm like, for people that don't know, I don't drive and I basically have a fear of driving. And, I'm like, they probably think I have a permanent DWI or something and like can't.
Oh, yeah. Some fucking boozer.
Yeah. And by the way,
Just
it is
drunk.
DWI. I know you guys say DUI, but on Long Island, it was DWI, DWI.
Oh
no. People
we're
say
supposed to
DWI.
follow the Islanders.
Yeah.
We're supposed to do what the island
people
people
DWI
say.
here. Also,
okay, good. Yeah, because a lot of people are like, it's not DWI. What is he saying DWI for? I'm like, I'm not saying
It's
DUI.
just like
I'm saying DWI, driving while intoxicated.
Everyone knows it's DUI, but they just say DWI also.
Oh,
Well,
all
no,
right.
but-
Why don't I just go fire up my SNES?
Ugh.
Since we're allowed to take acronyms and just make them into one word, I'm going to fire up that SNES.
But to be
and play
clear,
some
DUI
Supreme
and DWI
Court.
are different acronyms too.
Yes.
DWI and DUI are different acronyms, but they mean the same thing.
Yeah, you say DWI when you're like more lighthearted about
Yeah,
it. Because
yeah,
obviously
exactly.
it's a very intense thing.
Driving under the influence.
You're fucking right.
driving
It's a
while
DWI.
intoxicated.
Yeah. SNES? I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever heard anyone say, I'm going to go play my SNES.
It's European.
Oh,
Yeah.
that explains it.
Yeah, explains a lot. Because
That
no one in
explains
the
a lot.
United States would, in their right mind, say that. Yeah.
Everyone just be like, you want to play Nintendo? That's what everyone would say.
Or Super
For
Nintendo.
Super Nintendo, that's it. Whatever. SNES. Fucking ridiculous. All right, that's it. Before we head out, Micah, Colin, do you have any final words or should we just get the hell out of here?
Oh, let's just go.
My
gotta go
feet
mow
are
the lawn.
freezing. I forgot to
Oh
put
my
on
God.
socks again. We
You
had our little
freak,
bathroom
Micah.
break. I didn't put on any socks, and I can't wait. I'm gonna go put on some socks right now.
Go get some house slippers or
Yeah,
something.
get some slippers.
Oh, I have several pairs of slippers, but you need socks. You can't wear slippers without socks.
Oh my gosh. I'm not even getting into this.
Yeah, please don't.
Thank you everyone for listening and watching. We appreciate it. See you next time. Bye. Summon Sign is a product of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is written and hosted by me, Brad Ellis. The show is produced by Dustin Furman. All of Last Stand's theme music is by Ramon Narvaez. Summon Sign, along with the rest of Last Stand's media shows, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we are grateful for your kind contribution and generosity to our independent endeavor. Thank you.